and qualify all the way through for them to now be able to punch their ticket through the finals like it.
Take a look at, break down more of the trios, and of course more highlights. Let's take a look at all of what we have ahead of us, because guys, today is going to be insane.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to OC. Big up to Mars' trio. I think this is them that we're watching right now, about to get a victory out. They were able to get one. Look, I thought they were going to make it through, you know, in quarters, I thought they were going to make it through on day one of the semis, but they didn't. But they finally did it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, exactly, right? You know, once you make it, you make it. Like, a lot of people don't necessarily go, oh, these guys are the Reboot Round or the Reboot Round style teams from semis, right? It's just like you make your way through. If you're there, then it's an equal competition, right? Everyone's managed to make their way, punch their tickets, basically the same kind of way. So they've managed to make themselves qualified. So, you know, obviously for Mars' team, for example, they've ticked off that box.
Yeah, congrats to them, and of course, congrats to all the other teams that are able to make it through. Look, I think the big thing is, right, looking to see what teams are going to just impose themselves on the lobby, right? You know, of course, yeah, you get the teams that will play for Heal-Off. I'm sure we will see that, and that's going to be a big deal. But, you know, I think there's talks of drop spots, there's talks of, you know, POIs, whatever it is. You want to just go out there and win, right? You want to go out there and win. And these were the teams that were able to do that. You can see game one, it was Mars' team, right? Not just waiting until the last game, right? You know, getting it out the way. First game, you know, we'll win. Now we don't have to play the next couple games. They did it first. Love to see it. But no, big up to all these teams here as well that were able to make it to the finals of OC.
Yeah, if we move over to that second heat, we'll see the rest of the teams who managed to make it through as well. For Oatly's team, their Victory Royale had 14 eliminations in it, right? So they won the first game and they absolutely dominated as well, which was very, very interesting for them. You wouldn't normally see a double-digit elim, but when you start to look at some of the amount of elims from the other teams, a lot of them were in the double digits in heat number 2. You saw Blue's team alongside Regan's team also managing to make it through with the double-digit eliminations to get Victory Royale. So it's like, you know, these teams are potentially playing a little bit more aggressive than we initially would have anticipated.
I feel like you have to, right? With only one last chance, it's got 6 games ahead of you. If you can get that victory out, the only thing that matters, you could very well carry your trio into finals and look to compete for the Axe of Champions. But we'll have to see how that all goes after these 6 games. Let's talk about the lobby list. We have 2 separate heats to kind of check in on. Here is lobby list number 1 for heat number 1. A lot of ones there. But here we go, guys. Top to bottom here. This is just the first page. What are some trios that are kind of standing out to you? What are trios you guys think could walk away with a Victory Royale?
Oh, I love when you ask me these questions, right? Who are my ones to watch per se? Look, I'm a big fan of a lot of the teams, right? I'm sure I look at the likes of Michael, Astro, Verox, Bloomy, Shadow, Tomzy. You know, these are teams I very much like and support. The big question, though, is, you know, you have to look at a team and go, do you see them winning a game? And, you know, sometimes maybe that's the wrong way to look at it. I didn't think Mitra would qualify, and he did yesterday, right? So maybe that's not the right way. I could see the Loot Boy team winning a game, Reese. I think maybe you'll be on my side here. Bagfee, Zest, and Hydra, I could see them maybe sneaking one in at some point.
Yeah, I definitely agree that I think that's going to be basically one of the best teams that will make their way through. Them going usually into stealthy and doing this uncontested. Like, they're one of the teams who have historically picked up a ton of victory royales throughout the qualifiers and also just played really, really well. Obviously, the heats or the semifinals isn't really their style in day number 1 so far. So hopefully in day number 2, I think they can pop off. But there's a ton of teams who could also do really well, like Karma, Kylie, and Aware at the very bottom there. Another team who's very, very good this season, but again, hasn't really managed to just hit the thresholds, right? There's only so many teams. If you're in a qualifier, can hit a top 5, or if you're in the semifinals day 1 yesterday, you can hit a top 4. So if we check over to the next page, look who's standing out to you here.
I think Flick will be one, right, where you go, you know, these guys need to do better than what they did yesterday. Yesterday contested at Catty, and it didn't go too well. Didn't go too well whatsoever. And so hopefully there's that feeling of a bounce back, right? How can we react and respond to what went wrong? Of course, Red Rush 62 was Mappy. That's the team that you were really high on yesterday, Reese, and it didn't quite work out for them. Could you envision them winning a game today?
Yeah, I definitely think I could, right? 6 games in there. I think even if it starts to go really slow for them, like, I could definitely see them just managing to make it through. I think the determination on these guys is what's going to set them apart, because like I said, these have made finals in previous seasons pretty repeatedly, and now that they're in this last stage to be able to make it through, it's like, right, that determination is it's time to go. It's time to turn it up. It's time to win a game, and it's time to do it where it all actually matters at the same time. And I want to point out another team. Obviously, you're talking about Flick, Pablo, and Swag there. Moving on further down, obviously we see Rax, Hutty, and Mini, who had that really, really long fight and engagement repeatedly going on at Catty Corners. We saw obviously them going on playing off the heel off to try and get to the top placements at the same time. And I want to see if we're going to see that engagement again today in Heat 1.
Yeah, they outclassed him yesterday. I'm sure they'll look to do the same today. Let's look at that last page, though. Let's round out the heat, see who's going to be competing in this round. And look, I'm looking forward to seeing for Strokey, CR, and Aqua, right? This is a team who they're going to get to end game every single game, of all the 6, or if they have to play all the 6, right? They're really good at dealing with Surge out of Boney. They need to just get the win, right? And ultimately, I think that's going to be the challenge for them, where we've seen them in so many games this season, and I feel like it's been a constant talking point, Reese. Yeah, these guys are going to be a height team. Oh, can they roll the dice? Oh, can they get height this game? Like, you have to do it today. There's no time, like, there's no question, and oh, can you do it? No, you just have to do it today, because we've seen when they're not on height, they're very dysfunctional. They can't seem to string it together and win games. And so they really need to hope that they don't have too many people padding for it and whatnot, but it has to be a good day for these guys today.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be, right? I think they're going to be able to do it realistically. Like, they've won games in the qualifiers, one game in the semifinals yesterday. It's like, for them, they have the capability to win the games today. And like, I think if anyone's looking at a prediction of this, you're looking and you're going, I wonder, like, who's going to win a game here? You've got to pick them. Surely you have to pick them. They've got to be the best pick overall, because just for the fact that if anyone's going to win a game in a qualifier, like, you know, we already predicted them to do that in the previous weeks and yesterday at the same time. So here today, surely they're going to do the same thing.
Yeah, and look, one last point of CMX, they were the team that actually won the last game, right, in their heat yesterday. So maybe they will come into this, you know, with a hot hand. Who knows? Who knows? I think more importantly, right, it's going to be about, you know, being able to fend off the people trying to take your height. A lot of the height teams have struggled with, you know, being able to hold on to it. Is there going to be somebody whipping out something cool today to prevent that? We'll find out. Let's look at the next heat, though, because, of course, there are 2 heats going on sort of simultaneously. There's a bit of staggering going on, but we'll get to that. I'm looking forward to this one. I'm looking really forward to this one because, as you can see here, some of the teams competing are going to be very interesting to see. Reese, who stands out to you on this page?
You know me, and you know you've looked and talked to me through multiple seasons so far. So Andon's team's definitely going to stand out, obviously, for me, with Jessica and Trixie. They've been good this season, not amazing like I've hyped them up in previous seasons, but they definitely stand out. You know who does stand out to me? Fancy Shots, Vetrum and Tob. And you know why they stand out? Because Fancy Shots DMs me today. I read it like an hour ago, and he says, we're winning the game of Reboot Round. So they're feeling confident, right? They're feeling in it to win a game so far. So I don't want to DM them if they don't win and be like, well, what happened? What went wrong here? But if they do win, I'll hype my boys up.
Well, I was about to say, right, if they don't win, you just have to respond with laughing emojis, like just endless laughing emojis. So let's look at that. Maybe I'm just mean. I'm just mean. That's what I would do personally. Look, I'm looking forward to this one as well because Snazy, Sky, and Nate, they're going to be competing, and I'm a big fan of them, right? It's not been perfect yet, but Catty Corner is where they choose to go most of the time, and so we'll see how that one plays out. Reese, I'll be honest though, I think the one team that everybody will be talking about from this heat, Walker's trio with Splash, Koro, like, I don't know how what happened to them yesterday happened. And so if you don't know what I'm talking about, these guys obviously played in the heat, you know, day one, where there's 4 games, and they actually won 2 of the 4 games. Reese, how do you win 2 of 4 games and not qualify through top 4? It didn't make any sense. They had an absolute howler, and so today is their chance to bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they managed to pick up those 2 victory rounds. They looked like the strongest team on the day, and you know, I saw an interesting clip of how they did. They got shot down. They managed not to be able to connect with their floors, and 2 of their teammates went down to fall damage. So you see, like, they were on a roll, but truly anything can happen when it was a 4-game format. But you've got to think, right? Coming into this heat, you know, we've hyped up Aqua in the previous heat so far. These guys also came 5th, 1 slot away from qualifying in heat number 2. So you've got to say, like, surely these guys can pick up 1 victory out of the 6 games if they picked up 2 out of 4 yesterday.
Yeah, no, these guys, the way they play for height is really aggressive, and I can assure you that there will be a game where they go for height and probably win as well. So let's take a look at the next page. Who will be the remaining players trying to get a win in this heat? 3 names stand out to me. Hen, Refsguard, Trulex really struggled for Surge yesterday, and I don't really understand how they struggled for Surge when they have Refsguard, who's been landing steamy stacks all year long. from speaking to Hen, it seems as if there wasn't as much communication, right? There's not much, you know, sharing in terms of ideas and strats behind getting Surge at Steamy Stacks. And part of me thinks that's mainly because, and this isn't a dig or anything, but part of me thinks because Rescard was playing with Savage and Andrea, who, you know, you think about it, they will do everything, right? Like, they will figure out all the strategy, you don't need to worry. All you got to do if you're playing with those two is just sit there and get eliminations, right? And a part of me thinks that's probably where the problems are, but you can't afford to have these problems today. If these guys aren't playing in the finals tomorrow,
I know, because I think also, like, we've hyped them up throughout most of the qualifiers, and like yesterday I predicted them to do really, really well in the semi-final day one as well, and so far we've not really been seeing that level of performance, right? They seem to be a trio that is middling, you know, when you're hitting that kind of 15th in a set lobby. If we look at the Cash Cup performances, relatively similar, you know, kind of just jutting in and out of the money thresholds as well. So it's like, for them, we were looking for a lot more out of them as a team, and you know what, maybe they're just the last minute team, right? Maybe yesterday things didn't work out, they figured out the big hole, which was obviously Storm Surge earlier on, and they've tried to plunge that up a little bit by shooting some shots and actually hitting them, hopefully at some point in the early and mid game, and managing to push them on through. And I think if they do manage to get consistently to end game, like, I think they can pick up a victory royale, but I'm not sure because we just haven't seen them in that position repeatedly throughout the last couple of weeks.
I like this, though. I like that they're that underdog team, because that's where some of these trios want to be, like you're saying, right? They want to make sure they're flying stealth under that radar, and in the moment when they need to, they can get the victory out and just say, all right, we're done. Mission accomplished. We'll see you guys in finals. We'll see you tomorrow. You know, but we'll have to see. Guys, we got to move to my favorite part. It's drawing on the map. So obviously with this reboot round style change up, it's a very different mindset, or it's a very different way to approach the competitive scene in general. So in case you guys don't understand, or you're just watching and tuning in, the only thing that matters is the victory royale. All right, if whatever team gets the victory royale, they will auto qualify going into finals. So let's talk about a few POIs here that we think could be great places to land that could potentially net you victory royale. Maybe even some places that you're like, I don't know, Zeke, I would want to land here if I'm looking for a VR.
Look, so I want to clarify here. We're going to start with some POIs that have not been successful so far across this, right? We're going to looking from his heats 1 and 2 yesterday from semis and like across all of the regions. So how many victory royales are we looking at from these specific drop spots, right? So the ones so far that haven't been as successful is kind of like the castle split at the far side, the kind of the Fort Crumpet area, kind of smashed up here. We've got Dirty Docks as well, which is quite a surprising one for me, but a lot of the times this has been contested. So, you know, it's a lot more difficult to get a lot more victory royales out of that. Corny as well in the center too. We've got Weeping. We've also got Camp Cod. But yeah, I don't think that one's a surprise to many people. Let's be real. No. And Steamy Stacks, right? So Steamy Stacks for Refsguard's team. I mean, you know, we're just saying so far. These are the ones who haven't worked historically. But you know, if trends are going to continue so far for Refsguard's team alongside Hen and Trulex, assuming they are landing here today as well, I mean, they're already a downward hill battle.
Well, the way I see it, Reese, is that a lot of these spots, when you go in, you know, War, VOD Review and whatnot, a lot of these teams that we see landing there are teams that struggle with Surge, right? So I don't just think it inherently means a POI is bad. We've seen great teams land at some of these spots. I think a lot of these teams are players who maybe are struggling with Surge, haven't been able to figure out the right routes and positioning. And so if that's going to continue over today, it's not like there's been much time. It's not like this was what was happening weeks ago. No, this was happening yesterday. So I doubt we're going to see much change. And like you're sort of alluding to, it probably isn't the best starting point for a lot of the teams that'll be landing there.
Yeah, and so let's turn that over and say, right, those are the places that haven't done so well yesterday. Let's take up the ones that have been good. So for me, so far, the two that are kind of tied second, not first yet. We'll talk about the first one after, right? Is Misty Meadows and Catty Corner, right? What's funny about this to me, firstly, is that the community is like, oh, all these zones could pull in south, which, you know, if you look at them all, that's not actually true. And the two POIs that have some of the most successful rates of victory royales are obviously on the south side of the zone as well, which I find is interesting, but that's not the reason for their success. A large reason for the success is for Catty Corner, the amount of peppers you can get from there. Huge volume of peppers, which obviously is really good mobility to take high ground, which obviously will allow you then victory royales at the same time. For Misty Meadows, like, you know, with the addition of the new crash site right next to it, you get so much loot coming out of this place, which means more launch pads, more height retakes as well. So like you can see how these are all starting to form together. And obviously they're also very large areas in terms of land mass, which will allow you to be able to get more llamas too, which will give you the chili chug splashes, which you can play for heal off as well. So there's a lot of different moving parts to this.
Look, there's no science to what I'm about to say here, but there's something about just South teams in general. I just feel like they all just get llamas. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I just feel like whenever I watch a South team, they have Jilly splashes and they've got an llama. There's something about it. Look, we will see some of the big hitting teams landing at these POIs. Of course, I mentioned Nate earlier with Kite Corner. Milwaukee's team was actually landing at Misty, right? And so there you go. They were responsible for some of the victory rounds we saw from it yesterday. Definitely 2 POIs to watch out for in terms of potential winners today.
All right, Reese, hit us with the most success. What's number 1 then?
I think this will surprise people because it surprised me.
Yeah.
It surprised me, right? You know, a lot of you think Bodie Burbs, Believers Beach, you know, some of the big hitting ones. It's Retail Row. I'm drawing not with a square here. It's Retail Row. I saw my bad. I almost crossed it out instead, right? Retail Row. I mean, honestly, across the last, I'm trying to think like teams that have been really successful from there and previously. But look, this is what you get to see. 6 victory royales. That was obviously, just to clarify, that was yesterday across all regions in both of the heats, which is more than any other drop spawn.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know why. Like, I wouldn't have guessed Rio Row if I was thinking, look, shout out to the old, you know, the classic POIs. But I think when you look at EU, because of course this was, you know, data taken from all the regions. I think when you look at EU, there is potential for Retail to be contested, I believe, in one of the heats. And when you look at one of the other heats, I think Hutty's team is landing Retail, right? Which actually does pretty, you know, make sense in terms of a team that's quite good landing out of Retail Row. So maybe that will continue along in EU today. Very interesting though. I didn't expect Retail Row to be one of the more successful POIs in this sort of a format.
Not at all. And like, you know, I'm trying to think on EU in particular. Usually Retail Row's like, we'll just go there, right? It's open, it's free for a team. There's no team that's like, yeah, Retail Row's my home. Maybe I'm obviously misthinking of. There's always some team who'll be like, I've landed there for 500 seasons.
What you mean to say is there's no good team.
Well, I mean, someone will correct me, I'm sure. Someone will correct me, I'm sure. Name one, Levin. Name one for me.
Okay, look. Retail Row is the spot, guys. Land Retail Row in your arena games, all your regular games. You'll find me there. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, wow. Okay. We got about 2 minutes before we get going. Guys, let's talk about the heal offs, right? So we're going to see everybody carrying some type of heal, whether it be chugs, whether that be things like corn, cabbages, med kits. I mean, there's so much variety here. What can viewers that have never seen this style of play before expect in those final moments of the zone?
I think when it comes to heal-offs, a lot of the time, right, you are almost like looking around in zone thinking, is there someone just like chilling there, like just camping? A lot of the times you're going to see a lot of these guys with just loads of cabbages, right? Just like infinite cabbages, it feels like. Look, the heal-offs can be exciting just because you sort of are almost trying to do the mental math of, does he have enough? Is he going to be able to last long? Don't know if I'm not great at maths, right? So I leave that to the casters to do it for me. But it is one of those things where we will probably see heal-offs. I just don't think it'll be as prevalent as maybe it was in previous seasons, Reese.
Yeah, and I think because of that, like I said, in previous seasons, actually, a lot of us have expected tons of heal-offs, and it's just maybe happened in 50% of the games, roughly, if that's generous estimate, to be honest with you. So a lot of the times what we're seeing is the teams up on height. It's like, if they have heal-off, they'll play it, and they'll just send the 2 teammates down to actually go for the eliminations and disrupt the heal-off down below, and that's why it doesn't end up getting that far towards it. But usually you'll see at least one player stuck on top. The issue is that when the team's up on top, right, they feel really confident, right? If they have tons of heals, that's when they don't send their 2 teammates down, and then things actually go to a full heal off, right? Because they don't send the teammates down, they ensure that they drop to storm so the other team doesn't get the siphons for them. But then you're just playing like, I think I have more heals, hopefully I do, but the teams on low often pick up way more floppers from all the eliminations and things like that at the same time. So I'm interested to see how the heal offs actually end up playing today, if we see too many of them.
It's an interesting one though, because you mentioned, you know, teams maybe sending 2 players down and 1 person up. I just don't think you can afford to do that this season. I think when you watch how difficult it is for height teams this season, sending 2 players down most of the time is never really going to be the right decision to make. And so does that maybe change teams' minds on whether that is the right thing to do when it is now more reliant on heal off and more reliant on trying to get that victory out? We're going to have to find out. But I'm looking forward to it. I think we will see some double-digit elimination games across both heats, the way we have in Asia and OCE. I'm looking forward to it. But if I'm wrong, it was Reese Hub that said that, not me.
Well, guys, we're about to get started, and I'm going to clue you guys into the surprise. Normally, we'd be watching 2 separate heats. We'd be checking it in one. Well, guess what? We're going big today. We're going tri-cast. That's right. Our analysts are jumping on board. They'll be hanging out with Sundown with Shy Wager. Reese, you're up first, so guess what? It's game time. I'm going to see you guys at the end of the show, but right now, we're going to be watching 12 games back to back. Let's do this, baby. It's game time. Woo!
Thank you so much, Zeke and Levin. And boy, is it good to be back. Welcome, Reese, Shio on board as well. And as they said, it is 12 straight matches of endgames where the only thing that matters is that sweet, sweet victory royale to a ticket to one of the biggest competitions we've seen in a while. I mean, that is a big prize pool for EU, Shio.
Big prize pool, big mission to, break down those 12 games. So we'll have Reese coming in for Heat 1. Levin will tune in for Heat 2 as well. Reese, talk to me about this Heat. It's going to get crazy. Some of the big players, I mean, this is the trio I wanted to look at first. Came 5th place. EU, I mean, it's all on the line and only the wins matter.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. Production hooking up straight away, going with the team that a lot of us will predict so well in this first match. Like, I could see Aqua, for Strokey, CRR picking up the victory around that first game. Like, anyone that knows Aqua for the longest time has been just a height dominant team, and anyone that he's played with has just consistently done that same strategy.
And don't forget, this entire time, we're also going to be keeping an eye on that top left corner, because when those trios do end up getting full confirmed, as we've seen, one has already gone down. That's it. They're going to have to wait. They'll have 5 more opportunities to go through. But Skype, one of our longest running veterans, the French player who is generally qualified for almost everything, overcome some of the biggest risk issues to end up making it here. Down first right away. Phrase trio picking up a clean 3-0, 2 at the hands of Mike's.
Yeah, on that mention of the player count as well, when you're looking at a winner every game, the lobby size will also go down every game, so it'll be slightly different inside the early game. At the very end of this, with 5 teams already qualified through this type of reboot style process, right? A team winning and then getting taken away, it'll change the stakes kind of, Reese, right? The games will feel slightly differently.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this is that, like, the teams will also have to make adjustments on this, right? In this first game, we've already seen 2 teams contested with so many less teams, right? You see 2 teams fighting right here in the draw spot, looking at Craggy, but in the elimination feed right there, we saw Matzo picking up an elimination too. So there's 2 different bunch of contestations, and in this next game, one team's going to go out, which means another team will try and fill their drop spot wherever it may be. And a lot of the times we see other teams doing the similar things where they're like, oh, we'll go there, and then a new drop spot becomes contested, and it just continually changes.
Yeah, sometimes you want to root for the people that beat you off spawn. You end up having enemies being your friends off screen. Please win this game. I want to go to Kroll next time and be completely free here as I move around.
Yeah, which, I mean, a strange circumstance anyway, where you end up with nearly an off-the-rip fight at Koro. More often than not, you'll see people kind of loot outside in around Koro, because once you're committed, you're pretty much committed. And while there is just a ton of brick in the area, it's basically brick, a decent amount of floor spawns, and that's it. Like, there's not a ton of chest spawns. And as I say that, Fury gets a great pull out of that chest with a legendary AR.
Yeah, they're going to be fighting up a 5 spawn here. The entire war will still continue between these 2 teams. We'll move around the map. ETQ, Petland surprise up against Hycris Vortex the Knight. Excuse me. And this is also a big matchup that's been going on over and over again. I mean, when you're looking at things in this way, Hycris just feels like they're always, or at least this trio is affecting another squad early game. They have things in control, but as soon as that end game happens, that's where they start to trip up.
Yeah, season after season, we just see Hycris' team just fighting, right? It's like wherever they go, they're always in this kind of spot. I'm never able to see them really fully uncontested, fully in a spot that they're able to command and own down. Many seasons ago, we've obviously seen them contesting some of the champions of Henjanus Chapix, and that was one of the biggest storylines of that full season. And even here in the reboot round, they're still managing to get into a scrappy engagement with Vettel's team.
Well, and I don't think they've definitively proved that they're strong enough off of the start to not go and fight. right? Like we've seen even in some of the earlier rounds, they've had struggles at these early fights. So yes, the fact that they're over at Holly Hedges, which you kind of consider just a little bit below one of those top tier POIs, even when you're uncontested, they still have people coming over and challenging them. And that's a little bit of building up the reputation over the course of not only the Trio Cash Cups, but these other FNCS rounds. If you're in this winner-take-all situation and somebody feels that they're good enough to be landing on you, that's moderately terrifying in some of those circumstances, as we see that Coral Castle fight now potentially getting a resolution. Link getting a big shot in there, but not covering his 6, ends up eating a shot in the back, gets the down trade on Matzo, but Matzo was effectively the target dummy earlier. We had saw him going down, so really good job by Fury and Siberia Jake to potentially double down. Now it's a 1v2 on the other side of it. You see the cleanup happening now, and Fury just desperately being backed away, but he has 16 bullets, 6 bullets, 7 bullets now, 5 bullets, 28 builds, just desperately going to try and run away, pick up anything on the ground he can, because even the ammo in that gun is going to be worth.
Yeah, I mean, anything he can make at this point will do something for him, right? He just has to try and get some shots, some tags, but he's outnumbered, outmanned, outgunned, and out-ammoed, and at this point, it's just a matter of can he just do literally anything? We're just hoping that he can pick up some form. Potentially a shotgun would be absolutely beautiful, and with the 12 builds, it's looking rough.
Yeah, drops the bandages a little bit into his health pool, drops the items to get a little bit more lighter as he moves around. Has 10 bullets left. When you have more bandages than bullets, that's when you know things are going really bad for you off spawn. Amplify with full HP, has to land every single shot and not take any damage. It's over for Fury. And that fight lasted so long too. That's the difference with this style of format. Usually these teams clash so fast, the fight ends right off the drop, but these ones are getting slightly delayed over time.
Yeah, with Coral Castle, we've seen that repeatedly. The fights always last ages. I'm surprised the zone didn't come in, right? That's what we usually see. We see them fighting deep into Storm 1-2 minutes in, and then that, even though you've won it, realistically, both teams have lost.
Yeah, the big thing too, when it just comes in general to semis or in a 2-day type format, we were looking at semis on day 1. The contested teams rolling in did not have that much success at all. When you have that game plan laid out for you, no interruptions, you get to be good on timing, when the quality of the lobby is also higher than qualifiers, that's how you end up winning games, being uncontested. Right there, good for Amplify, right, Reese? But the issue is, 2 of the teammates down, you have to spend time rebooting, getting all the loot back into your loadout, getting acclimated to where the zone is. It's not even close to Coral Castle. Look at all the arrows that are going to be engulfed by the storm. I mean, Amplify team's already lost in the sauce, and all these on the top left side are going to follow.
I mean, I said that the zone hadn't come in the middle of that fight, but because of that fight, the zone still came on top of them and ended up making them now having to do a really difficult rotate through. And we saw that they were really looking rough on loot, on everything that they had to at that moment. So for them, being in the top left and having a fully southeast zone, that's going to be rough.
Luckily, there is a boat path that you are able to take. There's a couple boats that you can just stack 3 people on and kind of rotate going up. Again, boats now having that limited gas came through if people end up salvaging them. However, just looking at the map, everyone seems to be already too internal, utilizing some of those side streams and the natural rotation as well as the cars to just kind of move along and get there. But a trio that was talked about a ton yesterday, former FNCS champ on it as well. You got TCE, Red Rush, Loot Boy, Exteriors, and Glorious Mappy rotating through Sludgy Swamp, making sure they're topping up on their HP bars. We'd like to see them group together when they get those barrels, but there'll be more than enough to go through, as we've seen in the past, as 2 of our power trios stacked directly on top of it. This Mongrel, Joe, and Vino with Aqua, CRR, and Fastroki taking shots.
They're gonna have to move their way through the mid game, and like this is what's interesting. Notice the player count's gone back up because of those reboots came through, so 73 players still in this, so players may have to figure out what they do with Surge. I was trying to understand, are players even going to have to worry about positioning as early to get that kind of first threshold for Surge in? Is it going to drop below 70? Because obviously we have less players in here. As the games go on, I'm guessing that'll become easier and easier, but in this first match, a lot of players won't understand how to play it as such. They're still going to be a little bit new to this style of format, and they've got to think like, how do we go? Do we actually sit up in these positions? Do we hard focus our usual storm surge strategy, or do we focus a little bit more on getting a centered position in zone? Because most of the time those two things contradict each other.
Yeah, the options available for you are also very different depending on the drop. I like the fact that when you bring up boats, a lot of teams on the north side of the map will have access to many vehicles to move around and get early positioning on the map. Meanwhile, Misty, Caddy, a lot of those south side zones have access to peppers, stuff they can use later in the game. This time they'll have zone, won't have to move around as much, but then get that option later compared to every other team. You also bring up Red Rush, very good choice to bring up too. One of the only South teams that gets access to vehicles fast and gets to move around the map. That's one of the things that we're kind of using yesterday to kind of get ahead of everything. The issue was all the way towards the very end, they cannot hold on and be as consistent as every other team in the lobby.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of a map knowledge check, because you would expect players, especially if they're landing over in this situation in a reboot round style game where you have to, it's winner take all. Like, you've been in these situations, whether it was a scrim or a cash cups, there's been some kind of situation where your drop was scuffed and one of your players ends up clutching up as sick 1v2 or 1v3 and the zone is coming in. You have to know where to find those campfires. You have to know to go through and kind of how those campfires end up affecting the playstyle, especially now that they can't be relit going through, costing 600 wood.
And for some of the teams who've managed to make it in already, they don't have to worry about that yet. However, they're set up to. Look at POIs' inventory right now. Like, you'd think this is kind of set up exactly for the heal-off that we talked about earlier, where they have the 4 floppers, they have the 4 chug splashes too.
Yeah, yesterday when watching these guys, they were kind of different beasts inside the same animal. It was so weird looking at POIs, MXR, and One Loss being super aggressive, pushing people pre-third zone. It kind of felt like I was watching Reason, Vidil, Noah Riley of the old ages. They were just taking every fight possible, trying to get things elevated for that 4-game format. Now we should see them just sticking to these high bases, the hills, waiting for people to move in. When it comes to this style of game where only the winner can qualify, it's all about just managing the damage, making sure you're getting everyone away from not only your position, but everything around it too. Kind of like building a moat around the castle. You don't want anyone really in your personal space.
And you might think that, like, oh my lord, this is so scary. They've been out in the zone for so long. Well, the first 2 zones are just a single tick. And if you're carrying even 1 med kit, you're generally able to negate most of that rotation. Once it ends up kind of expanding when you get into zone 3 and 4, the zone goes to 2 tick, it gets a little bit more iffy. But again, if you're holding on to a med kit, that's 50 seconds that you can just hang out in the zone and just chill. And you're totally fine. So you get so much more time. And as you see, because of the initial fight, they don't have to worry about that first storm surge check. You see all their inventories. They have the med kits ready to go. So while you might think it's like, wow, this is a ton of time spent in the zone, they're fine. And if anything, they're going to get a late rotation, and there really shouldn't be anybody on their path. This is something that, again, as somebody who loses 98% of their personal fights, this is how I play all my arena games. I'm chilling, I'm fishing, I stack up on the med kits, I'm saying, I'm good. I'll see you guys at the edge of the zone in about 10 minutes. Thanks.
That's a deeply relatable sentence to me. I'm telling you, a deeply relatable sentence about losing all the fights. The issue is, though, you can never really predict where the teams are going, right? Because this was pulling fully to that southeast, a lot of that congestion will be exactly where this team of Knight's team is rotating into. So they have to be smart. Like, I want to see them go really far down the south and try and avoid some of that congestion. However, there's a ton of large hills in that with power positions where teams set up way early and have big sight lines on them. So it's rough basically wherever they go. So hopefully they have enough medkits.
One cool thing too, when you're early with mountains here, are kind of related to rock climbing. You get to free climb a little bit. You get to choose your own path and do whatever you want to do. People like Knight rolling in from the zone. You get to see the pegs everywhere, the options you kind of have. Sometimes though, they're unreachable. Might be rock climbing on a super hard difficulty. Right here though, Betlay ATQ surprise. They'll get to not actually do the climb, maybe slide instead if rock sliding was a sport somewhere else and stick on the backside. These are some of the most interesting zones. You see people end up swimming, it goes crazy, and they've got so many options.
Yeah, they use rock slide and it was super effective there, going right down the side. I mean, the Chonkers just adding in a ton, but surprised to see them opting to end up leaving that there. But because, as you talked about, the way this zone is pulling, that line of sight is so brutal to actually end up shooting down that you don't really get that much of a high ground. Because of the way the mountain juts out, it gives you more cover than not as long as you hug it. And if you just toss a cone above their heads, as you see, you get a free rotation to center zone. And then everybody on this western side has to go over the river and through the woods. And I mean, it's not grandmother's house they're going to. It's going to be a bunch of the best players in Europe just raining shots down on them.
It's so funny watching the mini-map. I just see a bunch of fish looking around emojis. Everyone was chilling for a second. Zone came in. I just saw arrows spinning 24/7. What do we do next? Even Fast Roki slightly confused as to where to go, who to be. Meanwhile, though, Jocko, Kern, Ristretto, these guys are getting in a little bit of a kerfuffle down over at Caddy Corner. They're closer to zone, but having a fight they can kind of claim for their own is nice. Individualized 3v3s, still a good idea to take him to buff that loadout for the end game.
Yeah, and for them, they've dropped in retail row, so they're really close to this area already. They were set up here a long time ago, and were in that commanding position. But now, like I said, this engagement's probably actually hindered them more than it has because they've managed to lose Kira in their gameplay too. But they haven't seems to be able to wrap up this fight relatively quickly as they get inside the box at the same time. The 34 headshot with the pickaxe comes on out, and they're going to get the full elimination onto that too. And they've managed to get Kura rezzed up, so it wasn't a full finish here either, which means that they're all back in this with Storm Surge. Obviously, the elimination points won't count, but they're looking good now.
Rolling into day 2 with some attitude. That's what I like to see from Jaku. Kuro will be able to roll into it. The biggest thing about this is the way they're going to be coming into this mountain. I think they should be almost near the highest point. Shouldn't really be getting bullied by anyone. Maybe that team all the way at the peak looks down at them, but the damage drop-off might be fine enough for them to keep blocking those shots.
Yeah, and they've got a relatively free rotate, because like I said, all those players we saw before were on that west-hand side. Now they're kind of on that north, the east. They should be able to go in easily, but the sightlines are kind of tough for teams like Frey, who've set up in such a good spot so far. And if they're very, very careful, they can spot them rotating in. And that may use a ton of mats for Restretto's team to do so. So we're going to have to check on how they get into that next zone later. But most of the teams here are going to be situated up on this big hill, who will be in the best spot. But remember, everyone's on the west side, so not that many teams will end up here.
Yeah, and right now you can see just all the rotation coming through largely has been on the southern side of the map, and you might see some of those triangles moving relatively quickly. You're wondering why. There is a zip line there that's pretty much takes you from that one high ground into the center point, and because nobody had really posted up and taken the line on that, it was a free rotation for a lot of these trios, and because we're below that Storm Surge mark now, 69 players left, it's probably going to be a little while before we see any action, unless it's one of these teams being picked up on their rotation. Because of how spread out the zone is, the next pull is going to be mostly center, and the teams who have already been in that position are occupying that space. And as I say that, Highcrest gets a fantastic line on somebody who's just posted out in the open.
I mean, it feels like they're still in the storm fighting. Just randomly out in the open, the boxes aren't even built up. They're just bullying any team they can see. Shadow and Bloomy so low. The entire team we're looking at right now in our POV are pretty healthy, though. Nightstick being the only one taking a little bit of damage. Bloomy finally goes down, and Highcrest is looking to actually infiltrate the boxes. It's going to be another isolated type fight. You might see arrows close by that can beam, but because of these big valleys, the distance, the mountains, there are no sight lines. They have a perfect fight to take right now if they want to keep being aggressive.
Yeah, and this next zone's really dangerous as well. Look at the rotates the Highcrest's team have got to make. Remember, they've come from that full top left corner of the map. This is almost as far as they could have possibly rotated. So if they manage to win this game, this will firstly be an absolute spectacle for them overall.
They still have cool options. They have the rock slide down to the river to just swim in under the bridge. It's definitely easier to go from a high point down to a low one, a little bit of an avalanche type beat. So we'll see them probably utilize that after they finish up and just get all the loot here. A nice upgrade with a harpoon, gold burst. They're ready for the end game.
The end game will commence here in a second as we begin to see where those rotations come out. We are in that fourth zone, so this is the last one that will be fully inside the safe zone. Fifth is that half in and half out. Then we'll have the transition into the moving zones, and the action will come fast and furious, especially with the rapid changes of verticality. I mean, the northern part of this zone is just monstrous, where if that fifth zone pulls over top of it, we're in for one heck of an end game. However, if we go more down towards Camp God, things are going to get a little bit weird, because you're going to be forced to rotate off of the top, and if you try and maintain high ground, chat, you can't tarp out that far to invest that many metal. It's just too early.
Yeah, every time you end up building out one layer, you end up gaining about 3 layers of height overall. So it's this weird y equals mx plus b slope type math you have to be doing as the IGL while you're moving the whole time. It's so tough. And at the same time, the zone could move anywhere. These players have to get up on damage, have to think about the next zone, and tarping is not normal. Look at this. Joe went out 1 box, and now there's a whole river below him.
Did you see who he just took down? That was Mongrel on Aqua. Mongrel got the knock, got the confirmation. Aqua is out. That was Aqua's CRR, and Fastroki just directly below, just getting absolutely ripped into, trying to get the safe rotation, and that got them above Storm Surge. Check the right-hand side. The Storm Surge is massive, and the fact that they're just 70 above, this could be the way they kind of pass that next check.
And this is huge. Aqua being in this game would be different for height, but if your teammate can't survive, no matter who you knock, it's going to be bad situations for your team overall. Joe does get grabbed. Vino has him next to a box. No, but there's a different team here. Watch your walls, my friend. Somehow Mongrel grabs Vino. No one knows where Joe is. He's walking through boxes from other people's edits. What's going on? Vino's down. Mongrel's still alive. Okay, I'll take it. Whatever. Still, the chances are there for this team to live for now, but it's chaos in just one of the boxes on this mountain.
I mean, I feel like you have to watch Mongrel, right? I mean, everybody remembers the World Cup run that he went on the solo in that situation. It was in duos where he ended up pushing through and getting that W. But now against trios in a situation where all you need is the win. Yes, they passed by Storm Surge, but losing both of his teammates, I mean, that's going to hurt so much. As you can see now, below Storm Surge, this is our last team we talked about. It's both of them underneath. You need to invest those heals going through. It's 25 damage every 5 seconds, so you can only outlast so much. Eventually, you're going to be forced to go aggressive.
Yeah, and on top of that, you got to think, if they manage to get that Storm Surge, which look, 500 below is rough. That's tough. That's going to be difficult for anyone to make. Look at the rotation they got to make up this huge vertical hill as well that they're right next to. The shots do manage to connect, but they're still 400 below, and unfortunately, Victor is going to go down.
It's time to grab your ladders, ropes, snow boots, hiking cleats. It's going up this entire mountain. Gonna have to change your boxes too. Lots of people still left at the shores of Camp Cod, but even they will have to end this vacation very fast. Wing's not gonna be able to make it towards the end game. It's Spray taking him out. Chris finally, his fight, the battle, it ends. Knocked down for now. The duo might be able to revive him and pick him up. Wings fully confirmed too. Mappy, Red Rush, Exterios in a comfortable position, although it looks claustrophobic. They like operating when there's lots of teams around them. They get to let those guys soak all the energy up, all that pressure, and then play off of their own pathway whenever they want.
Again, keeping an eye on that top left corner. You can see Vettel getting the confirmation onto full Netflix. Jesus, one on.
Oh my God.
42 players remaining, but that zone pull. Oh, that's going to be brutal out and away. But instantly he says, yep, we don't care. The double metal cones, getting them built out. If they're able to block off that situation, everybody on the low ground is just effectively, if they don't have pads or they're not able to find one, it's going to be near impossible to get up the side. You can see even Red Rush Mappy just desperately investing so much to try and get an angle. And right now it looks like they might have the lead on it if they just go, but they have to go now.
This is exactly what a really smart team will do, like Trixie's team. They are elevating fast. They are understanding the changes in verticality here and claiming that height before any other team can. If they don't do this, another team will pad on all the way up. And look, you're about to see the player numbers rapidly start to fall as everyone clambers up this hill.
While they stay up, though, they have to make sure not even a single gap is left. Fancy shots right below him, and Zadea's about to crash at that same line, too. It's a fight for height on top of this mountain. We're going to see Faisal going all the way up top, making sure he has the maximum defense. Meanwhile, down low, this is just so unfortunate. Blocked by a wall. You can't even climb. Sinek has 5 seconds inside this zone, down to 2, almost 1. He can't breathe. He falls down. Every single person should just get eliminated here. Look at the amount of teams in the zone. It's half the lobby. They're just absolutely cut down.
Old Man Mountain claims its toll, so show us the fight on high ground because the winner will get a pass. They don't have to eliminate the players as the change of verticality did it for himself, but we saw Trixie and Jetscoop go early and invest all of their hard materials to be able to take it away. Red Rush and Co, however, were able to make it right around the side, but the zone continues to pull to the north, so all those players on the low ground who had to be covering their top and not just the bottom have to invest more mats. Who's in the front of the zone? You can see Ponsai still is able to get there for Strokey, is by himself. He has a chance, but only 21 maps. We get down 15 players left. We know there's a trio up on the high ground. Red Rush desperately trying to push through. Fast Strokey trying to get the reset, drops down, finds the player, and that's an instant 80 headshot. PKR all the way down. Top 5 trios remaining. 12 players on the board. Fast Strokey trying to be our hero, but all that matters is the victory royale. And the question is, who punches that first ticket? As Strokey goes up, 124 tag immediately, but then gets ripped in the back.
He's got the tools, but can he make the climb? Has to wait for a second. Zone does a slight bounce back. The Mech might be able to go off, but then it's shields after that. He needs to. Has that pocket pad in the inventory. That might be the key here. They get him all the way up top and maybe clinch that win. He'll have to take out 3 different players by himself. Probably hears Aqua and CRR in his ears right now. Actually, might have snuck height a little bit too. Fastroki. This is where you have to land every shot. A few come down on the same layer. 22 HP. It's not enough. He gets denied, and Trixie actually still gets to hold on to that high ground.
But the congestion might have been enough. The congestion is what matters there because And1 is down all of a sudden. And we know they went early, but the zone is now finally pulling away from where everything else was. They're running low on mats. If they can't get a conversion as the challenge comes up again on the backside, you see Trixie get a knock, but they're gone. The high ground take. The take early is away. And all of a sudden, Prototype dropping down with Zendaya. The fight's there. EMXR is trying to take it. Vetrum drops down to try and get the shot. You see Zendaya take it away, and Zendaya and Aware are going to get the victory royale. No heal off. The zone's pulling all the way. And Karma, TT9, Zendaya, Ovation, Aware 7 get match number 1 of Heat 1 here on day 2. And that had to be some of the most ridiculous zones ever, Reese.
Do we ever see a hill zone that's won by a low ground? Like, I don't think we ever do, right? Those teams that go up, manage to claim it, manage to spray down below. But for Aware's team, we saw them elevating themselves way earlier on, right? We saw them managing to start climbing up that hill so much earlier. And then all of a sudden, it's like you see the craziness, the fights up on high. While they're on low ground, they're just hitting the shots they need to. And obviously look up, spray down, and pick up the victory royale.
It's just crazy that on both sides, it was like an ignition. And 2 fights just happened at the same time. It's so good for low ground. That big drop down too. Podesai almost had it, son, and it was so close.
They were so close. I was literally, as I was watching, I was like, wait, EMXR and POTUS have an opportunity to win this, but you just end up on the wrong side of that sandwich. And I'm interested to see if Ventro, who just threw himself down there, ended up throwing a shot in there that could have affected that match one. But I mean, that's 1 of 12. We still got 11 more matches to go, 11 more tickets to punch.
Yeah, and I also think
absolutely.
that, I was gonna say that Strokey, man, I was kind of wanting it to happen, right? As the solo player by himself there, I'm like, look, he hit a 124 when he jumped up, my mouth dropped. I was sitting going, oh, this is looking good. But look, I'm sure the next couple games will be theirs.
No, absolutely. We'll toss it back over to Zeke, Levin, and Reese over here to break down maybe a little bit of action we saw in that last game.
And Reese comes back.
I'm still here, boys. I'm still here.
I wonder how.
That's so wild. That's so wild. All right, guys, we had a small little hiccup there. We're going to be jumping into games in just a moment. But first, we got to talk about that last game. My goodness, I love this style of game, Levin. It is so action-packed. The things that these guys are talking about, Reese and company, I mean, my goodness. There's so much chaos. There's like a tranquility within that chaos, but there is a lot of chaos.
It's so beautiful, honestly. And I personally love it because we get certain scenarios that you don't see in regular games. That for Strokey moment, right? Of course, yeah, he doesn't go on to win the game, but it's so exciting to watch. And that only happens because in this lobby, all that matters is to win. You know, typically you might see a player, let me secure as many placement points as possible. Let me try and get a top 3. It will do my team some good to get the points. That doesn't matter right now. You better go out there and get hype, bruv. You know what I mean? You can't go down. So what are you gonna do there? Do you know what I mean? So it is genuinely, you know, these games create, you know, such levels of excitement and entertainment where for players, their mentality becomes all or nothing. And you know, if you look at Battle Royale, that's the crux of what Battle Royale is, right? It's all or nothing. You go for that victory royale, and I very much love it. Wow, more games like that, and I'm gonna be a happy 11.
Yeah, I definitely still, although we've seen some huge success from the low grounds team, I still want to talk about Strokey for a second because that big shot that came through, he still managed to claim height, right, by himself, by playing that med kit at the back of the storm, which I think can be a crucial play for a lot of the teams in the later games, right? We saw basically Anda just had no idea that he was there, so he was super easy able just to sneak up behind them. Obviously, he's a solo against the full trio, but if you actually managed to coordinate something like that with your teammates, if CRR and Aqua were still in it, like they could have easily managed to pick up the victory.
All about that unpredictability factor, right? Like, again, it's just, why would you ever anticipate someone would be there, right? Like, again, it's just so very different. The approach coming into this specific style of game is so action-packed. We had the last moments here for the victory royale where they could walk back through Reese. I mean, there was just so much that unfolded. And again, it's just like when one thing happens, it very quickly ripples across every other trio.
Yeah, exactly. You can see Kylie down here on the bottom, and it's like the shots connect, and then everyone's just sliding down, as we already mentioned earlier. Like, he picks up those eliminations, and you're like, that looked like a delayed victory royale. You think, you know, what happened? But you remember, up on high ground, there was still the solo from Fancy Shots team. I think it was, I can't remember which of the other players was still in, but it was still up there as a solo. And remember, because he'd taken height, because he'd had that scrappy fight, he had no materials, and that zone was just ticking away at him, unfortunately. So he just started to go all the way down from there on out, and that's basically why they just picked up the victory royale on low ground. I'm guessing if you were in their position, they get those 2 elims, you're hyped up. I'm sure that clips on Twitter, right? I'm absolutely sure it is. But at the same time, you're thinking, oh, we've won? Like, how did we win at that time? Like, what's happened here? And then you realize that height's been a mess because they were all fighting as well.
It's mad, Reese, because you say if you were in that position, I'm not hitting them shots. I ain't hitting them shots. I mean, high pressure scenario where you're right, like you don't know, obviously you're somewhat aware, but you don't actually know, you know, they wouldn't have probably expected to win the game in that position. You're thinking there's probably going to be somebody above me that wasn't, right? But you got to hit them shots, and now they're going to be in the FNCS final because of it, right? Like, and for the teams who, this is always the one thing as well now, watching those teams who were just that close, right? The team, you know, the likes of a Strokey, the likes of, you know, the teams that were out there battling for height. Now, what do they do? What's the response? What's the reaction? Do they let that get them down, right? Are we just going to consistently see them so close yet so far away from the finals? I hope not, right? Because it's heartbreak, right? It gets, you know them Twitter clips where like the people are crying. I don't want none of that, right? Like, I don't want none of the sad vibes. Right? I want the good vibes only right now.
I mean, that was Fancy Shots true. Who, remember I said at the top of the show, DM me saying they were going to win a game, and game number 1 they placed second already. So if they imagine 6 seconds in a row.
Oh, don't even.
Well, I mean,
you're speaking it into existence now, Reese. That's the problem. They are gonna get like a bunch of seconds now. Sorry, fancy shots. You know who to blame.
Apologize.
He's calling him. He's cursed
We're
you
behind
guys.
you. We're behind you. Don't worry. You know.
I can't believe, but look, you know, now that this team is won, remember they get pulled from the pool of players. Now we're down to 28 trios. This means they very well could. They got second last time. That could now be a first. We'll have to see though as things continue to unfold and develop. I'm so excited to get ready to jump back into more action here from semifinals. And just to think, Levin, that was the first game. That was just game one, man. That was just game one. We have another 10 games like this. I don't know how you guys are going to manage. Thankfully, I get to just relax, watch these games like everybody else. And I cannot wait to do that. You guys heard the battle bus, which means we're about to go into the next game. Now, Reese is going to step away once again as we jump back into heat number 1. This time, we're going on board with game number 2. And then we'll check out heat number 2 and see how that one's doing. But for now, we're going to leave it in his hands. Shy wager, sundown, over to all three of you.
Thank you so much again on the desk. Y'all have eliminated it, and I just can't get over the fact that these matches, we get to watch so much of this today. And this is just the start. We got EU, then we got NA East, then we got NA West after that. There's going to be so many amazing games, and hopping right on board. Vestroki had an amazing individual effort in match number 1, but couldn't put it all together. Will they do better here in match 2?
Yeah, what ended up happening was Aqua going in for an edit play on the Mongrel, possibly trying to land a shot, was replied with a number that was over 200, and that conversation ended very, very fast. So this time, I mean, that problem trio for them is still in the game. Sky and Nate, by the way, kind of switching things over and surviving off of spawn. Huge. That's Siachi, right, who was controlling height in that last game. This will be a much different game overall in terms of who's involved. And Red Rush and Mappy, as long as the zone doesn't go fully towards the south, can also maybe play their version of the game.
And I mean, that is just a fantastic call out on your part, because right away we were keeping an eye on that top left-hand corridor, and we saw just how good that high ground execution was to put themselves in a chance to win that first game. And now they don't get to be a part of the conversation because the veterans were able to just step right back up. Sky and Nate saying, no, we're not going down 2 games in a row. We need an opportunity to get there. They know if they make it to the end game, they're more than capable of winning a match. But let's hop back on over. We saw this a little bit in the previous game. Amplified Matzo and Quinton taking the fight here in Coral Castle and trying to get a little bit of a better start than they did last time.
I'm really surprised that neither of these teams have switched their draw spot up after this not necessarily working out for both of them in that previous match. I mean, any team who didn't win, it didn't necessarily work out for them, but then they got this scrappy fight, and again, it's just, you know, there's other drop spots on the map that have ended up opening up. This time, they do have a little bit more of a favorable first zone. It's not all the way the complete max opposite.
There's 4 potential spots or 5 now, right? 4 teams that qualified from the heat and the one that just won the game. 1 guaranteed spot. Just research exactly where Karma dropped and pick it up. If not, then Matzo, you can get beamed down to no HP. Quinton will join you very shortly as well. Just 1 right there. Amplifies the only hope, and talk about hope for a second. Now it's lost. It's just despair, fear for the lone man who has less HP than teammates alive. This is going to be so tough for him to get out of the situation.
Yeah, but Shayo, he has an uncommon and a common burst rifle. He can definitely win this fight with no builds. And
he almost did.
I was just about to say, I was being moderately sarcastic, but the dink there real quick. He almost took down Siberian Jake. However, not going to be too worried about those trades as we hop on over to another fight. Top fancy shots and veteran picking off Ari and Artis, the teammate there, trying to now chase down the duo to make sure they can pass that kind of, I don't even want to say the first Storm Surge test, because in reality, it's only really one trio who gets nailed down by us. It's that second Storm Surge these guys all have to worry about.
Yeah, and this game numbers are dropping really quickly as well so far because of all these early game fights that we're seeing. So I'm not even sure if we're actually going to see that active surge in that threshold so far, but at least for the winner of this fight, they're going to be able to have that tag sorted, right? Because there's so much less players, like the thresholds are just going to be significantly lower anyway.
One thing you've seen here in particular too is ammunition is coming into play in a lot of these fights. Players want to get the fights resolved quickly, kind of just grab whatever you can and go, but it adds that extra layer where you kind of need to go and double check, because right now top, he has to get wall to wall. He doesn't have enough to be able to spray down, and luckily him and his teammates able to segment out one of those, take the 1v2, honestly guarantee themselves, I would say, probably the next Storm Surge threshold, as well as now they're going to try and chase down, identify where the player is, gets the ramp in, should be able to just hold that edit and have the other another player walk through, boom, they're going to be able to clean that up. And all's well that ends well there. They will get the clean. That's 3 elims for them in the bottom right-hand corner. As we also see, POIs 1 lost EMXR, who had a chance to win there right at the very end in the top right corner. Get a nice little check-in with them.
Yeah, Ori getting knocked down there is actually huge for a majority of the lobby. If you guys were paying a little bit of attention to the feed last game while watching, Ori was picking up a bunch of elims or at least knocks as the game was going on. So one big thing is a lot of these teams that be comfortable now on the east side to actually rotate. There's not going to be a menacing AR tapping you from all these hills at long range. I think for POIs 1 lost MXR though, they're never going to be affected by that. They're always moving early, utilizing either a car or these slipstreams depending on where the zone goes. If it is towards the west side, they end up flying more so than driving and will stay ahead of every other team. You'll notice on the mini-map at all times, there's not usually anyone next to them.
Yeah, I'm actually definitely still a little bit concerned with the teams that are on that kind of southeast corner, the catty corner teams, and obviously the retail teams too, the teams that we've seen be historically successful in this particular heat. But that is a far complete opposite zone. Like, this dynamic completely changes up. Unlikely for one single team, though, of Aqua's team. Because they're so mid-map, it's like they understand the rotations pretty well. No zone is overly favorable to them or not. So for them going onto the west side, this is still great.
Yeah, I think landing mid-map is one of the most underrated strengths that you can have in competitive Fortnite as a whole. It just eliminates so much of, like, even when you get those really far edge of zone initial pulls, like, your worst case scenario is so much better than other teams' worst case scenarios that you'll often trade that. And then the fact that you can really dictate a lot of your rotations, because center of the map in almost every single iteration we've had has had very efficient farming paths in terms of getting just max wood, metal, and brick, which isn't something you generally value. But when you can get those two combined, it kind of means as long as you find storm surge tags, you just really don't have to worry about the early game.
Not at all, but if you're not Hycross Vortex, doesn't matter where you land, you're always going to be looking for a fight. Also means any other teams around you are going to start getting scared. Weeping Woods, I think, has 3 or 4 different teams right now. Hycross Vortex are going to make sure they're going to be staying on top of shields at all times too. I hear a few fireflies inside a forest. That's the hazard. The environment's gonna get hurt. Your bills are gonna be burning as well, and you can't even touch the ground because that gets hot too. Maestro and Styler, as a result, stay all the way on high ground. They're letting everyone fester and burn inside these builds, and in just a moment's time, they'll have to rebuild, go somewhere else because things might get too hot inside this kitchen.
Burn, baby, burn, but no Disco Inferno going on over there right now.
Oh, indeed, indeed. But like you can see, it's in Styler's inventory. He's still got it set up to do so and managed to create even more chaos. And it's just like we consistently see Hycross's team in these scrappy engagements in the early to mid game. And it's like, are we going to see a game where they don't do that and they end up dominating throughout the rest of that match and picking up the victory round? Because so far, you know, also on the game number 2, but it's not been that successful of a strategy.
Yeah, and it's tough. And you saw that stat line on the left-hand side where the players combined had 214 combined trips to the finals. And then also we talked about a little bit on the top of the show that there's 85 players here who are trying to get their first chance at that finals competition, who are trying to make their way through. So pretty much if you look at the top left-hand corner, we only have 84 players in the game. Basically half the players remaining across the 2 heats are trying to book their ticket to a massive, I mean, it's over $1.3 million across those 12 games. It is a huge stage to be able to compete for, and right now somebody who's very familiar on competing for that stage, desperately trying to get there. Red Rush, Mappy, and Exterios picking up a huge fight over on the outside of Holly, finally.
And they're going up against and taking out people who are also familiar in being in those finals, right? ETQ's trio going down. Unfortunate for this game, at least. These guys end up winning. ETQ won't have to worry about them next game at all, so possibly rooting for him too. It's really interesting to see the choices people are making in terms of picking up loot as well, preferring the minis, the chuck splashes over the floppers. If this was any other season, Reese, we'd be roasting them so hard in terms of, hey, grab those fish. Where's the end game heal off? There are no heal offs when things are this intense, when the zone moves so much, when we're at mountainous adventures, right? There's no chance to kind of double back.
Yeah, but on this east or west side of the map, we don't have any of that, right? This terrain is completely different. We do have the crash sites, which do cause a huge amount of vertical shift, but it's nothing like the mountains that we're seeing in that previous game, right? Absolutely nowhere close. So for them, like, I don't think it's going to be that bad. And you know what? They could get some good RNG with the zone pullbacks. If they have those fish in their inventory, they can quite easily then use those heal off. You know, it just depends on what the zones ends up playing.
Oh, this is just an awful situation right now for Respecto Joe and Kura. As I was just about to talk about how efficient those Chonkers tires are for rotating going through, but they took one bounce over the top of a hill and everyone was like, hey, they look pretty tasty down there. Do we need some tags? Sure. And they just, the 800 HP on that car just melted. It went from like 800 to 200. You saw how Kura panicked and instantly had to hop out. Luckily, they are able to kind of hit this little bit of a downstream rotation. You do get that faster move speed. As long as you stay in the middle, kind of that dolphin swim is pretty efficient. It doesn't make too much noise either. And Ristretto instead is going to say, no, we're going to value speed. But like, that's the thing. The boats are loud. Like, that's why I'm always on those boating paths, but I just pray no one is nearby, because the second you go to, you see all of those triangles just whip around, but everyone just trying to get over to the zone, utilizing whatever they can. As for Strokey, CRR, and Aqua, they hop in the whip and skirt on out of there.
I mean, I hope Ristretto learned his lesson. That's 2 times you're using man-made vehicles and getting slapped for it. Just swim, man. Stay natural.
Well, what you could do, though, it's not the vehicles that are bad, it's the timing that's bad. If you rotate in late, everyone's in those positions with guns pointing, sight lines already calculated, they're going to easily pick you up. But if you've done an earlier rotate and gotten a little bit deeper in, chosen a good path to go through, particularly like for Strokey, CR, and Aqua is, they are on a good line. You see the way that they came around that hill, cutting off sight lines, and as soon as they popped over into Holly Hedges, that's when they got shot. That's where you need to plan the rotations to get into away from those sight lines.
And I 100% agree with you, where it's either you go super early or the complete opposite end of the bell curve. You go super late to the point where everyone thinks there's no way anybody else could possibly be rotating. And then by the time they actually flip their cameras around, you've become flying over the hill and you're safe in the zone. You can just kind of immediately box up on hard mass. That's basically the only way you can just avoid that one situation where everyone just kind of turns and they're like, hey, they look pretty nice and they're rotating with the crowd. Let's shoot them.
Getting a weather report as well. This time it's not cloudy skies, no thunderstorms or lightnings. Last time it was really different. Over here it's going to be fine. Only 2 people need to really go down.
I want to see if we're even going to actually see that active, because usually in this case, you see the team who's under panic, because you got to think, when 2 players are over, right, 72 players are live, that means 1 team is below the storm surge threshold. So it's 1 single team who's going to panic, which means the rest of the lobby is going to do absolutely nothing, right? They don't even need to get tags most of the time. Well, you know, they're still going to do that, but most of the time they don't need to do much at all. Just sit, chill, especially if you're Mappy's team who are 900 above.
Yeah, and I just want to know who's that team who's below. Like, who's that trio? Because the action is going to be forced on them. Either they're going to go up and right away, boom, Wings, full net, and Karmi, who usually aren't, but putting that long-range semi-auto sniper to good use. Again, just getting a couple of tags, and it's really tough because they're going to be just kind of just dipping right above and below, and you kind of have to put yourself out there. However, looking at his inventory, he has more than enough heals, so he's happy to sit here and trade these shots, knowing that, like, yeah, I might take a little bit damage, but that's much more important in terms of just remaining above that threshold and avoiding the 25 damage every 5 seconds that starts in 30 seconds.
I like the fact that they also kind of send full net out as a guard dog to maybe make that base forward first. They can pressure for him to get that movement, and then he can pressure for them to catch up as well. It gives them so many more angles as well to use that long range rifle. At the same time, on other sides of things, when you don't have the options to stay in and out, when you have to all in, Jerdy, Kiro, Yunchi, they're going to be here alongside so many other teams, box to box, wall to wall. The fights will be active. Not sure if they're going to completely go the whole way, but they must, because they're 102 below Storm Surge right now. Need this damage, and pumps are really their only option.
There's nothing worse than being below the storm surge and being the team who's being focused at that moment, because you can't manage to chunk the shots back at the same time. They do manage to get a 30, but them being 102 below, it's not going to be anywhere near enough so far. They need a big shot or a big couple shots to push them above. And like we mentioned, most of the teams are being relatively docile here, but they do connect with the 75, and that's just going to put them above by 4.
And right now, only 1 more player needs to go down. There's action happening across the map, so they should be fine. Jerdy doing literally just enough in the wall-to-wall situation. And this is a circumstance, too, where if you end up going below the, like, you can path through Hollow, you can potentially end up getting that reboot off. You might end up sacrificing player if there is no change. But you have to imagine, with Vortex getting a knock, you're keeping an eye on that top left-hand corner, just praying that the confirmation comes through. 59 now above as the damage ends up still going through. But Kiro, under pressure, you can see he's chunked through his shields, end up eating 2 of his floppers, going through the entirety of the utility. And there is still 1 player just clinging on who will be forced down here in a second. As you see, Kiro does get back up, at EMXR, OneFoss, and Podesai have a full trio, as now it's flipped over with 1 player going down. It's the full trio taking the damage. This is a situation where you need to consider, do you just sacrifice 1 player, because every single time it's 75 damage, but they know there's a 23 tag. Can they find more? Still 35 damage below. They're taking so much.
That's going to be their entire portfolio of investments in terms of shields gone too. The last 50 pot is just going to see itself go completely down and out, fall over to leverage, and unfortunately teaches us to burn a few mats too to try to chase away any chance to find a team. Goes for this air job, can't even land it. Everything is going wrong for this man right now. This is unfortunate. They're getting strike down while trying to find anything, maybe another pad, and Sanji finally goes down. Surge almost strikes afterwards as well.
That's so, like, the game management there is so poor in that situation where you have to recognize, hey, one of our players is going to go down earlier. Just ramp up and jump off. Just ramp up and jump off. Let that Storm Surge come through. Do the rest of it. Stop having your team take damage. Chuck yourself back into the storm. You're going to save HP in the end. Send your duo on because they're fighting as a duo now anyway, but they're doing it with no resources.
Yeah, at least also maybe not have the third person use the shields, right? If you want to bank on someone else coming down, save something. Use something for the future. It's all good, but lessons in economy you learn over time with experience, and these kids are still young in these earlier games. Just wait for a few more. They'll learn the lesson. At the same time, the head honchos, the veterans, they're here. Center zone, Surge, hundreds above. They're ready to play this game out because with natural low ground not being that versatile, right? You can do whatever you want inside the game, create your own space.
Yeah, this is the second game in a row we've seen fully edge of the map, basically, as well. So these are definitely some versatile zones, and that next zone's going to pull down to the south-hand side here. So a lot of the teams who are in the north are going to have a rough rotate to make, and for Mappy's team in that bottom right, they are definitely one of those.
Yeah, now it's also going to be about the captains of the clusters that end up forming inside this zone. You'll see the north have a lot of different people smushed into just one build. The southeast might have that too. As a result, two high ground teams will pop up. They'll battle for that spot all the way at the top. If it's not Aqua, at some point a third one will jump up there too. You'll start to see this get created. That one cluster on the bottom right is starting to move in slowly, and there's one big one on the north as well that's still stuck on an island. I'm not sure what's going on there, but they're in trouble very soon.
It's going to be an awkward rotation because if one of those teams doesn't have a launch pad, you're basically committing to just whoever goes first loses. But if you both stay for, actually, there's 3 trios on top of it. So it's whoever wants to burn the utility at this point. And it's a little bit of a standoff where you're just kind of playing chicken. It's just like, I know you have a launch pad. I'm sure you have one as well. Who's going to put it down? Because ideally you want to save that. But with so few natural high grounds in this area, look how flat it is. There's maybe like 1 or 2 grid spaces going through. Like, it's going to take a massive investment of hard mats to take high ground away now, and nobody really wants to pull that trigger.
And with Aqua's team still in it, their way of taking height is very focused on the 5th zone. They are the ones who's going to go up, claim it early, and let's be real, if they don't get it then, they're going to claim it later as well. So they're still on that lower layer right now, but nowhere near. But I'm suspecting when it comes to that 5th zone showing, we're going to see them ramp all the way up, take the top of the lobby.
And currently we have 12 players. That's 4 trios who are going to be threatened by that Storm Surge. So you can see Aqua and Co. just barely above the line on the right-hand side. EMXR, who was in 2nd place in the last game, ends up going down. They get well above it, but Aqua and CRR take a ton of their shields. They're going to be forced back. But Jesus does get the confirmation. Aqua needs to play defensively here, but he's actually looking potentially to get back up on this wall to go a little bit more aggro. He's grouping up with his teammate, but that decision is weird. Goes forward and just gets ripped apart. Restretto, Kura, and John get some great shots for Strokey, going to be able to pick up the World Cup duo champion and potentially bring him back to safety as Mongrel ends up going down to Q-Roll in the feed. Keep an eye on that top left-hand corner and also keep an eye on the right-hand side as they're only 27 above Storm Surge.
They have to use splashes to keep Aqua up inside this game, and at the same time, this is exactly what happened in the first game of that trio. They over-peaked and edited. They tried to go for damage at the wrong time. It was Mongrel that clapped them. Yeah, he goes down in that feed at the same time. It's kind of ironic, but Aqua's got to be careful, man. He's not going to be completely on height. The north cluster actually grabs everything in terms of pressure in getting that zone. Aqua's not even there. His type of home game is not being played right now. He's having to stay low, which is not where we usually find him.
But remember, those teams up at the top have low materials.
And Caffey with a monstrous shot there to try and get them above Storm Surge, but still not quite enough. With 20 more damage, he got the 94, but they are so close. And there's still 4 trios who are being hit by this.
And they're just trying to do what they can, though. They have to try and get shots out, try and trade back. They're just going down and down and down in HP, and they're just being too passive here. They have to get this triple spray, some damage out, still being 80 down below. They're trying to heal it off and hope that other teams will be aggressive, and this is just because they've done this way too late. They need to start this early, but they get the knock down below and get damage on. They are now above 318 above all of a sudden.
Look at the upgrades too. Legendary pump, swap out the rifle to do more damage as well. Find so many players inside the storm and get chug splashes. This is the best case scenario for Kefi's team.
And they got everything there. It is on the back of Kefi with the wall-to-wall fights. They're even going to be able to then burn a launch pad to try and get back ahead. Finally, Storm Surge turns off. We had almost a full rotation of that zone. Only 30 seconds left in the fifth, moving down to 49 players. 20 trios still on their feet. So there is plenty of solos and duos running around looking for the clutch. We're going to swing back on board. Mappy, Red Rush, and Co with 5 elims there, but currently Fancy Shots, Vetrum, and Top have the high ground priority. And as I say that, they immediately get chopped out and don't really want to reinvest the hard mass to go up. They're equal with High Chris and Vortex on the other side, but everyone's hanging out only about 4 or 5 layers off of the ground level.
Longrow might have got knocked, but Vino recently just got a few key eliminations to get the refreshes back in. Still have the power of 3 people in terms of inventory and mats. He's not going to be able to use it fully in this next zone. He'll have one of those high ground advantages to move in with. Cade is by himself. The Cyber Legacy boys, Fury, ended up wiping out a whole trio as well right before this zone closed in, so they might have an advantage on movement on pads. Look at the second place team from last game though. Fancy Shots, Vetrum, and Tobe, they have fully reinvested somehow. They kind of got High Chris and Vortex to back off. They have the choice and the side actually of the zone pulling to them. This is their game to win, but we saw these earlier teams that grab height, they run out of steam as this end game goes on.
Yeah, but don't forget, those were his max pulls away zone pretty much every single time. It looks like they're in a little bit of a better situation. And Vetrum has the harpoon. Vetrum, we talk about him being in the second place there. He was the player who literally just yeeted himself off of the top rope. It was like, hey, I hope I hit that prayer shot, and threw himself into that 2v1 at the bottom. If it was timed a little bit better, that could have been it. But Aqua's back up on his feet, so a little bit of a late revive coming through there. They were able to get that back away, but he's dealing with not a whole lot in terms of the inventory. Just the 14 builds. Has the rare pump though, which could be enough. 2 chug splashes as we keep an eye on that top left-hand corner. Look at the Storm Surge on the right-hand side though. That's going to start ticking over in 5 seconds.
Yeah, they're going to have to start to do something aggressive here. And in this mid-ground layer, there's going to be tons of players surrounding him. We can see Aqua going for an opening in the floor. He's trying to take the shots, but he gets the wall but whiffs. And that's a crucial shot as that Storm Surge damage starts to drop down and down. They're now 369 below.
And CRR also gets knocked, unfortunate for him. This entire team splintered apart. Nate also going down. Every single layer has many fights going on. 3v3s head-to-head. Nate strapped on the right side. Aqua finally finds some damage, but it's only a third of what he really needs. 112 below still. He's actually just finding his way in the storm. He keeps looking back. He's so delayed and behind. A flopper can't even save him now. Fully knocked down and taken out. What a disaster. Not even Fast Roki can hit the big clutch on a team that has no shields either. Fancy Shots, Tobe, and Vetrum, though. This is the best case scenario. The zone keeps pulling over old builds. No one can really break through their cones and floors to take height. There's no space to put down launch pads. The retakes are not active, and as a result, they kind of have a free game. Look at Mappy though, inside this box, the 105 against a full trio. He gets out too. That was too free.
I mean, super beneficial that he happened to be wearing the exact same outfit as that trio for a second. So they look back, they're like, yeah, that's one of us, right? And Mappy's like, oh, I got a free shot here. Gonna be able to connect on that. But what's not free is the amount of builds he has. That's a 0. You can see him trying to set up the edit going on, but he can't really afford to trade a shot. He's just gonna be looking. But I'm getting that feed, and Restretto has been picking up elim after elim. However, up on the high ground, you can see Retro Tub and Fancy Shots still together. And Shio, as you noted, zone pulled back again. Furious Siberia Jake getting the shot onto Kefi, the hero, who's able to push it through there. They're going to get the takedown, but Melody is going to trade it right back, picking up Fury. Vetrum ends up getting Joe Cusack there. So that's a high ground, really pushing their control. Siberia Jake looking for a little bit of ground, but as I talk about it, high ground takes out the layer below them. We talked about Restretto and Co. being in such a good position, it just gets yoinked away. And Fancy Shots has Cabbages and the medkit. He's set up for at least a heal-off play, but the challenge ends up going out, going to be popping the Cabbages, trying to get as much as he can. You can see Mappy and Snazy ends up going up towards the high ground. Full net picks up Lake. Snazy gets Carmi, and he's just eating the Cabbages, trying to get close enough. He's not going to have enough time to get the medkit, but he has to run back towards the zone. As you can see, Vortex will get picked up. Fancy Shots trying to run it out. It should be enough if he can get up and retake the high ground. However, he's going to have to 1v3 as he can take it away. It's a 2v1v1v1 as 6 players remain. 5 trios up. Who will solo clutch it out as Wings is back in the zone? Full net going down, and we have a solo dolo run here for the second qualifying spot in Euro.
fantasy shots, everything on the line for him. The entire trio's dreams, a second place, followed by hopefully a first. Big shot, denying one high ground retake, the third one in a row. Now in a 1v1v1 scenario. Let the bottom festers, and then after that, drop down for the big puppy, misses. They are sprays there, ramp to block. This is the shot. Can he land it? No. Starts to chase another one. He can't find his way home. Stuck in the labyrinth. Does he have HP? He can't breathe, and he goes down. It's Wings, who was solo on Surge, who barely had a chance to win this game, who gets the victory royale.
How did they manage to clutch that up from being so far below the surge earlier on, hitting the shots, getting the things back, moving up again, to be able to pick up the victory royale in game number 2? That is an incredible clutch.
I mean, it's just a story of holding on and doing enough. We talk about getting to those checks and everything gets frantic, but I mean, we saw it back in qualifier 1. It's been a while since we have basically 5 solo players just battling it out, but Wings taking it home and doing it with fantastic navigation.
Yeah, when it comes to just clutch right there, a solo game, right? People are always asking Reese, we want solos back, we want duos back. That was their opportunity right there, and Wings really showed up.
Look, Wings showed up big time. We got to give props to Fancy Shots. 2 seconds in a row for their team. It was Veteran who was clutching up in the first game. Now they're on height this time as a second. Like, this could be a tragic story, and I don't want it to be a tragic story. I want to see them win, and they look like they very much so understand this type of play and how to win games based on the way they're playing that so far. It's just that, there was a lot of teams going for height in that middle of that end game.
Yeah, but I mean, horseshoes and hand grenades, right? Almost isn't good enough, but now we're going to kick it on over. Like we said, we got matches all over the place. Now we're going to jump over to the other heat. Yes, we're switching back and forth. The victory royales are where it's all about. Right, Shio?
Absolutely, and I think we have a new guest too to talk to for this heat. The big man, Levin 2K, is rolling in. I mean, 2 games almost down, Levin. What have we missed so far in heat number 2?
Oh, we've missed quite a bit. First of all, I want to say a big shout out to Michael, Astro, and Verox, who won that first game in a phenomenal fashion. I wasn't sure if they'd be able to do it, but they did. And so big ups to them. We'll be seeing those guys in the finals. Look, off spawn, there haven't been many fights, right? Less teams, a lot of teams realizing we don't want to be contesting people off spawn, but where there has been contention is Boney Burbs off spawn, right? 2 games in a row now, the Loot Boy trio going down early on. And I think most people will hear that and go, wait, we expected those guys to go stealthy. Recently on the desk talked about how they'd be a big threat out of stealthy stronghold uncontested. No, right? They didn't want to contest Flick's team who moved to stealthy, so they decided to go Boney instead, and it hasn't worked out for them so far. They got beat by Zrox's trio, and it's not looking good whatsoever. All around the map though, Shio, I think what we're seeing is teams being very wary of positioning, right? Because when there's not off-spawn fights, it means you're gonna struggle for Surge, and if you're struggling for Surge, you need great positioning.
No, absolutely. I think one of the reasons that fear factors there too is the power of this entire heat inside day 2 as well. You've got Hen Refsguard, who honestly should not be playing right now. They should be in the finals already. We're still kind of mixed up in the business. You just mentioned Flick, his prowess as well. That's getting teams running away from certain POIs. The likes of Lizen, Erican, and Blackie as well. Dirty Docs, champions over and over again, are rocking in and usually making the finals of every season. Now still inside this heat, it feels like one of those upper echelon lobbies. Even Pablo Wingo's swag here alongside Flick, just mentioned them before, but their prowess inside the mid game, racking up the damage. Look how far away people's bases are to them compared to everyone else's around as well. They really know how to space people away. The issue is the shots aren't landing as much right now. They're still 27 below.
Yeah, you see that Storm Surge tick over and active. You hear the warning. That means the Purple Thunder is going to be coming down, and it's going to be coming fast and furious. 25 damage every 5 seconds if you've been one of the more passive teams. So action will kick off across the lobby. You can see Bubak putting some shots there into Lawson on the other side. Kiko trying to push through as well. You can see Bubak will get the confirmation on that side. Still, they're fine in terms of being above it, but 2 trios will be taking the damage there as 74 players are still up, 25 trios. And honestly, they don't really need to go aggressive. They got the refresh on the other side. They're right on the edge of zone. They should be able to push through, but it looks like we want to take this fight as Zyper and Eskazu? I have no idea how to pronounce it. I apologize. Sky's out. Sorry.
Sky's out. Yeah.
There's just a whole bunch of letters in there. All right.
I understand the strat. It's the S's for staying passive and surviving, and then the extra W's so you can win a game.
Look, we're seeing right now with Flick's trio, right? They are in a world of trouble. Flick, Swag, and Pablo. Pablo's already out of the game. And this is the struggle that we talk about with teams deciding, look, I'm going to change my POI. I'm going to switch up where I land in the reboot round. You get moments like this where they're down on, so they don't know what to do. They don't have experience, right, out of Stealthy Stronghold. It's tragic. They need to figure this out moving forward.
Yeah, rough situation when you don't really pass that first Storm Surge check, particularly when like 2 trios went down right away. There's 78 players up. You know there's only going to be 3 trios who are below. Like realistically, that's just landing any shots, right? Like yeah, the number's going to creep up there a little bit, but as long as you're able to find tags along the way, you shouldn't really ever be threatened by that. And they just weren't able to kind of pass that test. So now you can see 70 players remaining. Storm Surge will turn off. 24 trios still in this. 4 have gone down. Don't forget, this is match number 2 of Heat 2. As we see, we already had the English trio, Michael Verox, going through there from match number 1. And I mean, they're going to be very happy about that.
Yeah, most definitely. I think a lot of people, you know, maybe would have doubted them. Last season, you look at how those guys did, all on different trios, or Michael and Verox playing with each other. It was shocking, right? You know, speaking to them, they had lost their motivation. They weren't grinding, they weren't playing as much, and they made a commitment this season to make sure they would be back in the FNCS finals, and they finally have accomplished that.
This is the one story, though, that I really want to keep tracks on, because confidence was high at the start of the season for Refsguard, Hen, and Chulix, right? We kind of branded them as the misfit squad rolling in terms of a lot of these guys might not have gotten dropped, you know, by their trio per se, but they are the missing third link that then banded together, tried to attack the season, and had a few good runs. Issue is, it just doesn't feel like there's a tag to give to their style of game. It doesn't feel like there's one coherent way they really end up getting VRs or pursuing, you know, the best portions of each end game. End up just trying to adapt to what's ever happening to them, and you know, that's sometimes not the best way to put a VR under your belt.
See, I don't necessarily agree with that. I would just say that their path to victory is very one-dimensional, where it's basically Hen does something utterly ridiculous in like the 5th through like 7th zone, and it just gives them enough of a refresh to take high ground. Like those are the situations where this team ends up racking a solid amount of their points. And again, that's not to say that Trulix and Refsguard aren't capable of doing that, but we've talked about Hen on this cast for such a very long time, ever since he turned, I think, 14th or his 15th birthday. He just started winning tournaments, had some of the best FNCS performances ever, and now being able to kind of be a little bit more of his leader on his team. He has a little bit more of a leash, but with great power comes great responsibility. And when there is so much there and you're not all of a sudden making that top 4 in the first week, you're not making that top 5, right? And being able to actually push through and make the finals, and now you have to win a game. Like, if you're the one who has to clutch that up, that's a lot.
Yeah, and I think, you know, their reliance on individual brilliance per se is very much as a result of their roles on the former trios they were on. All maybe not necessarily in a role where they are the key person making decisions, and especially where they're coming out of steamy stacks. Me and Reese alluded to it on the desk, like, you know, you'd think they'd be good because Refsguard's been under there all year long. You think everything's going to be worked out. But on his former trio, he wasn't really the one that was paying attention to these kind of things, right? And I think that's where they found a lot of their struggles so far this season.
This is going to be just a disgustingly large Storm Surge, by the way. There's currently 18 players. That is just 6 trios who are going to be threatened by it. That's why you see all this action kicking off, because over a quarter of the lobby has to go fight, and they have to go fight now rather than be put in an advantage. You can see Rax and Huddy just wipe up a trio. Almost immediately, they say, hey, foot on the gas, no problem. Here we go, right in the fast lane, hopping on the Autobahn. They'll say, we'll pass that check as we swing on over to see how Dan, Loki, and Marumbi do, as they're 254 below and climbing.
Every single team's kind of incentivized to fight in their own lanes as well. 283 below for Dan. Oh my goodness. 1 second outside, 1 second when the windows roll down, and the wind blasts their face so hard they get knocked, and all their shields are removed too. Loki can barely even respond back. This is going to be trouble all across the map, though. There's like 3 main central hubs where so many teams are locked side by side. They're all fighting in crazy box fights. This Lightning is dropping on 11 players still so far. So tough for the entire lobby, and it's a max pull for a majority of them too. Not only do they have to resolve this fight in the next 30 seconds, if they can live, they have to get across, land down, build up again, and then get their next portion of the game started.
And this is a result of the passiveness we were seeing earlier on in the game. Loads of teams always having a mental approach of, look, if we're struggling to search, everybody else is. Well, now you're all going to be struggling for the rotation. You can see Lockie here grasping at straws. It really is going to be difficult for so many of these teams, and I expect many more of them to go down on this journey into zone.
And I mean, you can see the desperation there, just pickaxe out, holding forward. Doesn't matter if it's W or the left analog stick, it's just nose and pray somebody has to go through. But I mean, as we talk about, a quarter of the lobby is under it, but that means 3/4 of the lobby doesn't have to do anything. But somebody who had to do a lot, you can see the QO Master gets ripped down. Nervik loses the entirety of his shield as well, trying to get one of those late launch pads, and that's the danger of taking anything but a covered short pad. You can see Nervik completely decimated there, as Zohan now will try and go for a solo clutch, but with 4 builds, a Harpoon make that 2 builds. He's just trying to get down into the sludge, but even then, you don't even get that 2 tick going through. He's gonna hop in a box and pray it's enough. Just try and work through some of these old builds, but even the woods are on fire. I mean, this is just a horror movie here at the end of October for Zohan, not a comic.
This is just so tough. The worst possible case scenario. You fight, you end up scratched up, battle scarred, moving in, half HP, barely even any shields while flying. Your teammates are down. You're going out in the zone. It's so rough trying to make it across the map with not full shields. Like, it's the worst of all worlds. It's the worst song possible to sing in this moment.
Yeah, I mean, you sing a song and you're not reeling them in there. It seems like it's a song they've sung before, but hopefully it's not one that they will sing again. Don't want to hear that tune where you're just sandwiched between Storm Surge and some of the best players in Europe raining shots down on you. But right now you can see KPI, Deoxy, and Crow, the Spanish trio, going for a pad right away. The question is, will they short or will it be a full pad? Many of the full pads have been ripped down, but timing it well, being among a bunch of those flies, and they're not letting people get a bead on them. We will have a Storm Surge warning coming out because this is a thick lobby. 45 players still up on their feet, 17 trios still going through, and some of those late launch padders are taking a whole lot of damage there as High Ground, again, just raining the shots down.
It's been Koro on high ground the entire time as well, still holding on to it as the 6th zone rolls in. Mawaka finds elimination. I believe they're also just operating as a duo, so this is crazy. They're making this work against teams flying in the sky. We'll see, though, on the backside, KPI members going a little bit crazy in terms of the rotations, letting it delay a little bit. With one teammate down, him and Crow have to really make sure all of this works. 320 damage below Surge as well. Not only have to survive this circle, make the move, but also deal as much damage as possible to get back up. A nice knock body, that's free, and a team on the left side. Both players get shot down at the same time, and that team's eliminated. Check it out, though. Koro is still trying to fight for height. He's moving up all the way to Taki. It's gonna go down with a big pump, and he claims it. No one else is looking up, though. Fork and Polly finally end up taking a little bit of a peek up top. Mawaka is gonna get deleted as he tries to catch back up to Koro, and Supuki takes height as well. Meanwhile, down low, Waze, Bubak, their trios are getting decimated. Supuki has it, though. Hookah's there, not sure where the trio mate is either. It's duos splintered apart, trying to take control of this entire game, and the fights don't stop. Hookah lands a little bit of shot on the Fork. He trades with Supuki, though. Now there's another member fighting for height. Jimki will catch up in just a second. Shuzi is nowhere to be found. The spicy splashes are there, but no matter what type of mule you have nothing to stop the pressure that's being dealt from this high ground team.
That was disgusting from Fork. He just set his feet and blasted away Supuki. It looked like Supuki had done enough. Him and his trio had taken away, but then here comes Fork to just quite literally stick it in it. He said, that's a meal, and he takes it away. Jimki and Chicky get back up there, and they have high ground. Nobody's looking up. Low ground is just completely stacked. They should be able to walk this down, and the question is now, can they win the end game, or does somebody still have a launch pad? We've had so many max pulls. It feels like everybody has used them. It seems like this is their game to win, but as I say that, everyone takes this guy. Here comes the contest.
It's going to be 5 different teams going up for the top, but they don't actually land. It was a fake. It was a chop out. Oh no, Chicky, he lands, but Fork, he's down. The main aggressor is not going to be here to lead the charge. Chicky now has to do all the work by himself. Sees second height. They dropped it once down before. Now the pistols are railing again. It's Waze. It's AR Baffo looking to take things over. Waze going to be on the walls of AR Baffo for now. They're going to link up again. Irazumi and Wolfie looking good all the way down below. There are no builds at all for Chicky's side. Only shots. There's no chance, no resources, and now he's the one getting pressured down. this is just disaster. A last-minute harpoon, though, he finally gets taken out. Tilted goes down in the feed. Low ground is also up in shambles. Irazumi is down. Waze is fighting in the zone. Tilted is getting taken out too. We're up to a river now, but no one's swimming in a very calm way. This is a drowning moment. They're not even Wolfie.
1v1v1
breath to survive. It's a 1v1v1 for the win.
MTB Brido, Apex, Crizzy, and Rax. Who will be the hero? Their trio mates are hanging on in the background saying, you got this, cheering, trying to take match number 2, trying to find a piece, and Rax hits a huge shot. Brido goes out, but he dips out into the zone, loses all of his shield, 53 HP, and a Dream EIQ. Rax trying to fight, but Apex, Crizzy was able to take away the high ground. The harpoon knocks him down. Crizzy has all the HP trade, has the charge shock, but it seems like, nope, not quite out of mats. Going to do a nice little ramp at it. 2 more builds, has the charge out. First shot, and Crizzy walks his team to the finals in 8 eliminations. The solo clutch, Polly and Wixie are going nuts in the call right now, but congratulations, Apex, Crizzy, Polly 76, Wixie, that's match number 2, and Heat 211, and what a finish.
I can't believe what I've just seen there. Just the amount of chaos that was there. You know, the team's trying to thrive through the chaos. You don't get this anywhere else. You don't get this in any other lobbies. You know, the way their pathway to winning that game is just unbelievable, right? You wouldn't have thought if you looked at 5th zone, 6th zone, 7th zone, and even 8th zone, you would have doubted whether they were in a position to win that game, but they do. Congrats to them as well.
Was there a pathway in that game? I just saw a foggy forest. There were like 7 different teams going for height at all times, Sundown.
I mean, it's such a treat. Like we said, we talked about how rare it is to get those final situations, but hey, we're keeping it rolling. We got matches. We're not stopping. Back over to heat number 1. Here we go. We have seen now twice in a row, it came down to a 5-way 1v1 and then a 3-way 1v1 for matches on the line. Crizzy got the most recent clutch, but right now you can see Festroki, Aqua, and CRR trading shots away. Already 71 players left. So first Storm Surge, not going to be too much of an issue here in the heat number 1 side, which has been a little bit more aggressive than we've seen heat number 2.
Yeah, it's been a little bit more aggressive, and earlier on in this match, we saw basically tons of drop spot switch up. Everything changed around to figure out where players were going. We saw so much like free spots, right? The only places that ended up being contested were Pleasant Park and Stealthy, which was ended up being by Andon's team against Swifty, who unfortunately Swifty's team managed to pick up that win, and then also Matzo's team ended up going down in Stealthy at the same time. So the earlier engagements have caused so many players just to play so slow because they've had that availability earlier on.
It's crazy that Matzo's team is still having a little bit of struggle and still not choosing to, you know, fully switch up the game plan. I would assume that these guys
that was them. They moved. They moved there. Two teams moved there because ETQ's team moved. They moved as well, and then they lost that one.
Oh my goodness. So no matter what happens, the pattern stays the same. Regardless, though, the fact that End and Jesku actually aren't in the game again once more will prove kind of, you know, it's going to be tough in the end game.
And you can see a little bit of sneaky snake going on, but the sneaky snake is then shot out from the side. You can only crouch walk for so long. They go for the Nick Merckx high ground take, and it's going to be successful where you just slowly crouch and build ramps up the backside, but all the way over from the opposite high ground. Link, unfortunately, trying to just get a little bit of dinks going off there. Fortunately, it was just 2 of the body shots going through, which really kind of hampers the efficacy of the pistol there, Reese, because again, you need to hit the headshots with that 2x multiplier. Otherwise, the damage fall off is brutal.
Yeah, and in particular, those closer range, like you mentioned, is where it's going to absolutely tank. There's so many good clips of players being a couple tiles away, even like 4 or 5 tiles away, and just absolutely chunking huge damage. And obviously, at the same time, you have great ammo management too. Look, he's got 400 mini ammo that he can use, and if he's got a good trigger finger, he can just that thing all the way through and hit massive damage on those players that are close. But like you said, teams that are far away, that strat doesn't necessarily work out as well.
But they're below Storm Surge. They're the only trio below Storm Surge right now. So Link, Fury, and Jake, they spent all that time trying to get the angle, got no shots going through, and they're 11 below. They're going to start taking the damage. They have no option for this to end up shifting over. Like, they have to take shots, and they have to take shots right now.
It's not like, you ran out of an item at home. You can just walk over to the store to pick it up. These guys are going to have to buy plane tickets to get close enough to any other trio on the map to try to deal that damage. We're mentioning the pistol, not good from long range. Right now, Link is almost absolutely useless in these fights. It's not going to be super accurate at that super long range. And as a result, it's going to be tough for him. Maybe Gloomy Tomsy down below will be kind of the targets to jump down to. I'm scared and kind of maybe a little bit fearful for their spot.
No, but I was just about to say, wait, I think they're fine because it shifted off. And I was about to say, if they're aware of the map, it shifted on the team who is over into the zone there. So no problem for them. That's going to be at 71st player. Drops first storm surge, turns off. And I think it's actually really beneficial for this lobby that they see that first storm surge. It's something we've talked about through the heat qualifiers. It gets really hard when you have like 65 to like 67 players left going into that zone number 5. If you haven't seen that ticker on the right-hand side, right? If you have no clue, like whether you're 200 plus above, or maybe you're only double digits above, it makes that decision-making in the 5th zone so much harder.
On top of that, a lot of the times when you see games that go down and don't get that first threshold, they become way more stacked later on too. And maybe it is because of that fact that they're unaware. They don't have as much information on the damage that they've done so far. But if you're a top team, you should be keeping track. You know, you should understand how much you've done. But again, that still doesn't show where you are on the Storm Surge leaderboard about everyone else.
Hey, sometimes these players get finicky with it though, right? They claim to do a little bit of damage they might have not done. So even for the IGL, trying to keep track. Did you really hit that 60 tag? Did you really hit it for 80 across the map?
Was it a dink? Was it a 200?
So I can't stand that, man. Even going back to my old competitive days as somebody who played a game where it could be like, oh yeah, he's 4 points on them, you can go, and you're just like, sir. No. No, especially like once you go, and especially in Fortnite where there's so much extra utility. Like if you're coordinating push off that, please call out correct damage numbers. There's a reason they're there. Like I know it's box 200, but no, like come on. Like
yeah, you placed a wall.
You hit a 30. You hit a 30 tag. Don't lie.
I mean, the comms go further than that. I've heard people say he's full box, but they're 5 bases away. It makes no sense. But hey, you got to do what you got to do to keep the confidence up for your team. Sometimes you got to bait them to push for that fight because you know you can win. Mappy, Red Rush, Exterios always kind of staying on the backside of that though. They're not the ones to really aggress. They'll wait for the fight to break down first and then try to pick up the scraps.
I mean, talking about these players, they're definitely not faking it till you make it, but that level of confidence is what it takes to compete at the highest level, and I know what it is dropping into the arena games. I pretend like I have any clue, but I know what I'm doing. Otherwise, it would just be awful in that situation, as we see the 4th zone pull, the last one that is completely centric to the next one's 5th zone will be that half in, half out. So all the prime real estate right around the outside. And honestly, the teams on that southeastern edge, that's really where the focus is going to come down. That's going to be the first high ground control. That's the natural area. But there's also that big mountain right in the middle. So we're going through a little bit of an area where, yeah, the teams in Misty are all right, but the teams towards that southeastern side, as long as half in, half out doesn't pull completely away from them, they'll have priority into the end game.
And what's interesting is the fact that that river's down the middle, creating that large divot, right? So if that zone pulls to the opposite side, that 5th zone pulls the opposite side, man, they're going to have to get some flippers out.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite zones in Fortnite. It's very tough for the players, but eventually, once we see that 6-1 lock-in or even the half and half, one side of the map gets to say, I have the high ground now. Don't try it. Don't even attempt the launch pad or try to swim through. It's tricky. You have to kind of 50-50 it. And for this game we're watching right now, the Meadow side of Misty doesn't have a majority of the players on it because a lot of people from the town are moving in, and Sundown said the southeast is the one that's really filled up. On the left side, if the zone does pull all the way towards the Misty-ish portion, that's where the majority of the server will have to move.
And as you noted, it's tricky, but somebody who knows how to rock the ramp and is sitting right above Aqua Frastroki in CRR is the team who has gotten Vetrum & Co. the 2nd place 2 times in a row, being so incredibly close, but lighting up the feed in the top left. Mongrel just with an insta triple elim. We see the Storm Surge Warning coming on the right-hand side. 16 players, that's 6 trios who are going to be threatened by it. But we have 2 of our high ground teams who've been challenging box directly on top of each other right now. So the question is, can Vetrum & Co. finally convert into one of those leads? And I was just about to say, can Aqua Frastroki and CRR avoid this 5th to 6th round just blunder where somebody over peaks? They were 200 plus damage above Storm Surge. Stay hip to hip in a box. Don't open a window. You don't have to go. They've lost a member in this case every single time, and it's so disheartening to see.
This is what happens with a newer team, though. These teams formed last minute before Qualifier 1. These are veteran players individually, but are they veteran players as a team? Do they know their roles? Do they know how each other plays? Do they know the mishaps that each other makes? Right now, it seems like they don't.
I mean, I still see Aqua jumping on the same floor that keeps getting sprayed out. They don't have control of everything right below it either. That ramp could go down at any moment. So there is probably some miscommunication going on or a difference in strategy overall. We'll see what ends up working. As these games go on, there'll be less players overall. Should work in Aqua's favor to end up taking control of at least one game. I mean, the later it goes, they'll have to lock it in. And once again, Fury Link, Siberia, you tuned in with them a little bit. They were about 100 damage above Surge, now 210 below, in a spot where they can't just be on a spire. They might have half in and half out, but they might be just getting left out of the game entirely if they don't land enough shots. The 23 will not be enough for Link. This is trouble.
And the team on the opposite side of the wall should be hearing those shield breaks coming through, and there's no way they can just sacrifice going over because there's still 3 other shields. But Link hits a monster shot. However, Storm Surge plus some spray onto the backside means they're going to go down. It's just Fury as ETQ. Vettel and Surprise are going to pick that one up, but High Chris and Co trying to get over to it. Fury now is also going to be below. He's going to get picked up. No, that's the same trio. I lied. As Vortex, High Chris, and Nightstick now trying to get a little bit of the scraps going through, knowing there was a fight going on, but I don't think they necessarily want to overcommit here to this situation, as they are stuck down in that valley that you talked about. We have a peak on either side. The question is, where does half in, half out go to see Fancy Shots and Co? We asked the high ground. They gave that up. They're just boxing underneath. Wanloss being picked up. Mappy being picked up as well. Red Rush will get the knock on the left-hand side. 50 players ticked over. Storm Surge turns off. Everybody can breathe a little bit as only one more trio needs to rotate in. So nice deep breath in.
What we saw from Artist's trio there is the fact that they had 4 eliminations and they were still below Storm Surge. For them, they're a very low-earned team. They're a new team to the competitive scene, and they've done really well through the qualifiers so far, but this kind of shows their inexperience, that they have the elims. They probably played a little bit too slow after getting them. This is the first game that they've won off spawn in Dirty Dock so far. So for them, next couple games, if they don't manage to win, they've got to do something big.
And look at the way this zone goes away from the right side where all the old builds are. This is a max pull over a river, over another valley. High ground is going to be active inside the form of a mountain, so these launch pads aren't going to get you across far enough as you usually would expect. This is going to have to be an amazing call from every IGL in this trio that you're going to be watching around. It could be anyone from this side or anyone on the map right now. You have to make a perfect call here with a pad, or you might just be left all the way down in the ground.
Yo, shout out to somebody's gun right now. The question is, hey, how do you rotate? Throw that zone up there and check some of these guys out. Well, the question is, do you have a launch pad? If so, take to the sky right now, because anybody on the low ground does not have the opportunity to actually look up and take shots because of how they have to rotate. You need to immediately get over, land wherever you can, and then box up, but you have to be hip to hip because every other trio is doing the exact same thing. Fancy Sauce, Vetrum, and Co. go down. We saw them in second place time and time again the first 2 matches, but this time they will fall. Aqua and Festroki, they get dropped in, and unfortunately the mid-game blunders are going to cost them. Festroki trying to do it all, trying to put the team on his back, but this would be a solo clutch for the ages. Vetrum going down as well. Next being cleaned up. EMXR still in it as he gets told. Red Rush also picking up an elim onto Vovi Fishy there. That's just a knock, actually looking for the confirmation. Aqua completely picked up there as Festroki now trying to pop and get in front of the zone. 35 players remaining, but Festroki's below Storm Surge as well. He's trying to find some kind of fight.
Looks spiffy though, as he's moving in around the faces and builds. He's looking pretty spry. One more shot will make this guy just fall into Q roll. He takes out just one player from a trio and actually ends up dropping him down too. Festroki's moving like I've never seen him actually move before. On ultimate low, this is gonna be tricky with this zone. It's gonna go down to the river, so Logan might not be the worst situation to be in. He also has just a free line to move in because there's so many people in mid ground. This is huge for Festroki.
He's chilling right now. Like, there is no one near him. And I mean, we talked about how this would be a fantastic early clutch, but everyone is so stacked vertically that with all the fight going down up on the high ground, it's Veto versus ETQ, Vino and Mongrel challenging up. Show me high ground right now, observers. Show me that fight. Yeah, just stick on that wide angle. You can see Veto and ETQ backing it down, but Mongrel, he's going to get wall to wall there as we drop back in. Festroki gets a pull going away from him, so he has priority on the zone. Still 42 builds, finds the player underneath, gets a wall replaced, makes sure he has 2 layers in between. That is fantastic. Making sure he is maximizing his safety. He's going to be able to stay towards the outside because he has plenty in terms of the heals on the flopper, but he's going to be forced to drop down in the fray. Chomsy picks up EMXR. The real question is what's going on his high ground as Festroki continues this run with another great shot, opens up 100, but loses all of his shield. Almost gets the knock going through, needs to win it. The question is, can he drop the ramp and get the angle? Tries to get the flopper. The ramp replacement comes through, and eventually it wins out. There's a solo on the other side. Festroki is playing like a man possessed. Gens takes down Mongrel on the top ground. We're into our top 20 players, top 11 trios, top 17 players, top 10 trios as it keeps ticking down.
There's space between every team as well. Battle ETQ finally get to breathe. Gets takes out Mongrel, but they don't have complete control of what happens inside the game. Mark finally going down. Ari's gonna lose his duo mate, and he does so much damage with Fast. He's not stopping. That's the shot I was waiting for. Lost the 30s and 60s. Add him up to a 175. Fast is online, and no one's even at low ground. It's basically his. 8 teams with 12 players and not many full trios. This is very doable. For Fast this could be a clutch trade for the finals. Shot missed though. That's unfortunate. Back into the zone. Has the flopper to get back. 128 damage. Needs to break through, but it's not enough. He gets taken out. Hikris is still alive as a solo right now. Ari's down below healing inside the zone. Asterios, Red Rush, and Mappy are alive down below. This could be their game to just take.
They're the only full trio left. Vettel, ETQ up on the high ground. It'll be a trio versus a duo at the end, assuming the trio can remain hip to hip. Vettel, ETQ, will they be able to take it down? You can see Ged's doing a little bit of damage. We might end up going to a duo versus a duo. Right now, you can see it's a 2v2, v1v1. Vettel and ETQ dropping down. Vettel finding huge shots, but he gets traded out. He's able to take out Hikris. ETQ will have to run it out. He has the chug splashes. He has the harpoon, but yet again, it's going to end up being a clutch situation. Right now, you can see it's a 2v1v1. Geds with barely a tick of HP. He's going to have to find something. Otherwise, it's Mappy and Exterios going to be forced to try and take that 1v2. Mappy not long for this world either, as he will take over. And Shio, we got a 1v1, baby. Let's get it. Who's going to the finals?
There's bandages on one side, but it's not going to be enough. No time to pop those. ETQ with the position, with the splashes, ends up with a VR and takes the prize, and Vetle straight over to the finals.
This is the first time they won off spawn. This is the first time they switched up their drop spot. Remember, they were constantly fighting Hikris' team near Holly Hedges so far. They decided to switch up the drop spot. And I mean, they were still fighting because they ended up fighting Matzel's team, which we alluded to earlier. But this time they won the fight. It set them up. And now they've managed to pick up the victory out. A heal off with 2 chug splashes.
I mean, that's kind of what happens when you have Geds taking out every single team between him and low ground. Mongrel, and then takes out Red Rush and just ruins the trio's dreams down below. I think he might have had all the heals available and they leave him back in the Storm Sundown. That's tough.
I mean, you talk about the individual efforts. That's been the story of Europe, but we're not stopping. We're going right on over to the next one. You can see 75 players, 25 trios remaining. Leving hopping back on board here as we switch on over to heat number 2. Wazi, Tenzin, and Karot got a decent amount of space right now, so they should be happy with this.
Lots of stuff even breaking down inside this game. See what rolls 2 in heat number 2. The last time we saw him ends up actually going down a little bit later inside the feed. Was picked up as a refresh in the end game. This time he's alive. We get to see the team's POVs in terms of how they move around. Tenzin, Woodsy always feel like they take up more space than a usual trio. They're very puffed out in the chest every time they base up.
Yeah, and can we just talk about this timing right now? How we go from just some of the most ridiculous endgames to then just immediately hopping in to right around where first Storm Surge is. Like, we get the wording on the side. Like, yeah, I know a lot of people enjoy kind of watching some of those early game fights and seeing what the contestation going down is. But I think the reality is that the real Fortnite, the game planning that you get in competitive starts to come around these circumstances. Like, yes, the teams that are able to win those contestation generally 9 times out of 10 are getting a pass kind of through that first Storm Surge. But now, as you can see, the rest of the teams, the question is, who's able to get through?
Yeah, and so far, guys, in this game, it's been a bit of a slow burner. As you sort of alluded to, I think a lot of teams almost trying to right the wrongs of last game, right? Where maybe a couple teams being a bit more aggressive and trying to get Surge. It's weird because this whole south side of the map, it feels like has been left by. Everybody's like, no, I'm not going to get Surge here. I'm heading up north. And the teams who have dealt with Surge now deciding, oh, actually, Southside's not going to be so populated. I can just sort of get away with maybe not committing as many mats, not committing as many resources, and cruise my way through to the end game. I think here we're seeing an example of teams maybe being more aggressive, realizing that we can't end up in the same positions we were last game. It's not going to work out. See how that one plays out.
right now. With that third zone reveal, we're pretty much directly over one of those crash sites, which we haven't necessarily had the opportunity to have a match where that side stream is in play right up until that moving zone. So we'll see how that ends up playing out, as it does give some additional congestion opportunities. But you can see Stormsurge ticks on, teams begin trying to fight. Erkin, Blackie, and Letutax trying to get it. Lays in there, going down first. Stormsurge will end up cutting through. They are one of the two trios who are below, and Blackie desperately trying to get as many of the shots going on. But I mean, it's just, as I say, it's not going to happen. He gets above, able to put it way above, but I think he realized that he wasn't going to be long for this world anyway. With only 22 HP, Willpow, Aim Panic, going to be able to pick that one up with dual media snipe.
That's so unfortunate. Landing some crazy shots, but on a new player every single time. So no, not coming through. No chance for an elim. If he got that down on the one player and then the damage onto a second two, the clutch might have been able to come through, but unfortunate overall. People still even waiting on the outside of the safe zone, just ready to fight instead of go for that position, which is smart because, yeah, Levin alluded to it on the south side. Lots of surge issues at the moment. Checking with the north at some point too, just to see exactly who's positioned up where. Refsguard, Trulex, Hand still unable to win a game so far. We'll check in with Panic, see like, hey, heard a few noise complaints about a fight breaking down here. Lots of pump shots. Shouldn't be that loud. This is a quiet neighborhood, so gonna make sure they stay quiet and move away.
Well, look, and they're the noisy neighbors. Well, they typically are known to be rather noisy neighbors. It's been quiet, as you said, so far for them. And these are the troubles, right? I've noticed a lot of the teams who are sort of rotating in late from the extremities of the map are struggling. They're getting held, right? I saw a stealthy Flicks team was literally being held for a couple of minutes, and it was very frustrating to deal with. And I think this is something that Hen's team has really struggled with. And I don't see them making any adjustment anytime soon, because these are the same things we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks with this team.
I also want to appreciate the fact that, you know, Fortnite, the game itself, it's kind of alluding to how the weather is going to be changing outside soon. Lots of south zones, lots of winter type themes we're looking at right now, right? I mean, I don't think I've seen these many mountains in a row other than maybe the season 6 finals, where we were forced to see players drop down over and over again. This is going to be another chance for people to be familiar with the zone and what's going on here. It's going to be a good chance for some of the teams that made mistakes inside the half and half out to try to fix those. Sometimes when you go from the south zone all the way to the north side, it feels like you might have not learned anything from that last game, but a lot of these teams might have to get a nice repeat chance at bringing things back.
Yeah, and a team who very frequently hanging out right around that high ground area, Mawaka, Kaler, and his trio mate. I mean, they're able to pick up 2 victory royales yesterday, but still not finish in that top 4. So they're playing for their tournament lives here today, and unfortunately still haven't been able to pick up one of those victory royales. You'd think they'd be heading towards that chance, but Rax, we saw it with an incredible individual effort. I believe that was in match number 2 for this heat. He was so close, part of one of those final top 3, fighting it out, but got taken down, trying to find a little bit of an angle, and there's going to be a number of teams packing it in along this northern side, so timing could play a huge factor here yet again.
I want to know from you though, Sundown, right? Like when it comes to the mentality of teams like that, this is a team that very much impressed yesterday. They've impressed multiple times this season. You've come so close in the previous game. You know, you must be thinking just of what do we have to do to get the win, right? Of course, yes, we always talk about, you know, setting yourself up for success, mitigating potential weaknesses, but ultimately, sometimes you need a bit of luck to come your way, and it doesn't feel like they've been able to get any of that.
So it's like, obviously, any battle royale game, it's a battle of attrition. It's a resource management game, which most games at a competitive level, once you go all the way up, it's about economy and resource management because the skill level is there. But I think one thing in Fortnite in particular, and I think EU struggles with this a little bit more than some of the other regions, is having the IGL in that moment who just clutches up, who has that very disciplined moment. And it's not hitting the clutch shot. It's not getting the rotation exactly right. It's just making sure that your that's a disgusting shot from Quick, dropping down and hitting that, by the way. It's been very rare that we see that all the time, but I love seeing those. The kid is just incredibly good at this game. But we don't see those moments, and this is something that goes back to, I think, where Aqua and CRR really need this, where your IGL says, no matter what in this circumstance, we stay a box together. We are together the whole time. We don't open walls unless all 3 of us are looking. And if you can keep that level of discipline going into each one of these end games, and you're making 4 or 5 of the end games, you're going to give yourself at least 1 shot to win it. At least. Like, if you make it to 5th zone and you're having that level of mentality, I always call it kind of the Psalm mentality, right? Where no matter what you're doing, you check every single box every single time, because that's what he was doing. Just trying to make it to the end to look for an opportunity to pick up points, and having that level of dedication, that level of IGLing is so hard in trios. There's so few players who do it incredibly well.
Having the mentality all the way till that point is also, or is key, but what also is key right now, I'm noticing inside both heats, we'll talk about politics, I guess, a little bit. The president, or the team that's all the way at high ground, the captain of the more populated side, this time it's left rather than right, ends up controlling the game the entire time. No one goes for an immediate height take. They end up being the same team that's there in the 8th to 9th zone. That's where really those big fights end up breaking out. So right now, looking at this left side, I want to see who actually has height in this half and half. They maintain control. The power of influence is very strong for these high ground teams.
You can see right now Numb as a solo underneath that swim search threshold, and weird to kind of open up there with that epic SMG, because even if you are going to get the tags, these players are good enough, they're just going to insta replace the wall. So despite getting a line there, only got 19 damage, but hey, he says it's just enough. Sundown, you can see 54 above, 130 above, with only one more plane going down. He's going to be able to get a pass, but as a solo towards this side, I mean, 50 builds, he's just looking to find whatever space he can, tries to hop in a solo cone, but the second you see one of those, everyone's going to spray. 18 health, everybody knows he has no shields, and don't think he's going to be long. Picked up there, 48 players, 18 trios still on their feet.
One big thing too right now, everyone that's kind of worked legs so far and really focused on the cardio find themselves in the middle of the map, not that afflicted in damage, looking and chilling. It's just feeling fine. Everyone also that's been working their shoulders, their arms, find themselves on the north and south side, trying to fit through the same door at the same time. They're way too bulky. There's so many trios trying to survive. As a result, the edges of the zone right now have people stacked up top on each other. In the middle, everyone's still low ground because there weren't that many people there. There's like a man-made valley effect happening inside this game right now. I'm not sure what the effects will be because of that, depending on where the zone goes. But interesting to note, because if you are in the middle and you're trying to move, you might get beamed from spots you might not expect.
And speaking of that valley, right at the top of it, Milwaukee's team, they postured themselves to try and be on height. Max pool zone, though, isn't going to be too favorable for them. And look, we saw already in previous games how hard it is for teams to hold height. In regular games, forget, this day in particular. In regular games, it's so difficult. And so in an environment where it's all or nothing for many of these teams, for Milwaukee to try and hold height and a max pool and then out towards the end of their game, it's going to be so rough. It didn't work out last time. They're going to have to try to do it this time. Hopefully, though, with 3 players up instead of the 2, there's a bit of hope there.
And now you'll see Refsguard goes right past the valley and then pads afterwards. So the value in terms of space, they get to go right towards the front portion of the zone. The pad all the way from the back would not give them this high of a base. Now they have lots of control. They get to look basically forward, above, but also below themselves now with this type of base. So it's going to be great for him. The harpoon there too to use. It's cut out to Tenzin trying to defend up against ZQ, who's trying to get that height. Kiko's there too. They fall for now. Blueback's to the backside with a half pad. He gets to go in and find his team too. Flick's also alive right now, rolling in on a mid-ground layer.
And you can see again, checking the right-hand side, Flick, they're up, but I mean, Storm Surge, it's going to tick on 10 seconds. 43 players still up. That means 5 trios at least. You can see now at least 4 trios will be hit. Trulux picking up a triple Elan there in the Freed for Doxy, getting the confirmations as we get yet another pretty decent far pull, and we're going out above the water, so expect resources to be drained here. But Flick and Co, they're going to start taking the damage. They need somebody to go, and Flick, he has no builds either. He can't defend himself. He's just going to be ripped apart. Storm Surge also getting the final tick there, so no, down but not out state. A Sky's out going down as he tries to challenge up on the high ground. Locker Red, Tenzin just slapping him down, saying not a shot. As you can see, Heinz and Co trying to build up a little bit on the opposite side, but they're getting chopped down as Tenzin and Co also get chopped down. This is the problem in EU. Nobody is building a strong enough foundation. It's all wood. They're getting their mats burned down, so high ground trying to go up just gets slapped away. In the MTB trio, all of a sudden, they were uncontested up top.
And this is just what happens then. Desperation for every team trying to drop down. Surprises though. Throughout with the pump harpoon combination. Kiko's gonna be mad about that one. He gets pulled away at the same time though. Hen goes down in the feed. A very phenomenal player inside these endgames, especially these aquatic zones, is not gonna be able to just flash out and do exactly what he wants. Shulex then is gonna be left by himself. I don't really see Ref start anywhere. At the backside, we see Huddy with a big fight up inside the zone too. Everything on low ground is really the focus. His height just has that pressure to spray down. With Mini's finally gone down. Looks like Rax's team has kind of lost that fight. Trulex, though, is still going to be here as a solo, has options, stays quiet, moves forward through an edit. That's huge.
Brilliant.
White HP on that player, then drops for a swim. No, does not have the floaties to stay alive. Huddy's down there with Rax. They're still surviving. The dream's still there. Up top, though, Rito, they're looking high, dry, and free. Rax is still activated up inside this puddle, but he gets taken out.
That was a massive knock, though, onto Wolfie as he was able to drop down. Knocking Wolfie just broke apart one of the full trios that had control on the low ground. They thought they were fine, resuming that Frizzy weren't covering that side, but all of a sudden, Hainu, Verdu, and Magote, the French trio, just braining shots down. Again, they're single tarping out with wood. They're nearly out of resources, but we're into the final zone. We're going to yet another max pull. We're out on the island. They're refarming trees, trying to do anything to hold on. Zinni ends up being picked up, but with only 10 players and 4 trios remaining, the question is, can they ride this out? It's so close to the end there with a 3v3v2, 8 players left. Rezumi gets picked up there on the other side. They want to try and take this down, send Magote down with that epic SMG and just ride it out. Dan being picked up on the backside of the stone. This has to be their game.
Magote looking for the spray with Heine. They have no match right now, and 2 players already locked down. It's up to Artie. 10 eliminations. If this was an FNCS game, it'd be huge, but it's only the win that matters. He goes for the sidewinder pump shot. It's not going to be enough. Down now to his final builds. One more wall. It's not enough. He doesn't have it at all. It's the French trio from up top that wraps up the game. What a phenomenal high ground hold from this team.
Yeah, really impressed by the MTP boys there. Look, you know, they weren't the only team that was struggling, right? We talked about the teams who maybe had used all their hard matches down to it. They were as well on height, and typically that doesn't work out. But what was so effective from them, their concentrated sprays, right? Their communication, being able to be a cohesive unit when you're on height. They're focusing the right people at the right time and closing out that game. That's exactly what you want to see from them. And not just today, now in the FNCS final as well.
Yeah, they're going to get an opportunity to compete for a piece of that $1.3 million prize pool. That kicks off tomorrow, gentlemen. Literally tomorrow, we get the first 6 matches, but we're going to keep it rolling. We have seen 3 matches from heat number 1, or from heat number 2, excuse me. Now we're swinging on back over to heat number 1. Mappy, Exteriors, and Red Rush looking for a decent amount of space here right now. As you can see, checking the right-hand side. Nope, actually, as I say that, you can see the top left corner, 70 players remain. So that first Storm Surge Reese has been turned off.
Yeah, let me break it down. Let me tell you what exactly happened before this went on in. Obviously, we only had 26 teams this time, so there's a little bit less of a threshold to start with. Quentin's team is obviously now uncontested since our previous 2 games winners actually end up not contesting this time. Then we saw a crazy fight happening down in Holy Hedges. There was team after team after team. There's Vortex's team, Trixie's team, and Styler's team all involved, which Vortex's team ended up picking the win there, so they're still in this. What a surprise, fighting mid-game, right? Wouldn't surprise that. And a big pickup that was really important, a trend that we've been seeing throughout the games all the way today. Mongrel goes down to Aqua in Boney Burbs. He was sitting up on high ground. The automatic sniper comes out and absolutely obliterates him so far. So for them, he's already down. So it now seems like Aqua's finally got the Storm Surge figured out. I could see them getting maximum tags on the body too. So for them, this could be a big switch up.
Okay, this might be a little bit of a reach, but on that map shot, the way everything was based up, it kind of looked like an L. And sometimes they call Aqua the orchestrator of the lobby. Hidden mixed messages towards Mongrel? Thoughts? Or too much of a stretch?
No, I mean, that's a stretch. I'll give you that one.
I was about to say, Shio, I feel like 95% of your metaphors have been stretched out a little bit. You know what I'm saying? They got the Mrs. Incredible going on over there. Nostroki, CRR, Aqua trying to build up a decent amount of lead. I mean, they're sitting on that one Elam who happens to be Mongrel on the opposite side there, so able to sit him down a little bit. I mean, the inventory looks okay. You don't really hate on the common AR because it's not that big of a drop off going through. So, I mean, it's all right. But that being said, I feel like you're not going to be able to win a game right now with just one launch pad.
He won't.
how hectic this heat in particular has been.
But if you're talking obviously about AR power, his teammates got it locked down. CRR's got a purple burst, whereas at the same time, Astrokey has that gold automatic sniper that we looked at earlier. So for long range power, they have definitely the weaponry in their arsenal to be able to do so. So for them, kind of being in this position where now they were on height, they've got a ton of tags, they have the single elimination, they got maximum damage on that thirst as well. They just have to focus on the rotate and get a couple more as they go.
All about not making mistakes though as well when it comes to Aqua's team. I just really want to focus on what happens to them once Storm Surge starts to roll in, or basically that half in, half out fourth zone type of halfway mark where they're based up beside other teams. There's edits going on along all sides. They're not really one to make big changes in terms of their game plans. If you're watching the quals, if you're watching semis day one, I mean, the most obvious choice would be to stop going for these crazy all-in height plays, maybe play second height like we've seen some other teams do that also like to take high ground completely, and then just play the game in a sensible fashion. They're still going all in, they're still going crazy. Props to them for that. It's very entertaining to watch, but it feels like they're getting knocked down a few pegs every time, every qual because of that.
Just don't over peak in the 4th and 5th zone. They've done it 3 games in a row. If you go back in VOD review, it's like, what can we do different? Hey, let's not over peak in the 3rd and 4th, like 3rd, 4th, 5th zone. Okay, that's it.
It was simpler in quals. It was just don't go for height crazy, or just chill.
You can't tell him. You can't tell him not to do it. No, there's strategy to pads. There's ways you can pad up the height. They just didn't do it well. Like there's strategies with a single player padding to the backside where 2 people crank up at the front side of zone. They weren't doing the strategies they needed to. A height wasn't the issue for them. We know Aqua's team, they will be able to pop off, pick up victory royales like that. It's the earlier, it's the setup for that. If you don't have the materials, if you don't have the HP, if you don't have the tags, you can't make that kind of play.
Yeah, and I'm not, again, to be clear, I'm not saying don't go for height. We've seen these guys from height. They're disgustingly good at it. They are so good. They're one of the best teams in the world when it comes to challenging and executing that challenge in a meta where, honestly, it's moderately difficult, probably easier than some of the other seasons we've had as of late, but it's not the easiest in the entire world, right? But as Reese, you noted, like, the problem isn't them going for height. It's like the zone and a half before that where somebody decides that they want to open up a floor or they sit on the same one and they get down a player. Because all of a sudden, your ability to execute on a height take when you're a duo compared to a trio becomes so much harder. It's like at least 1 magnitude, if not 2.
I feel like the issue for that too happens 2 zones before the 4th zone too. The reason they're editing out, the reason they're over peaking, I don't think they're getting enough surge tags at all to start off the game. That's why they're forced to maybe go for these shots. That's why, I mean, Aqua usually would not do it. We see them really pretty tempered on the 4th and 5th zones in usual weeks. Do they have the damage? Aqua would never edit for a shotgun shot on Mongrel, right? So there is a little bit of desperation in that, maybe because of the way the lobby's playing so reserved. They're not getting the free tags they're used to from the side of Boney. Also, remember, these are very big south zones, and a lot of these teams are going across the edges of the map with boats, with the cars. They're not running into as many teams at Boney. There's less teams on the map. They're not even be landing at Believer Beach anymore because of all the quals and the drama at contesting that spot randomly inside games like this. It's very different for these guys overall, and maybe that's why they're tripping up in the 4th and 5th zone.
If you want to get Storm Surge from Boney Burbs, the difficulty is that metal there is so slow to harvest, which means that you have to spend a lot of time doing that, which means you spend less time getting Storm Surge tags. For them, they usually, and for most good Boney teams, if you have a south zone, rotate to the hill to the south of that early and claim that power position, because all the teams, you have great sight lands over them all now. Now, potentially with the convergence adding in, there's a little bit of a different strategies to do so, but for them, it's like, you know, they clearly haven't figured that out. Even though Aqua's team, I don't say that in particular, like they know Storm Surge strategies, but at the same time, with Aqua's team, this newly formed team, like we mentioned, they clearly are not fully understanding that what they need to do in the right situations.
Yeah, they're a big team of influence inside the end game. Another one inside the mid or moments like now are Ori, Artist, Mark, who are once again down. That is the team that likes to go for height as well, so this is going to be a good game for Aqua's team if they choose to go for that big push. Gedz is here too, though, and I'm actually kind of liking this trio a lot based off of that last game we just saw in this heat. Absolutely dangerous. We're not scared of a fight when it matters most. Gedz will hit those shots. Q-Roll will set him up too, and for some reason, they end up surviving until the top 5 over and over again, which is also very good. We see the same pattern inside this game still as well. All the teams who are good on Surge by themselves, everyone in trouble in clusters right now. The main one is at the convergence over there. There are no builds to refarm. There is no house to take over. over. You have to make your own builds, and that's where things get very troublesome.
This is like the first time we've seen Nate's team, basically. The first game, I think they were down really, really early. And then the second game, it was just into that first moving zone as well. So it's like, for them, they're so well set up with 800 above the damage with no eliminations, which means they've had a great strategy. And for them, like, I've seen them throughout this season being on, off, on. They have a good game, and it goes not so well. So I'm thinking they could still do it this match.
Yeah, I mean, 770 above with no eliminations on the board is actually bonkers.
Okay,
I guess that's such a huge number. Like, as you can see now, Mappy, Red Rush, and Exterius get from 88 to 307 above, so doing a good job in this fight, but they need to then back off. This is the moment I'm talking about, where you have the surge, you're now 350 above, you're fine. You're not going to ricochet below that, and if you do, it's going to take a while. Reset, get the effective HP back up, and don't risk somebody going down, because losing somebody in this scenario, when you have such a far northern pull to go, you can't afford to get down to a duo right here.
I think the best part about this poll, though, is the majority of the lobby does not have it. It's going to be very tricky for the teams that are based up to really focus everyone that's flying at the same time. So as long as Mappy, Red Rush, and Asterios time this well, it should be fine. Red Rush needs to get healthy, though, because even if it's just one person beaming at you, it's usually the people who don't have that much HP that somehow end up getting targeted. So he's got to be careful here. Look at everyone around here, though. All affected. Podesai is low as well. They actually undersurged. They just were momentarily. Now just 13 above. There's 7 different people that need to go down, and Podesai's going to be one of the one losses also. Just at 1 HP, he gets taken out to the low ground. Dominators, the people that love to control the game, are not going to be there, and they leave a mark before they get out. It's going to be Exterior swing by himself. No chance to res Red Rush. This is going to be dangerous for the trio. Picks one teammate to launch pad with, or I'm not sure what he's doing. There's some type of strat here that's going completely awry. That's so unfortunate. I understand what he was going for. Nice try, Exterior.
Yeah, he's trying to hit that launch pad play, tried to place it, then tried to jump on it with his teammate, but unfortunately, he didn't place it. So instead, you know what? Sorry, teammate. Sorry, Mappy. You're going out deeper into the zone, and I don't think we're going to see you much more for this game.
And right now you can see just trying to get the med kit off, trying to find a little bit of room with 50 players down. We do end up now having Storm Surge turn back off. So a little bit of a breather for all of those trios. But right now, just trying to take stock of the situation up on the high ground. You can see Typo and his trio having just the only real priority. And the question is, what are they going to be able to do with it?
They got that priority stolen in the last game. Jay was kind of the focus of Hen's trio momentarily. They got a lot of elims. They were the ones that ended up going down a little bit in that mountainous zone. This time they're away from everyone else. Looks like they were good on Surge overall as well. Out of Billboard, and this zone might just be a big movie real quick. We'll see what ends up going down as we're over near that Risky Reels POI. It's pretty much looking like, what was it, Season 7 of Chapter 1 right now. The visitor challenges. So many people here right now ready to go, and they should be flying very, very soon. 3 seconds, and the majority of this entire island is pulled it, but Jay actually up top gets invaded by Snazy. Unfortunately, not going to have a chance to stay up top on that movie screen. It's going to be a new trio possible that's going all the way for height. Exterior still alive, but I really want to focus on the trios that are around. Nice shot there. Shouldn't be able to survive too long, though, because he's alerted so many people over to the fact that he's a solo and doesn't have that much pressure to drop down. It's CRR, Fast Roki, and Aqua that land using the pressure from Sky, Nate, and Snazy. This is what we're talking about. No edits in that 4th or 5th zone. It's time to bring this win home.
They're going to now pad up to the front. They were at the backside of zone, but they did not manage to get a full head. What's the play from here on out? Are they going to try to get ahead, get down, and climb back up, or are they just going to full land up on that height?
See what ends up happening next. We see Q-Roll going up for it. We told you about Geds. This man has no fear. Even it's Aqua that's all the way up here right now. He's not going to have any mental effect whatsoever. Q-Roll's going to get hit hard, but responds with 100 of his own. Has to stay ahead of this when it's not possible. That ramp's going to block him out, and now it's just going to be a 2-man operation. CRR and Aqua trade past Roki. Not his life, though, just his positioning. Did Aqua just go down to fall damage, though? A big chop from Hyzix and Geds. They affect one of the best IGLs from height, and CRR's also in trouble. He loses a box fight. That trio's gone. Not to an edit, but a big outplay all the way up top, and now High Chris has high ground.
Man, Geds has just been the stick in the mud for so many of these trios. If you're looking for a fulcrum to move from one side to the other, well, he's been the one to do it, just taking down and making way for teams to be able to try and push up towards the high ground. You can see N1, Jessica, and Trixie go all the way back to match number 1, where they took that ramp and were able to cut out the side. A little bit of a similar position here, but now they're on the low ground trying to cut off the teams who are making their way up the side. You can see Sky picking up High Chris. That was the fight up towards the high ground. You can see Snazy and Sky desperately trying to fight for High Chris, going down Nightsec, also being forced down. Vortex being knocked. Nightsec now with only 15 HP, forced all the way back down, or 15 builds, 81 HP, forced down towards the backside of the zone. 20 players remaining, 9 trios still up on their feet. Match number 4 here in EU. This trio and 2 more will book a ticket to the finals, and up on the high ground, Sky and Nate, they say, give us one more chance, and they also have that mythic burst. They are chilling, and the Cabbages with the med kit, they're going to be able to get off one of those late ones, potentially 2, if there's a second one in one of the inventories.
Still is a sleeper agent mid-ground team. All of Amplify's trio is up, waiting for action soon. Keffy just pops off in the V, takes out Cosmo and Typo. Jay already gone down before, so that's a big wipe for them. The elims are there. The refresh is going to be used for just a second. Snazy still dropping down the pressure, but because of all these bounce backs, because of how high height is, there's no chance for them to penetrate any builds. Amplify's left on wood so far. 42 mats, though, in Matzo's inventory, and they still have a harpoon to use. This is a great position for them to be in. They're calm, cool, collected with 8 teams around them. They understand their win condition here. They actually bait a few shots from up top and then go down and claim one side of the zone. As Swiftly, they're chasing. He gets a big shot towards the back. Defender cannot put up that maximum unbreakable wall of defense to stop this trio from pushing in. They're slightly taking some storm damage. Nate and Sky actually go down as a result. They're not going to stay up. They want to make things close and personal here in the end game. Arthur's still popping off. Maxwell finds Nightsec. Nightsec gets Keffy, though, as he's dropping all the way down. Amplify is actually hurt as he rolls through. Melody pops off and takes out Quentin. Next, Fishball and Arthur must be the last other trio still left alive here, other than the high ground one of Sky, Nate, and Snazy, who are looking to finish this game.
Skype wants this so bad right now. He wants to close this out. He wants to play in another finals. He's been to so many of them, qualified for nearly everything. Artur looking to try and find the drop down, looking for a little bit of space. You got a 3v3, v2, the double sandwiching in, and they're dropping down. They could be the one to decide it. You can see Sky and Nate, they're going in, trying to play. It's a 2v3 right now. You can see one going down, 3v3 straight up on the side there. Artur being able to pick up one. You can see Skype gets Fishball. Snazy going for the med kit. He has the Cabbages as well. Can he get the double med kit off as Sky and Nate play Hunters? They're looking for next. Here it comes. Snazy has to get back above the 90 tick wall. He's got it. Snazy's going to be able to execute on this. Should be able to get the med kit off. He's got the time. Nexus ticks over, and the French veterans say welcome to the finals. Vitality, Snazy, Skype, and Nate munch their way on some Cabbages and take home match number 4 here in Heat 1.
All they needed was a good early and mid game, and to set them up absolutely perfectly to take that height later on. You know, we've seen Aqua's team right there take it so early, and in a reboot style game, teams are just going up. They're taking height. Yeah. It's changing. It's turning over. It's changing over again. So if you go for it later, you have a much higher chance of getting it.
They earned it too, right? Fighting off spawn over and over again. That first game of the Heat, the second one surviving, and now in the fourth they're thriving. That was huge.
The fourth, they're thriving, but again, we talk about timing, hopping right on over Heat number 2, Trulix, Hen, and Refsguard. We will get a Storm Search check here in literally 1 second, so keep an eye on that right-hand side. Everyone should get a little bit of a warning coming through and let them know where that threshold is. We currently see 176 below. That first little update lets you know what the threshold is, and then it snaps to where the current trio is, so 325 above for Refsguard, Hen, and Trulix. So no real need to be sticking their necks out there right now.
Yeah, I think the big thing with this lobby so far is a lot of these teams, almost like they have these preconceived notions about, you know, what are the best positionings for Surge, and not necessarily being proactive and reacting to the way the lobby's actually playing out, right? And I think that's what's hindering a lot of people. I've seen people from all sides of the map, you know, making these crazy rotations into specific positions that they think will be more profitable for Surge, and it hasn't quite worked out. I do also want to say, right, the Lootwood trio, 4 games in a row now, they've gone down off spawn at Boney Burbs. At what point do you go, actually, I do want to play in the FNCS finals. I probably shouldn't be contesting, especially Shayo, when there's actually places on the map uncontested because players are being removed from the lobby. It makes no sense to me, but I have to just move on with that, I guess.
No. It makes sense to me though. It's kind of like a hyperbolic time chamber or a time chamber type beat, right? They're taking all that loss, saving up the negative energy, and in the last game, Levin, I'm telling you, it'll be a Loot Boy victory royale. It's all about the cinematic storytelling. It's for the YouTube video.
The maddest thing is we literally saw that last season, which is why like, I can believe it. Like we saw a team in Catty Corner literally lose, 3 out of 3 games. The 4th one is when they won the game. And maybe that's what the Loot Boys are relying on. I highly doubt it though. I highly doubt it. It's been tragic for them out of Boney Burbs. And typically it's been weird. A lot of the Boney Burbs teams throughout the seasons have been good on Surge, right? I think we've seen teams maybe not necessarily struggle. I know in Heat 1, right, Aqua's had their troubles. But a similar thing on here, I think, in Heat 2, a lot of these teams maybe out of Boney have been struggling with Surge, and it's been a problem for them. We're seeing Dan's team here, who look like they've been struggling a bit, now up to 298, which is going to be good for them moving forward. I think the worrying thing for me is just a lot of the same old issues for these teams as we hit game 4, right? Not many adjustments being made to put teams in the best position to be able to win and get to the final.
And you can see now that Storm Surge damage, they were able to put themselves above, but you kind of got to peek out a little bit there. Right now, Loki being taken down, Dan just trying to pull him back over. They do have plenty of space, but there's also a lot of wooden builds around here, and you need to be careful that some Fireflies don't just end up being chucked through or somebody decides to just blow up a car right on next to it. However, it looks like Dan is going to be able to stick this revive. They got enough damage, so a little bit of a safe passage through that first Storm Surge check, but we're going to have to keep an eye on him when we get to the second one. Lawson getting the confirmation there onto Destiny Boom, and I believe that's Snappy up in the other corner there, or Snapify, and that's going to turn off Storm Surge 70 players. 24 trios still remaining as we have third zone pulling pretty much just a little bit southwest of Weeping Woods.
It's funny, Sundown, right? I feel like we've seen this zone in this heat like 4 games. Like I do feel like we've watched this zone play out so many times. And the funniest thing is, once again, talking about adjustments, how will these teams react to that? You know what happened last game? You know what happened in the game before that? Can you now bounce back and change things?
I think for Wolfie here, the adjustment is just about, how do you even adjust the, who was it? Trulex coming in from the right side of zone and just Goomba stomping on his head? There is no adjustment for that. He has to get an operation, get one of his eyes in the back of his head. If that's even possible with the game code, I'm not sure, but there's some things you just can't do. Tracking solo players trying to clutch is one of the toughest things in the end game.
I think Wolfie is one of those players who generally doesn't get enough credit for how fantastically he has played. His solo impact score, the amount of eliminations that he's able to make for his team with little to no assistance. Like, he's one of those players where when given room to operate, is able to pick those up. But the flip side of that is when you're the first one who's kind of at the front of those boxes, the one who's going to be taking those fights, like, you're putting a ton of pressure on yourself, like we talked about with Hen and these other players who need to be clutching up in those circumstances. Well, when one of the best players in the game comes flying down and is just throwing pump shots like they have nothing left to lose, because they don't, you can't afford to get hit in that situation. Like, if Wolfies doesn't end up taking that shot, then they walk as a trio into the full end game and they get one more opportunity to win a game, where we already saw that Wolfies was a part of one of those crazy 1v1v1s, 1x5 situations, and he's more than capable of winning those. So, I mean, you've basically gotten 2 shots so far in the first 6 games with only really this one and 2 more to go. Like, how many more opportunities are you really going to get?
So Sundown, they've come 4th every game. They have gotten so close in every game. They've gotten 4th every game. Unless I'm missing something and there was a bit of a mistake there. I believe they've actually gotten 4th every single game so far. So look, if they aren't able to eventually get the victory out, it's going to be heartbreaking.
Now look over, see things from the perspective. Reverse guard head and Trulex. I'm not sure what the issue is overall today, because things are looking good for these guys when moving zone starts. They look good when it's half and half overall as well. They end up just getting split apart as a team. Trulex actually going down to a beam, it looks like, inside these builds. Maybe it's the fact that they're playing a little bit edge zone overall, the fact that they might be rotating in from a long spot. Usually when I'm watching Hen having, or at least Trulex actually, when I'm watching him with some of the old guard he was playing with, having control of a zone or a higher portion of half and half is the way he was setting up his games for success.
I mean, they need to get in a situation where they can make plays. We've talked about them as a trio. Like, what is their enabling factor? Well, it's being able to put somebody in that situation to clutch. However, you need to get there first, and they haven't been executing on it. And frankly, as you noted, like, I would rather see them playing center zone. Like, that's when Hen was doing incredibly well. That's when Trulex was able to really get a part of those conversations. And I would say even Refsguard is not somebody who necessarily thrives in being able to create space in those edge zone type situations. And right now, Shia, the Storm's running on the right-hand side is super important, because when that zone closes in 45 seconds, there's going to be 7 trios under pressure right now. Now just 6 trios, as 18 players will need to be threatened.
Yeah, that's the majority, a big chunk of that lobby, and Rescar's already getting to work with it, fighting off against Erikin, taking out another trio who's just there, it looks like, on the side, so that's gonna be huge for them so far. Flick Swag, Pablo Wingo have a really good base to basically block off any lines of sight from people above them and take away a lot of tags on people below, but they'll choose to actually look up and drop down a player or two if they can set up the trap, but everyone kind of realizes what's going down and what's happening. 161 below, they're in trouble, so if this trap doesn't work out, they have to do something somewhere. There's so many people here right now around them. They're just above them. There's really no one below. They're forced to just shoot at hard mats fully built. This is going to be tough, and I feel like Storm Surge will be the reason they're not going to see the end of this game.
Yeah, that's something they struggled with, and it's something they're going to continue to struggle with here. Not much experience out of Stealthy. They've been getting stuck in these really awkward engagements there early on in the games as well. And you can see the product of it here. Really just desperation. And I think desperation is a word that you could use to describe a lot of these teams. You can just see the madness, all these players going down. And now it's only a matter of time until Swag has to head right back to the lobby along with Pablo and Flick. They need to figure things out going into the final 2 games. It's been tragic thus far, and it's been tragic for a lot of these teams. It feels like the KPI boys you can see up there, they're struggling themselves. Resguard now barely above.
See the movement go out past that. Might be barely above, but at least they're working as a team. That's what I like to see. In terms of getting one person set up, it starts off with everyone being on the same page. Refsguard really pointing out any build they can shoot at, but every team understands the pressure right now with 5 people having to go down, 2 above, barely keeping their forehead above water right now. Everyone knows to just invest in these hard mats, make their bases as strong as possible, stay tightly knit, don't expand out too much. And if there is one wall being shot at, get your teammate to hold it with you. Now just 9 above. This is just stress. They're not sure if they're going to get struck again. As soon as it happens, that lightning plays at a very certain time frame. So if you are below for a millisecond and you're off beat and the lightning's striking, you will get hit and not expect it.
It's all good and well trying to, use your hard bats now in order to keep yourself in the game, but then repositioning yourself to be able to get refreshes to get them back, because they are so crucial for these teams later on. And that's what we're seeing right now. A beautiful shot there from Refsguard. They've lost 10 in the process, but this is going to pay off a lot. They can probably get a res and move forward now. That's what they needed, right? Refreshes at this stage in the game are key for them if they want to have any success and any chance of playing in the final tomorrow.
I like that patience, though, from Refsguard to have a free shot available, a full beam, 7 bullets put into a body, instead shoots the ramp, puts the pyramid down, and then traps 2 players in there. That's just huge.
Can see they're flying quick stat on the left-hand side. Heine's trio winners of Game 3 are going to their first FNCS finals together. We've talked about it, how 85 players are trying to make their way through. What a better way to do it than pick up one of those victory royales. And I highly recommend go check out social media, find these players who end up winning the matches, whether Twitter, Instagram, doesn't matter the platform. Check their videos out on YouTube. The reactions are priceless. There's nothing better than to hear these comms and hear those end game celebrations and the amount of raw emotion that comes to it. And it only gets that much more exciting as we get down to it, with only the 3 matches remaining, the winner here and then 2 more to book their tickets in. Hey, they'll be playing tomorrow.
2 is the operating number right now. Only 2 players up for racks. This trio, 200 damage below as well. Was 202 a moment ago, but this is going to be trouble. Yeah, they got to live with 1 teammate down, but they'll be putting down the pressure as well. 8 seconds still. That surge starts to strike. Tutak going down to the feet as well. Frizzy picking up Xerox. Not too much action going on every layer. I think everyone's getting ready, getting desperate for the surge spot to start. And now the Harpoon tech will find the box with no player inside it. Having to break brick builds is not something this team is planning to do. They'll go around and make sure things are fine. Up top, though, a clash of Titans, Tenzin and Chulex going head-to-head with each other. Refscard and Hen want to take control of the game. Hen's actually in the same box as Tenzin, going for a box fight, and he's going to force him all the way down, blocked by a box, almost just trapped like a flopper in here, so far away from the water down below. Tenzin's going to be forced down. He looks like a solo. That's how far this team up top has separated the trio that's contesting them. Finally finds his teammates. They can catch a little bit of a chance to breathe and have Peppers to go back forward if they choose to.
And right now, the Pepper allowing him to have that bonus move speed to be able to catch up with the zone, pulling straight out over the water is going to tax so many of the resources. You can see down on the low ground, the chop coming through. Refscard going down on the backside of the zone. Hen trying to go up, trading shots with Tenzin, but Tenzin slapping down the guild member. Hen going to be able to trade a little bit of it back. You can see desperately trying to win that fight on the backside of the zone, but he's all by himself. And we talked about it. The individual players, the keys to success, and he drops down and gets taken out, runs out of the resource, and Hen will try to fight again in match number 5, but Wadzi, Tenzin, and Karote have taken away the high ground. You can see the floppers, you see the shields, potentially looking to set up for the heal as they fight again for this high ground. Karote ends up taking a ton of damage, but does back the player off. He is the one with the floppers, and honestly, at that point, I think you need to drop that along. No, instead, going to end up popping it, takes the shields as well, and looking for a little bit of space as they get some room to breathe, but no more materials on Karote. What do Tenzin and Wadzi have as they continue to build out? Here comes another challenge.
I like the fact that they all just look at Booback, 3 people at the same time, but it's definitely a distraction. Ram floor wall all the way up to the top and find out Wadzi on this left side. Karot now trying to do something to just salvage the situation, but has no mats to work with. A launch pad there, but he can't place it anywhere. He's trying to find a little bit of a map of a labyrinth inside, but no, there's not going to be a chance for him to actually keep Tenzin up. No, Tenzin also survives, finds a big shot, now down to 3 HP. He has a few mats. He's trapped up in high water. Can Tenzin build for him? No. 1 second. He's ticked out. Tenzin goes down 2, and now it's Bra Warrior up top who has control.
Why wouldn't you place a launch pad? He ran out, he waterfalled down, and instead of having the blast switch, doesn't matter right now. We'll go back to the VR play as Loki just tries to drop somebody down. We have a 3v3v2 right now. You can see Loki, Dan end up going down. Loki also going down. There's only the trio up on the high ground, just raining shots. Notice a duo up there as we're going to end up having a 2v2. The trio was on the low ground. Bra Warrior and Dids trying to end up finding it right now. It will come down to a 2v1. Dids with 7 elims. Can he end up making it 8? Tilted goes down. They have the cabbages, just leaving the player. Numb is eating the cabbages, looking for some space, but he's going to be Numb. Gets the launch pad, going forward to the zone. Will end up finding it, but misplaces himself. Bra Warrior and Dids, 12 eliminations to combine. Congratulations. They'll be booking their spot into the finals there after Heat 2, Match 4 Victory Royale.
It's mad, guys, because I think after even seeing another team being able to join the finals, all I can think of on my mind is how Tenzin's trio didn't manage to do it. You look at that, and it's one of these things, I hate to be that guy to just want to overanalyze and stuff. We're still in the moment, but you got to do better, guys. Going into these final 2 games, they really need to keep these things in mind. The small things are the difference right now if you want to be playing in the final.
And the pressure's ramping up. A crazy game there. It kind of felt like at the end, the scraps were picked up. We have another one to dive into, and this time it's going to be the next heat to look at. Heat number 1, game 5 out of 6 rolling in. I mean, Reese, this is going to be a crazy one to watch. Now people are understanding they barely have any time left to make those finals.
Yeah, the last couple games when things are coming down to the wire. If you've not won a game now, the tension starts to build. This is your last opportunity, your second last opportunity to be able to punch a ticket through to the finals. And some of our top teams like Mongrel, Joe, and Vino that we're seeing in your top right, Red Rush, Mappy, and Exteriors in the bottom right, Aqua's team who we've seen repeatedly throughout today as well. Some of the huge names that we're used to seeing in a final situation, not all of them can make it in the last 2 games.
Like you said, 2 games to go per heat. 8 matches have been played. 8 victory royales, 8 tickets, a punch to that final, which kicks off tomorrow. But I mean, you still got 2 more chances if you're any of these trios who is competing. And honestly, it makes it feel a little bit better. But at the same side, that's a lot of Fortnite to be playing. If you are able to then pick up one of those VRs, you're looking at around 17, 18 games to play all the way through 5th and 6th year. So really have to be buckling down, working together, and trying to figure out a game plan. And right now, the loot looks okay for Steelers, Red Rush, and Mappy, but plenty of shields to be able to trade out. You can see them making sure they have the big pots on all the players, got a decently far pull to be able to rotating and just trying to kind of get together right now.
And for the rest of the teammates, like, they still have tons of ammo. I think that's really, really important. Every single individual member has 300 AR ammo by themselves. So, like, they have a ton of spray power. Them sitting down on the south side of the map, usually coming from sludgy swamps, it's like they have a difficult time getting in damage, getting in shots on players, but at least they have a back amount to hold up to with that AR ammo. And obviously they have a ton of shields at the same time. Like, you know, we saw all of the big pots going through the inventory. They have 8 big pots amongst them. They have all those big mushrooms as well, like the large shield mushrooms. So many shields in their inventory. So it's like they can afford to trade a little bit for Surge if they need it.
The thing is, though, you know, even with those big pots in hand, when mistakes happen, when they're actually going for the big trades with Surge, teammates are falling down, and they're kind of like all-in situations. So even with all the shields in the world, I don't really see any team taking that much damage on these types of Surge trades in the second, third zone. When we go to that fourth, fifth one, I just feel like sometimes it's an overstep. I mean, we've talked about it so much from Aqua CRFS Roki's standpoint, but even Red Rush's team sometimes is biting off a little bit more than they can chew. Every time they kind of leave themselves open for a trade, Red Rush is the one getting super knocked. You know, last time they had a very nice 3v3, but 2 teammates going down that late in the game, it's tough.
And not only are they biting off more than they can chew, they're doing it without a glass of water nearby, you know, or anybody nearby to potentially give them that Heimlich if they do end up, you know, kind of needing a little bit of assistance. Like, always have a little bit of a fallback plan there, right? Like, it seems like it's just like, oh, okay, well, if our player's hanging out there, like, we at least know how to disengage. Like, some of these players, like, yeah, you might get knocked if 2 or 3 trios are looking at you right away. But even if you get knocked when trading Surge tags, in this meta, I feel like there's no real excuse for not being able to at least fight off a push and be able to get up a revive. Great trades coming out from PM Ugrchik there to just kind of pull up for a half second, somebody trying to trade the shots out. And each one of those 38 tags really does add up. You can see CL Fury in the top right trying to trade some shots. And as I say that, though, Ugrchik needs to be careful. Ended up taking a solid amount of damage there in the bottom right-hand side, but then also going to be able to trade out. You don't generally want to be kind of popping shots from the low ground there unless you have 3 of your sides covered, because somebody somewhere on the map is going to have a beat on you. But as I say that, I mean, he's doing a fantastic job of trading these shots out.
What's interesting is the all-mag sniper use. At the start of the season, so many players were sitting going, you know, how hard is it to get Storm Surge without like a full headshot snipe, these kind of things. And so many players towards that first qualifier weren't utilizing this for Surge. Now every single team we're watching has 1 or 2 of these all-mag snipers in their inventory because they finally realized the power that it can do to just absolutely chunk teams. Like, we've seen 200 O's when Triple Sprays come out with it so far across the last few days. Like, it is seriously strong.
Very much so. And thing is, though, no matter what happens now, I feel like we've had this discussion about these teams that they've kind of figured out their mistakes in the second, third zone overall. Free Siberia Link, sometimes a little bit low on Surge, they're still looking fine. It's what ends up happening for the fourth, fifth. And a lot of the times when we talk about mistakes inside the half and half, inside the fourth, it's all because of the positional decisions people are making inside the second and third zone. Is this the best spot to be in for Siberia, Fury, and Link? I mean, they can't really move anywhere else. We're always talking about Central being one of the best spots. With the loadout they have, they can't afford to take a little bit of zone damage with those splashes. Probably moving in with that launch pad as well. I just don't know what these teams need to do to really start to get ahead, because it seems like it's one bad decision into a full trio wipe, and then it's all done.
And I mean, right now, I was just about to say, I really wish Jake would at least put on some form of minis there, because you don't want to end up in a circumstance where you're using chug splashes for anything but shields, right? If you have to use those for white HP, that's really rough. You want to be saving those towards the end of the game, or at least where you're able to top off everyone at once. But however, it was able to kind of adjust that, as the observers are going to give us a decent lay of the land, kind of show us the positioning, who's where. Don't forget, we are in third circle going into fourth. This will be the last one that's completely inside the safe zone. Additionally, because we've removed 4 trios so far and how aggressive the early drops are coming off, these teams haven't seen Storm Surge yet. So things are going to get a little funky here, as the Storm Surge warning should end up coming through.
Yeah, we just saw Mongrel's team actually situated up on top of the Believers Beach Hotel. They were actually end up switching up the drop spots landing there.
Okay. And a big shot does come in on the Vovi side. A lot of switch drops here and there for a lot of teams, but sometimes it's all about landing those shots all the way towards the fights when they matter to keep the team alive.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know absolutely anything about landing shots, so you would be telling me there. I just ended up being like, oh, well, you found me, I'm eliminated. However, when you're the best of the best in Europe, you have to be able to hit the shots, whether it is the pump or the AR. And when you get all the way up to the top, the Thomas HTA, the ones throwing out the projectile weapons and throwing out a quick stat on the left-hand side, only previous finalists have won games thus far in Heat 1. So that experience really coming through. And again, I know I've talked about the top of the show, but with 85 players trying to make their first final appearance, it's really difficult to kind of get in the mentality to be able to win a game when there is so much experience on all of the other trios. We're going to keep an eye in that top left-hand corner to see who ends up getting knocked down here, as we will have Storm Surge coming through, and it's going to impact 5 or 6 of these trios very quickly.
Yeah, Red Rush
is a dangerous spot. Very dangerous spot for Red Rush here, Reese. This is where they end up getting those mistakes dealt towards them. Ends up going really bad in these box fights. If one of these guys goes down, that's big bad trouble.
Big bad trouble for them indeed. They've got big chunks off, but hold on. Red Rush are getting traded back, but they're going to win that fight straight out. And we keep seeing these guys taking these mid-game engagements, but, you know, unlike some of the other teams we've been watching, they've been relatively successful with it so far. So not a bad decision to go for that aggressive push when they know they've got the advantage, because they know they have the other players knocked. So it's a good time to push on in.
If you haven't noticed, too, a little bit of remodeling over at Believer Beach. There's usually a really big hotel over here. It's still connected over by a few builds on the left. They have to take them all out. It's held up by metal, so I don't think the full chop's gonna come through just yet. Defend is trying, Swifty's down, so they have to get creative with it. Have to have an impact that's equivalent to 3 players with just 2. You have to think outside the box with so many boxes up. It's not gonna be possible. Dropping down a little bit, double layered up, and the speed is too much to keep up with. Cade, they tried, did not conquer though. Unfortunate, the hotel is still thriving.
And Zone's not even here. Zone's pulled Max down to the southeast from Augustine, trying to hold this. Hold on, they're getting into an engagement up here though.
Yeah, but this is a gift. This is a gift. The opposing team is the one team is below surge, the 100 plus below. Mongo and Co are literally getting a refresh for nothing. They will get all of those mats. They have secondary high ground control. They're going to be able to go late. They did enough damage. Bloom is desperately going to try and get through the shields and do something, but the reality of the situation, Storm Surge turns off. This is a 3v1. Mongo and Co, they're going to clean that up. They're in a great position now because everyone else has rotated. As long as they make it there, this could be their game.
Yeah, that's not just a clean position. They didn't just clean that up. They're looking spotless now. Shiny, completely polished. A free launch pad to get all the way in the zone. All those mats they invested to for that hotel, for the rebuild to hold it up, have been brought back into their inventory. That is the best case scenario for the team. If they don't win off of this, a big mistake should have happened. Maybe it's a max zone pull that trips them up here in the half and half. They're set up for success, though. I really wonder how far they can take it.
And Geds and Q-Roll are down. Get like 2 of the biggest players in Heat 1 in terms of like those individuals shake them up, the ones who have been making those huge plays as gets confirmed. So if anything, I think there's a little bit more room now for these full trios to make the plays and just win a game out traditionally, Reese.
Yeah, no, look, for Bandit's team, like, they're already sitting on the high ground. Notice they're already marking where they want to go if that zone pulls that way. But if the zone pulls the opposite way, look who has already claimed Aqua for Strokey CRR. We've seen this in the previous match, and I don't want it to go badly. They've pulled the first zone, they've got the RNG, but remember, everyone's going to pad, everyone's going to launch, everyone's going to look up, everyone's going to spray. This has to be where the focus is right now, because every single team wants the layer that they're on.
Oh man, right now, the air feels a little bit more ominous. The clouds are kind of a little bit overcast on this side of high ground. I feel like Aqua, CR, Fast Roki have had enough of flipping up a little bit, of tripping every time they have control of a high ground spot. They're ready to really secure this all the way in, but look at what they have to deal with, an entire lobby that's flying. They might have zone right now, but they have to hold on to it and maybe even take it again as things move. Everyone's going for low ground and no one's really immediately basing up, so things are still fairly quiet. They hit that launch too. I like the fact they're not going to overextend and just branch things out. They're going to go land on the next portion of zone and keep control of high ground.
That was so good. That was so fantastic. CRR doing a great job of immediately about facing and making sure nobody came through, but they timed their launch pad well enough to go connect and know where the high ground was in the zone. CRR looking all the way up in the sky, trying to pixel hunt, but you can see committing through now to the metal, making sure nobody's gonna be able to come, but the chop comes through. Did they commit out too far? They will be able to rescue it, but CRR might end up being the price as Mongo on the front side of the zone does end up going down. We're gonna swing over the low ground as Sai gets picked up. Flixie Jesus trying to find a little bit of room to operate. 50 builds, but no shields. He will get one mini on, trying to get the second one on. We have 45 players remaining, but I mean, that Storm Surge is going to hit, and it's going to be fast and furious as so many players will need to go down. Here comes the damage.
The Shadow Hoppers are still all the way up in the sky. I want to see height real quick as Mongrel finally gets confirmed. Blixie's going to have to try to do something miraculous to find the damage here. Even that entire pistol magazine is not going to be about 400 so far. He's landing a few shots. He has to get 3 times that, though. This is going to be unfortunate. Ristretto going down. Jay taking out Fury. Who was that team flying high in the sky, distracting Aqua all the way on height? I need to know. They still have control of it, though. There might be no CRR. No, CRR's up 2. And he gets 1 siphon. And he gets 2. He's still living, has a half pad to catch up with the team. It's Night Tick that goes down 4 seconds and he's alive. They have a chance to stay on height. They do the impossible, block off a huge shot, 2 chops as well, and they still maintain control.
2 chops, 3 ghost shadows trying to come from the back of the zone, but CRR, a 4th chop, but they reconnect and they still have the builds because of the refresh that CRR got back. The fact that he was able to then stagger his siphons. They're holding on, 30 seconds left in the 8th zone, and you have to think this will be it, but another challenge comes out and the hero gets taken down, ripped apart. CRR goes down, and that's Midas rocking his signature outfit, trying to take it away. The duo World Cup champ Aqua says, don't worry, CRR, you got us here. We will do the rest. Him and Fastroki desperately trying to hold on, but we talked about all the chops, and he's out of builds. There's no more builds. It'll be a run at the backside of the zone, and Fastroki is down. He needs to find Mats. He takes the fall damage, 47 HP, 7 shields, 54 HP, and a dream total. 3 eliminations for Aqua, but with 12 players in 1 more game after this holding on, you feel like this is his best chance. Fastroki gets confirmed. Melody gets Joe. With no builds, he drops down looking for anything. Can he find the elim? But it's patience and some builds.
So many chops survived. He's running on fumes inside the storm. Is that it slightly sluggish? His shot's still ready to go. It's got to be a big one. Aqua needs something miraculous to stay inside this game. Has a spot to hide with. Chooses to go with the charge. Rattles it up. Blocks off. Jumps in the box. A 78. Huge to keep the dream alive. 4 eliminations. And he's looking for the win. 2 teams to take out as a solo player. Can this man take his team straight to the FNCS finals? Odds against them. Every single box will be a situation he knows nothing about. On the mid-ground map, below him, a full trio right above. He goes all the way towards the top. He's going for the big challenge, 1v3 inside the box. Doesn't land a shot. Reversal. It's not possible. Aqua taken out in 3rd place.
Exteriors and Mappy on the low ground, just getting ripped apart. Mappy pieces back out in the zone. He says, I got chug splashes, and I'm praying that somebody else has something. Trying to get a little bit of minis on, has the mushrooms, but he's been found out. Trying to dip, trying to dodge, but he can't find any respite. And with 8 eliminations, EQZ Gold, it's Ping, FNZ, and Vanya. K3KK take Heat 1, Game 5, and everyone else in Heat 1 will have 1 more shot to punch a ticket to the dance.
Almost exactly the same what happened to the last game in terms of Aqua's team, right? They were up. It looked like it was going so well, but chop after chop, player after player, disruption after disruption, turnover, left, right, and center, up on high ground. They did such a good job maintaining it all that time. But like, Pink's team just took advantage of the fact that that's such a mess. And so far, we keep seeing no heal-offs, the teams who play it out on that low and mid-ground, taking height late and winning the game from there now is clearly the strategy that's been working out. Who's going to adapt in the final match?
And that final match, too, only 1 team can pass through. So many of our heroes won't be here in the FNCS finals in that heat. Still another one to catch up with, though. Levin's back to show us exactly what's going on in heat number 2. Lots of big names that still need to go by. Levin, I mean, based off of that last game from the other heat we're watching, things are finally getting super intense towards the end.
Yeah, I think we're going to start to see a lot more desperation from certain teams. I think this is one of the few games where we've had a North zone. And so maybe that is the kickstart some of the teams, you know, needed in order to have the kind of games they want. When it comes to adjustments, we've talked about these adjustments. We've talked about what needs to change moving forward, right? We've talked about, you know, potentially players not going for height so early. It's just way too hard to hold over the course of a moving zone or full endgame. You know, things like actual surge positioning, how aggressive you are, the timings you're taking. These are the things I want to see improvements in from a lot of these teams. one thing that hasn't changed, sadly, the Loot Boy trio once again deciding, look, we're just gonna go Boney Burbs, and they're going down. I don't understand it. Somebody needs to explain it to me, please. You know, contact me on any social media and explain to me why they're continuing to contest. It's not worked out. I just don't get it.
I have the answer. It's not game 6. It's game 5.
Okay.
We're chilling. Wait till the last game.
No, but Shai, these fights are so quick. It's not like you know, a standoff of any. It's just, yep, you land, you go down, back to the lobby. I can't make any sense of it at all. I don't think they've gotten a knock the whole time. Like I genuinely don't think they've gotten one knock in all 4 or 5 games or whatever it's been so far.
I mean, the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But we've seen some of these Fortnite players. I mean, we talk about it. You got to collect nuts and bolts to try and get those side grades in order to get the charge shotgun out here. You'd figure they'd have some extra ones to be able to occasionally rub together and create some brain cells. However, it's tough. Like, we've seen it going over there. I mean, it's just when it comes to tournament management and having to be able to win a game, like I go back to the NA West example, right? When we saw just literally 50-50 over at Cadity for qualifier after qualifier. But when you have to win a match, if the same thing hasn't worked over and over again, there's so much space on the map, particularly in this format, guys, right? There's so much room with the trios being knocked out. There's only 25 trios. There's more than 25 landing spots to get geared.
And I know we haven't been able to see some of the earlier game, Sundown, but you're so correct. When you're watching the earlier phases of the game in these lobbies, you really feel the impact of less players being in the lobby, right? Teams operating with much more space, teams splitting a bit more, right? Being able to cover more zones and areas of the map. And it's actually made it harder for certain teams who maybe want to get aggressive for Surge, right? Because, you know, you're almost in a position where you're having to cover so much more ground than usual to get to certain areas. And I think it's sort of, you know, off-put certain timings teams maybe have in their mind. And so, you know, as much as you might think less teams, less threats, right? It's not as easy as that, right? It's a very complex situation to be in. And so I understand some of the struggles of these teams, but you know, sort of like you guys have said, after a couple games, you've got to really have sort of figured it out at this level.
And I would say in particular, too, it's real easy to say that sitting from here from an analytical perspective where we're able to pull up the entire map and say, well, why don't you just go here? But also, like, it's worth kind of like going in, checking out the replay, seeing where teams are dropping, seeing where the teams who won were beat, like find where that empty space is. But at the same time, right, like we've talked about this before, this is the biggest event. The amount of pressure on the IGLs and on this teams. And yes, you have to be doing everything right, but every other trio is also trying to do everything right. So, like, yes, while we're going to sit and pick it apart and say you could have done XYZ type of thing better, you have to also remember that this is the biggest region in the world when it comes to Fortnite. You have the most and some of the best players going up against it. And when you need to grind out a win and you've played so many games all the way down to those final moments, it's really difficult. Like, props to all of these guys to be able to do it, and props to put up with us kind of sitting here and critiquing and breaking down every little thing.
Of course, and look, the critiquing don't stop because of that, right? We will continue to critique, don't get me wrong.
To be clear.
But, to be clear, but look, you know, we're not even factoring in, you know, the ego aspect of it, Sunday, right? Because, you know, you have these, you know, players, these leaders who, you know, maybe you've done your preparation, you've done your planning, you know, you're going to stick to your game plan. You believe in what you've prepared for, right? And so I can understand why we've maybe seen some stubbornness from certain teams, right? Where they are just sticking to it because, you know, part of them does believe that, you know, at a certain stage, it's going to work out for them. So, you know, this is something that at the highest level, there's so many variables that go into what makes a team successful. And an environment like this where it's just all about getting the one win, oh man, it just provides for so many of these fun little angles for us to explore.
Yeah, even going to like a smaller portion inside that environment, right? That ideology of doing our own thing until it works gets challenged when there's just about 2 games left. That's where, you know, you're talking about all this desperation. That's where it comes from, because that's when they start to question, okay, maybe I am wrong, or maybe I am being a little bit too stubborn. Where do you go from there though, right? When you're in that stubborn mentality, you're not looking to learn from the last experience. You're just going to force your ideals again in the next game. So once these guys reach game 5, game 6, it gets really tough. Some of the decisions might be even more questionable. At the same time, you might get more surprises from teams you wouldn't expect the greatest from.
One of the most important life skills, whether you're talking about gaming, whether you are talking about relationships, whether you're talking about friends, whether you're talking about work or conflict, or even positive moments, is learning how to let go. Knowing how to experience one of those motions, knowing how to process it, but knowing when you need to be able to move on from that moment and go to the thing that works next. Because it might be, yes, you're in a moment of absolute pure happiness, but you can't stay there forever because there's always something you need to be doing in order to improve on. Or if you're in a situation where you're incredibly frustrated and you feel like absolutely nothing is working, well, then look at what you have been doing and try and figure out something that'll enable you to progress and let go of those negative feelings and the things that have been putting you in that situation. It applies to Fortnite and it applies to so many other aspects, but you have to have the self-awareness. You have to be able to look inside and know that what I'm doing right now isn't the thing I need to be doing in order to find success in whatever one of those circumstances and when you're looking at such fine margins. At winning a match when you're among the best of the best players in Fortnite, it's so incredibly difficult to kind of take that moment, reevaluate your game plan, and then make the right decision. That's what makes the celebrations from each one of these trios just that much more rewarding when you do see it, because you know they went through and they were able to overcome those moments. As you can see right now, Weepow, Panic, and Snipe looking for a little bit of room here and trying to find some space on a very packed in southern side of the zone. Like, my lord, might as well open up a bed and breakfast here.
Philosopher Sundown in the building, about to make me, do a bit of self-reflection, change career paths, move crazy. I don't know what's going on here, but look, the insight is brilliant, right? And a lot of truth to what you're saying there. These are the kind of moments that I think players will look back on, and you almost forget the struggle, right? Maybe if you do get in this 5th and 6th game, right, you forget the struggle of the other games because it's all been made worth it. Look, Snipe, these guys are well above on Surge, and that's not a position many of the players in the lobby have been able to experience, right? And so that's something to observe, something to watch out for, how they now use this moving forward, because just being able to get into a top 5 isn't enough. At the end of the day, you have to be able to push that extra mile, and 700 above, I think they're going to be able to capitalize on all these teams in shambles around them, right? But they don't want to overextend, get too zealous, because then they could catch themselves out.
Why are they still fighting? Why not just launch and get away? Everyone here is focused box to box. Even High Ground's not fighting. A big harpoon in, 2 of them down, 800 damage above, and you're in a box fight and you go down. This is just insane.
Wolfie resuming to Frizzy, just kicked down the door, but I'm thinking the exact same thing you are, Shio. They're opening doors and floors and taking fights against teams. You hear the shield cracks coming through. You can hear them. We heard them. That's the only part of it that's visible. Why are you opening up and taking those fights? You see the tracers coming through on either side. It just blows my mind, but we talk about it sometimes. You're not able to really put all of that together when all the pressure is going on. In a normal game situation, that's fine. Picking up those elims would be super valuable, but you don't need that. You just need to stay in the game. And unfortunately, you end up on the wrong side of a team who has to push in for Surge. And it's Wolfie and Irazumi who have no problem hopping into your box and taking that fight. They'll say, thank you. We'll take the pass into the end game. 5th zone, moving circles, match number 5. We have 3 teams left to book a ticket to the final. We got this one and then one other in each heat. And right now, gentlemen, I'm going to ask who takes it home in this match? Who wins? Give me a call out right now.
I'm looking at Milwaukee with 800 damage above, not having to worry about Surge. I'm looking at Hen all the way up on height. I'm looking at multiple possibilities on a lot of layers. It's all about where the zone pulls. And it looks like it might even be good for High Ground. So Hen might have a big chance to roll in with over here. And they've had a little bit of struggle so far. No height control either. This has to be the game they pull through.
I'm going Zrox this trio. Zrox, I don't know. I just feel it. They've beasted the loot, boys. 5 games in a row. You got to win at some point. Not many players having the opportunity to deal with Surge so early in the game. You got to take advantage. It's got to be now.
They got to convert, and as we saw in that quick stat on the left-hand side, 8 of the 12 players in this heat who have been able to secure victory route are first-time finalists. So not only do you get the absolute elation and serotonin rush that comes with winning a Fortnite game, but it's one that puts you into that $1.3 million final, a chance to win that Axe of Champions, their first time competing among the absolute best of the best in what I would say is arguably the strongest region in Fortnite. Right now, you can see Hen trying to end up with a line here. This zone. Relatively short pull, actually. So a little bit less room to be able to navigate with and a little bit more time to make it from point A to point B, but still plenty of trios up on their feet. 5 will need to go down. You can see Hen, Trulix, and Refguard try and take stock, and they're going to Billy Goat in, be right on the side here. And a great about face from Hen as he gets a blop there from the burst.
Yeah, and right now, Fork is still all the way up top. We saw 2 games ago how lethal they were when they have control. Swaps does not want to give it up easily. He's going to challenge. Fork has to go down. Jimkey is not going to be alive for this end game, so it'll be a 2-man situation all the way up top, but the damage is not going to stop if he has a chance to land the shot. So he hits one for 75, stays alive inside that second height. 542 above. They have options here, Sundown, to do whatever they want to do.
We've seen at this stage in the game, so many of these teams all looking for height. The chaos at this stage gets crazy, right? And having that foresight, being able to position yourself to maybe capitalize on it once it's done is the most important thing. You can see Mwaka's trio there just below the short pad to maybe get out, right? Once again, we see a lover pool, which really makes things difficult for them on the material side of things. You can see PNK down to just wood, and at some point, a team's going to notice that, try pad up and take advantage. The mat's being passed on from his teammates, but still all this chaos going down, and you can see the pads come through.
There comes
Pablo going up above. They're trying to take height from themselves, and the shots will connect as well. They finally have height after 5 games at this stage, and now it's time to convert that into the Vic Roy.
Still 1 player left right in front of them. Swaps needs to go down for complete control. They understand where he is. Another feed healing to pick up. Meanwhile, Deoxy all the way at the bottom. Crow beside him is going to be operating as a full trio. Rax is there too to do the damage. Where does Swaps go? How does Height look? Flip, Pablo Wingo, and Swag all looking really good right now. There is a challenge though. Rax is here with Mini. Mini's silenced. Now on half HP. Pablo Wingo still has control, but the fight for Height is not done yet.
Blazin taking out Deoxy in the feed. Crow also going down. Blackie being picked up right after getting the knock onto Crow. So plenty of trades happening down the lower level, but we're focused on the height, on the high ground, because control there hasn't yet seen away. Flick has been doing most of the damage, but he loses all their shields, and now they're converting down to the low ground. You can see they don't have enough builds. They realize they can't run it up, but Trulix up on the high ground ends up taking out EIQ. You can see being forced to drop down. Huddy picks up Flick. Flick goes down and gets converted. It's all going to be on Swag and Wingu, but with no builds, they're looking to try and chop the high ground, and it's not yet coming through. There is a decent amount of connection, but not quite enough, as Huddy gets sent all the way down in the fall damage. Picks him up, but Pablo Wingo also goes down. It's Refsguard and Trulix with high ground towards the backside, but they don't have mats either. Refsguard desperately trying to just waterfall as far down as he can, but with only 7 builds, he's going to be able to see most of the control. It's a duo up on height. Is there a trio left in the stack? You can see him desperately trying to edit his teammate back up and rain the shots down. Second to last game here in heat number 2. 1 more trio after this will book the ticket, but the question is, can Falcon, Refsguard, Trulix carry Hen through after he did enough in the mid game?
The cost for height was Hen, and this time Refsguard has to show up. Oh my goodness.
No.
Is it fall damage that knocks him down? I'm not sure, but Trulix goes down at the same time. Unfortunate demise from high to low ground as Halfdom picks up the pieces that were left behind. Now it's up to them to finish the game. 4 teams in total. They've got the cabbages. It's all on the line.
It's on the line, but Mwaka's still up in that stack. You have on the low ground, you can see a full trio. Otherwise, it's a 2v2, v1, v3. Swaps is the solo there, trying to find a little bit of room. Zyper is dipping back out into the zone to deny anybody the siphon opportunity. Sapiro's up on the high ground with the cabbages. Should have the heal off, but he dipped out a little early and hasn't been eating enough cabbages. He needs to be careful about his timing here. Should be able to get him off. There they go. You can see, just tried to eat enough, but the question is, did he go too early? You can see Splash has some as well. The siphon comes through for Suzuku on the low ground. Sapiro's trying to find Splash. Splash, the cabbages have gone through, but Sapiro's goes down. Suzuku goes down and on. Splash takes it away, going to get it. Koralik, Splash, and Mwaka, after winning 2 matches yesterday, but not placing top 4, with 1 match to spare, secure their spot in the finals. And now, Levin, we go down. There's 1 match left in each heat. 2 more tickets, but what a game.
Look, the penultimate game of this heat did not disappoint. I'm very glad to see them make it through, because if they hadn't had won a game, it would have been everything, right? That's all anybody would be talking about, because to win 2 games yesterday and to barely be able to get the win now, wow, I'm so happy for them. I'm looking forward to seeing them in the finals. They are a threat to high ground as always. What a game.
you can really feel the passion now in these high ground takes and everything all the way towards the very end. These solo players surviving so long, and we've got one more game to see how far these players will put their hearts into just trying to qualify for EU's FNCS finals. Aqua, CRR, Fast Roki, Reese, you would not assume that this team would still be here inside day 2. They should have won a game so long ago, maybe in day 1 overall top 4, past that, any one of the 6 they've played so far. But now they have one more chance to wrap it in.
You'd expect they would have, but watching the gameplay, watching the mistakes that they've made, they could have been fixed. They could have won a game by now if they'd implemented some of the fixes that we've even talked about just watching over the matches from so far. So for them, like, this is the last opportunity to qualify. This is the only game that counts. Every single team in this lobby is basically eliminated once they're out. That's them done.
I feel like they've actually got a wrap on organized play now. I understand Aqua is taking a few shots as I say that, but towards the end game, they fixed these 4th, 5th zone edits. We just saw it in the last game they played. Now it's all about controlling the rest of the lobby. Aqua's really good at doing that in set lobby, final stages where it's cumulative points being involved. When you have passionate players doing whatever they can to win the game, just deciding we need to get height, but we don't know what we have to do once we hit that launch pad, that's crazy talk to try to control. Aqua, anyone, the best players will struggle against 4 teams battling for their spot near the sky. So I'm not sure if it'll have to be a strat switch. It'll never be when it's Aqua, CRR, Fast Roki. They'll hold that high ground. I'm just saying, for this last game, it's the most challenging to just control the whole time.
They just got to stay hip to hip in this situation. I mean, I feel like I sound like a broken record. They were much closer last game, but largely they were a lot closer because CRR made that incredible individual effort in the backside of the zone, right? Like, he got just a disgusting double knock, was able to time the siphons, get a refresh, and kind of continue them out together. But if they're able to just stay as 3, they don't end up in those situations where the chop comes through and then all 3 of them are separated. Because even if they get chopped, if they're hip to hip, the 3 of them are good enough to win that fight out. We just haven't seen that situation happen once. It's always either somebody is going down early and they're left as a duo, or when they end up getting chopped, they're so separated that then somebody ends up getting picked off and they're unable to reestablish control. And as Shayo ended up alluding to, a lot of that has to do with the fact that you have to, and I mean you have to, be executing control and working with your team the entire time.
Big thing too, though, right, is that they are kind of doing exactly what you're saying for a few of these chops. How many chops can you go through? The mental, the strain on the mats. They don't have an infinite pool. That was like 6 chops they lived through. Aqua is still winning fights. But once again, 9 teams to challenge. They're the only team fighting 9 teams head-to-head, winning. They just can't win that game. So, I mean, in this one, it'll be double that, I assume. Everyone will try whatever they can to win the game. It's going to be super tough, even if they have that control.
One of the things I'm interested in this game, actually, is the fact that Andon's team in particular switched up their drop spot to go back to Catty Corner, a place that they're very familiar dropping in, to get the peppers. They won it off spawn. They have the storm surge. They have the eliminations, and they will play a high ground. They will play high ground in this. They are 2 finished players in their team. I think maybe Trixie's a finished player too. I'm not sure. And known for strategies that are able to take height using shadow floppers and all these kind of things, revolutionized it. So I want to see some crazy hand in this game from them.
Those shadow floppers were one of the biggest things that didn't allow Aqua, CRR, and Fast Roki to have control. CRR completely distracted, sometimes talking about staying on the same page, being hip to hip, even with the biggest hips in the lobby. Those hips not even lying at any moment. CRR has to do something to address the floppers in the air. And at the same time, every team trying to just jump up to them like they don't care. It's impossible. It's a 7-10 split. You can't knock down both pins. And as a result, they're overwhelmed over and over again. Still, they're going for it. A high point inside Misty Meadows, a spot that should be slightly central. And as a result, they should have a favorable half and half out eventually when it does come through. They're going to be looking to be on the same page with the same plan as they put out every game. This is just going to be the biggest challenge they face so far.
So with 24 trios in the lobby, only 71 players total. Again, we talk about all the rooms, but we also talk about kind of that awkward storm surge threshold where, hey, a single player was eliminated, so you're not going to see that 3rd zone storm surge, right? And nobody wants to be eliminated at this point. There's no real reason to be fighting. So until we see that warning on the right-hand side, this is going to be the first time teams are going to get those checks. And I promise you, there's going to be a couple teams that are a couple hundred damage below the threshold. And that, while also having to rotate into the meadows where everyone is already set up. If you're both outside of the meadows and under Storm Surge in the final game, like, you have to get moving, and you have to get moving now in terms of converting on damage.
And what we've seen from Mongrel's team is they situated themselves up on this hill to the south very, very early, right? They were dropping in Believer's Beach, rotated almost the entire way of the map, super deep into the second zone, and now they actually have to rotate back up into the Misty Meadows at this moment. So they've spent a lot of time rotating. They focused on the power position, but I don't know how many tags they have. Based on the 120 AR ammo coming from that really powerful drop spot for ammo, that means they've at least been taking a lot of shots, but have they connected?
That is the big question. We talked a lot about strats and the mechanical portions of the game, the what people need to do. I want to go a little bit more so to the intimate portion, the emotions. And one of the most biggest wildcard trios still up, I believe, inside this lobby. If I see Mongrel, and if I'm not getting my heats confused, I also will be seeing Geds in this game.
Yes.
And if that is the thing, if these guys are still alive and they make it somewhere towards height, Sundown, we were watching them in these previous games, they affected like 4 teams around them. They have like an aura emitting from them that just does damage if someone comes near their box.
You know what's funny is you can't even land near them because they're landing on the Dinky Dish up near Steamy Stacks, and they're picking out players out the sky, pushing into Steamy Stacks. So it's not even just the end game that they're doing it. They're impacting players right at the start. They're taking fights in the mid game. They're going on height and end game. Like, they are a disruptive force to this lobby, and this game, I guarantee, will be no different.
So we just got the Storm Surge warning on the right-hand side. Yes, it updated 377 above. That first number lets you know what the farthest threshold was. 343 is a massive threshold to be all the way down at the bottom. If you're the team who has done the least amount of damage and you see that 343 come through, like, you're going and you're going right now. I'd love to see some of these teams who are underneath this threshold, because in the next 30 seconds, they have no choice but to full send. Their tournament is over otherwise, and we are going to see at least 5 trios be pushed, and they're going to be impacting all the trios around us. Show us those fights as we see Cade ends up eating a huge shot. That's Hycris trying to get the damage on the other side of it. Cade and Co. being forced back. Also, 143 below. They're going to be forced under as 4 trios will be pushed here. We did have 3 players go down in that first initial swing.
Aye, they're 143 below, but I kind of want to see a POV of some player just being 340 below. Just no damage so far throughout the whole game. Just a chaos of what they need to do. But I'm guessing Cade's team is one of the teams that has the least damage so far. They pulled that 5th zone, so if they're up on a high position, they could potentially get shots on players rotating. But the Surge is now active, which means the time's over, and Cade's is getting chunked back from the defensive box fight play.
A few packs thrown in the box. This is just trouble. 291 above, so they buy a little bit of time, but it costs them almost 2 teammates. They have a little bit to say in terms of Hycris' team and the way they play. It'll be trouble for them. No chance of Defender even staying alive. Nightstick will get picked back up. Hycris, another male force or maelstrom of a force inside this lobby, is going to be put on hold for the moment. Good for other teams. 16 below is Bobby Fish. He's seen him in low ground really active. Now caught a little bit outside of water. It's going to be tough for him to do that much. He has a max zone to pull and roll with here as well. T-Chips is used to being on high ground immediately. Once the zone moves, that opportunity will obviously not be here. He has to fly close to the sky while taking this damage from Surge. Missing the pad too. This is just down bad. This is just unfortunate. I'm not even sure he's going to get the land to play the game. 180. It used to be just one pump shotgun and needed to land. Now it's just trouble.
Yeah, he will have time to pop that mini, and then he needs to immediately either go find damage or start popping the big pot, because again, 25 damage every 5 seconds going through. You have plenty of time to get that mini, but the big pot is basically going to be near instantly negated. You can see Sanji desperately trying to get off a big pot as well. T-Chips and Bovi are down. They were the ones who ticked over the final Storm Surge, but you check the top left-hand corner, 50 players left, 19 trios. So Sanji trying to play a little bit of a spoiler. He does have that legendary charge shotgun, which has more than enough one-shot potential, but he's boxed up directly on top of the trio. We see Midas in the feed picking up Cyrus Swifty. That's the knock. He'll look to try and get the full confirm as we head in to the final end game in heat number 1. There is one more spot. $1.3 million on the line. 12 games. It kicks off tomorrow. We still have heat 2 after this, but this is it for heat 1. Will Mongrel be able to book a spot in the finals? Who will take the last opportunity to play for it all? The Axe of Champions, and with the best of the best in Europe. It all comes down to this, and we are pulling over the mountains into the canyon, away from the meadows.
Ending off the day, the same place we started it in heat number 1. Every team you see fall now are basically losing their chance to move over to those finals. It's do or don't right now in the final moments of game number 6. And Ari's the one who has high ground. It's so high as well that not any launch pad can really challenge it. 66 damage above. It needs to get a little bit more under the belt. Not sure exactly where Mark and Artist are for the moment, but you can find a way to get this triple pinch down from distance. Lots of different builds going through. Lots of launch pad opportunities to get the damage from. Lethal flyers in the sky. They have a chance to just split mats like that. What's going on? Where are the challengers? Maestro's up there. Not sure exactly where Aqua is for the moment. Red Rush all the way down below is going to be facing off against POIs on the same layer. Midas all the way towards the back is going up against Melody and so many more. No one's really challenging for height though. This is very different inside the heat with 17 teams. Red Rush is once again down. A member of the trio has to operate with just 2, has the damage above though, and Nightstick has also fallen. A trio that's so good at pressuring boxes. Everyone is already getting a little bit fragmented, and there's a big chop as Mongrel, Joe, and Vino really want to grab height. Siberia is also there in the conversation, maybe as a solo player. Ari is down. Mark has fallen. It's all up to Artist. Mongrel taken out in the feed, so he's the cost for Joe and Vino to have height. Everything is breaking down, and every single team alive is looking for a chance to survive.
And Vino up there fighting next, and Artur. You can see Fury, Siberia, Jake, and Link trying to come up, saying from Russia with love, here we come for game number 2, trying to fight off Artur.
Oh
Artur going straight to the sky. He says this might as well be the All-Star Showdown. Look how fast I-90. He rips it away, but we are so high up, but it doesn't matter because we're over one of the highest points on the map. And Link says, well, we're up too high, not getting chopped. He's going to launch pad and come straight down. We talk about the battle for height. Well, this is it. All the way at the top. Storm Surge turns off as we're inside, but Joe is still up on his feet. I haven't seen Vino go down either. Mongrel could potentially get carried all the way through the end. Ristretto, who has had an amazing individual heat, is also still up. We see now as the low ground has pulled across one of the highest points, and the zone is pulling off in a way. But Aqua, CRR, Frostroki, we talked about it, hip to hip, not challenging for height, playing for endgame. Aqua ends up picking up Amplify. They're staying together, trying to about face in the zone, finding 33 tech, finds the edit, picks up Ristretto. His tournament is over. Obito gets Podesai in the side. And one ends up picking up Styler. Victor ends their run as well with one loss, and Podesai getting confirmed. Link picks up Archer on the high ground, so you can see Link and Co still holding the high ground, but Aqua, he looks up, he has a launch pad. He says, boys, it's about time.
Drop the ego, keep the trio alive. That's the name of the game for Aqua.
Here they go. Here they go.
They're ready. They're hungry. Fast Roki moves first. Link and Siberia up top, but he takes a big shot all the way through. Link trying to break everything down, but it's not going to be enough. One of his teammates has already been taken out. Aqua is in control. Fast Roki is here to play. No one has gone down yet. Here we go. It's not a finals, but the best squad inside EU, and they're all alive here inside the last game. Fury, the last one left down below. There are no more trios left. This is Aqua's game to win. All they have to do is take out every other name. Cynek is alive in the low portion of the zone. They have mats. They have the ammunition, they have the power to take over, and that's exactly what they're going to do. High Chris now goes down on the teetering side of a mountain. This team stays high. Gods above the kings down below, and this is what they need to do now. Just take every single person out, drop down, put the pressure, the last moment, and it's a victory royale. Aqua, CRR, and Fast Roki make it to the FNCS finals.
Was there any doubt? Yes, a little bit, but towards the end of the games, they brought it back. They figured out, they evolved as the matches went through. They figured out the mistakes that they made early on. They stopped opening big edits. They stayed together. They stopped cycling high early. They learned that late high ground takes will manage to make it through, and now they punch their tickets through to the finals.
And just the timing was impeccable. We talked about picking their moment. They waited till everyone else had burned the resources. And then who else? The World Cup duo champ, FNCS winner, Aqua goes up 132, takes down Siberia Jake, immediately slaps down Link. And that's that.
I want to ask who's writing the script, because that was perfect. I mean, game 6, and it's Aqua, and it's just Heat 1. We have another one to do as well. Reese, thank you, man. That was a big breakdown. We'll have Levin coming in for the final for Heat number 2, game 6 out of 6. Let's do this one more time.
Can we top that, though? Like, can we really top
Once
the game?
more into the breach we go, and Levin, I have to ask. Actually, no, I don't have to ask, because I can look at the top left-hand corner and I can see 24 out of 24 teams and only one player has go down. So did they move for Bodie Burbs?
They finally moved. Like, it only took them all day, but they finally moved. And look, I don't know if we'll be able to top the game we just saw there, right? You know, how unreal is Aqua, CR for Strokey to do that in the way they did? But we got a lot of teams in this lobby who also are in a similar position where they're teams you expect to be playing in the finals, similar to how many people expect Aqua, CR, and for Strokey to be there. And so a lot on the line, a lot of desperation. I can't wait to see who's really going to step up when it matters the most.
I feel like I already saw the final game of this lobby. It was the last one we watched. Like so many big names trading height. How much more crazy can it get for heat number 2? There's so many names still left over. I mean, man, and the way this heat is also kind of fighting, they really last longer than some of the trios in heat number 1 when it comes to height. A lot of the times, I mean, we just saw that game, Aqua taking out the full trio. That doesn't happen in this heat. They take out maybe 1 or 2 players. There's still one left who wants revenge.
Yeah, definitely a bit more of an even playing field there when it comes to these battles on height, and it's made it so much more difficult.
I don't know if you guys have been keeping an eye on the top left corner, but that number has just literally been ping-ponging back and forth between 72 and 71 for like the entire time we've been in this game. So it's literally just like somebody getting knocked, somebody getting confirmed, reboot card coming through. And normally, hey, those elimination points would be awesome. But the reality of the situation is anytime you have to go back and be rebooting someone, like you have to refarm mats for them. You need to somehow find some form of weaponry to get over if you don't want them just sitting on a common pistol. So it's a little bit of rough, but right now we can see ZQ, Kiko, and Bubek decent loadout on their side, and ZQ actually really love this loadout. This is one of my favorite loadouts in the game. If you just swap the charges and look at the loadout, I rock like 90% of the time.
And that's why you're not a pro player.
Oh, come on. He's playing it. Let's go. Come on. I try my best, but he's right. I am just terrible when it comes to actual fight execution. Though I am glad the charge is back. That pushes my win rate up in fights from like 3% to like maybe like a hot 5%. Which is really nice if you think about it.
Yeah, that's actually pretty nice. I would happily take just any percent because I'm at a whopping 0. Look, in terms of these fights, right? In terms of the player count just sort of staying at this level for so long, I've really noticed that in some of the earlier engagements, right? Where typically you might see a team in a 2v1 situation, right? In these kind of lobbies, and they just will close it out, right? But players are playing incredibly safe, right? Making sure there's not even any chance for any mess ups, any mishaps, right? I've seen teams, disengage when they have, the advantage just to guarantee that they're in a position to really win things out. And it's just meant that players have been able to revive their teammates, reboot. And that's why the lobby is so high up right now.
And no one wants to give up at all. But that's not really where the real test happens. As soon as this half and half comes in, I mean, we can praise everyone for their positions, what they're doing. As soon as high ground's a thing and these zones starts to move, everyone starts to question their ability to really take control of the game. Is mid ground really where you want to be? I mean, so far, in terms of game 6 patterns, it's all about height. Whoever has that control, whoever's that full team really has all the cards on the table.
Well, I think it's a little bit more about being able to kind of keep your trio together and then know when to push it, right? Because we've seen trios with full height control, but knowing that at any point in time, if somebody has a complete trio, they will press the send button and go, right? Whether it's a launch pad going or even we've just seen I think we've seen 3 or 4 just straight ramp ups, right? And being able to take the fight. But one thing that's interesting about this game is it's a little bit different from a lot of the matches we saw over in Heat 1, a little bit more akin to the typical games we've seen for this Heat though. But they had the Storm Surge turn on for this first one, right? They were able to get that first initial warning because there was 71 players there, even though there's only 72 players in the lobby. So every single one of these trios has a decent idea of kind of where they are around the threshold hitting into the 5th zone, right? We haven't necessarily had that opportunity across all of the games, so the teams have a little bit more information to be playing with. We'll see if that comes into play to who decides to be aggressive.
Well, we saw in the previous game we watched from this Heat where team had all the information they could have possibly needed, right? And still didn't listen to it, where, you're seeing players literally being hit by Storm Surge in front of you. And, in the moment, you sort of lose all sorts of, sense and understanding of the game. And you just think, well, I just need to eliminate, right? And I just saw that, right? You saw I just saw that, Sunder?
I was just about to say, man, if he had just pulled somebody out of those boxes, like, that's why it's always so risky leaving one of those open. You never know what would happen. I go all the way back to the World Cup qualifiers, but I think it was Landjock was hopping around in one of the ballers during the solos, and a player has just left his window edit open, and Landjock just like happened to exit the baller, jump into the player's window, and just insta headshot 200 pump him. And it's just one of those situations where, again, like, you've checked your surge, you're in fourth zone. There is no reason for you to have it edit open. Ever, period. You should be cone peeking and looking for information right now. But like, if QB Master had been pulled out there, we would have been talking about that highlight forever, and it would have blown up across all of Fortnite Twitter, and everyone would have stole the tweet to post it.
And the mad thing is that could have happened, and it would have been from a team who actually just hasn't played any single game today, right? So, you know, this is the benefit of not fighting off spawn. You get the opportunity to be in these sort of situations at this stage. Look, we'll see what they do, right? Because we're talking about sort of the lessons players are learning from previous games. They don't have that. It's a clean slate for them, right? This is a fresh canvas that they now have to paint on, and they only have one game to do so. And what they choose to use this game for, but you know, becomes very interesting. I think where certain teams maybe have their worries about making certain rotations, peaking at certain times, maybe they are playing it a bit more safe. These guys, you know, they have that sort of, I don't want to say have a mental edge. I think they probably have the least mental in the lobby, right? Where they've literally just not been able to play a game, but they haven't had to deal with some of the issues a lot of these other teams have faced in these end games, and maybe that becomes an advantage in some capacity.
I mean, sometimes your mental gets just so boomed, you actually reset and go Galaxy Brain, right? It's like when you're like going all the way down, there's at some point where you are just so utterly exhausted and tired. It's when you hit that 300 cup of coffee and everything just kind of slow down. You kind of figure out, and you know what? After 5 straight games of just hitting their heads against the literal and proverbial brick wall, it feels like they kind of have it. But right now, Rax and Co. be able to hit the shots off. And I mean, I asked you guys last game. I'm going to ask again. Pick a trio. Who takes this one home?
Levin, do the honest. I went first last time. It's not fair to go first twice.
I'll give you mine. I think Wolfie and Irazumi pick this one up. I think it's going to be their game.
Okay.
They've really impressed me, and they were doing really well, right? Fourth places, but I want to go Flick, but I don't know. I'm not usually one to sit on the fence here, guys. This is the weird thing, but I'm just so conflicted.
Look at the script, right? The script would have us believe that one of those top teams that we see every FNCS should be there. This should be a Hen Refs Guard Trulex win according to the script. At the same time, it's like a Shakespeare book. The script. There's 2 pages of translation, right?
Who's writing the script?
We can't disclose who's writing the script, but it's the Loot Boys are also a very good plot device to have in here for a 5-game loss to a 6-game win. I usually follow the script, but the script is in multiple times. It's a choose your own adventure book now.
I mean, but I'm the type in the choose your own adventure books. Like, I was one of the ones where I'd have like a finger in each kind of page where I just went back. So it's just like, nope, I didn't want that ending. Flip back. It's like, you saw me. I didn't take my hand all the way off the page. And it seems like the scriptwriters this season, they've gotten a little bit off the rails. We've gotten some really good drama in there. But the question is, for the denouement here, I think we got a little bit of our climax there with Aqua ripping away the high ground. But now it's time for that falling action. Who's going to be that last team before we get into that finale and conclusion, and we kick off the next installment of the trilogy over in NA East? Because don't forget, we got 12 more matches, and we got 12 more matches again over in NA West. But right now, this is the one trio who is below that Storm Surge special. We talked about it, how this one was going to be the most painful one, but only one player needs to go down, and they sacrifice Dan over the Purple Lightning God. They say, hey, we go next, but again, could have been a little bit more efficient. They all burned through a lot of shields, and now Marumbi and Loki, they have no minis to fight. With any amount of damage tagged on to them, is going to stick.
It's always about searching for that one desperate opportunity or like leaving it open. Maybe someone else goes down. It'll be worth if you stay up right now, right? Maybe there's someone else doing the same shot we're doing, but choose to give the teammate away. The coolest thing about this team, though, is they look fear in the face and they did not budge at the end of the day. They didn't go dive into a box, just kept looking for the beams. They stayed secure.
I've decided. Rax, hurt you a mini. They have to do it.
I was going to say the same thing, though.
That's a good bit. That's a good bit.
They stick together, but the risky idea of picking them is that they go for height a little bit too early. It's like a 7th, 8th zone big swing where we just saw Aqua do it at the end of 8th towards the 9th.
And I think the biggest thing, like, yes, the players in the lobby and all that, the terrain has really dictated when the timing of the high grounds has been successful. And we're over such a flat and natural area with very little variability in topography. That means change in kind of levels that we go through the verticality. Sorry, big word.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Levin. I know you were just kind of, I saw the camera over on the side. He's like, I think I know one of those words. But what that means is when you go for the high ground, you have to invest more. There is a natural stair here. So the team who ends up going and ramping up, they could potentially rip it away as everyone ends up taking the sky. So keep an eye over on the side. You can see Zyper trying to end up going up, but we've seen the challenges going through as Flick, as Swag, and Pablo Wingo are going to get a little bit of a head. We're going to drop back down. This is the team who is way below the threshold, and that means they're going to be way below again. And as soon as the white tag comes through, the second one follows it up. Morumbi goes down. Loki, 2 HP in a dream, but more like a nightmare as he watches his FNCS potentially end right in front of him. Any stray bullet, it doesn't even have to be a bullet, the side from the pellet of one of those shotguns could take him down as we keep an eye in the top left corner of the feed. Razumi's going to get the confirmation over onto his teammate. We're going to hop on board. Wasikoro and Tenzin will take a look at the high ground as the challenge comes up. I said the earlier you go, the easier it is to challenge, and Chicky, Jimky rip it away from Lawson, Zyper, and Suzuwo, the team who was in second and just barely got outlasted in the last game, now trying to drop down, and they're playing heal off shadow. Look at Lawson's inventory, my lord.
And they just dropped down like 12 splashes as well. It was back and forth and back and forth. And now the whole trio's back to just 200 effective HP almost. They might have lost the first round, but they have a launch pad to go up straight for the second. They're going to help Height actually beam down the second Height team right there. It's going to be Fork looking for it still. He drops down towards Trulex, who's actually on second Height. They're so far split apart on high ground. Any one launch pad towards all the way towards the skies will result in a 3v2. Fork actually ends up going down as he goes towards maybe getting a few more mats or dropping some pressure, leaving these two as just a duo playing up here. And we know that's trouble. This zone is about to clap back as well and move, and that's when the launch pads will come through. We see Deox and Crow still alive down below. Nam is there with Wadsey. I'm looking for any other full trios. We have Flicks still alive. Refsguard just has 2. Hubak is still there too. A nice wild card. Who's going to challenge Height though? These guys have to get ready.
And Refsguard was able to pick up one of the elims just underneath. Watch for Refsguard and Trulix. They're looking for an opportunity to go up. They saw Chicky and Jimky drop down. They're out of mats. High ground is now completely open for the taking. Our match 5 second place is still up on his feet, but Flick, Swag, Pablo Wingo, they're a full trio still together. You have a full trio on the low ground. Otherwise, a bunch of duos just trying to hang out. Move back, trying to get some plays on the backside of the zone. Play a little bit of spoiler, but Refsguard and Trulix working along the backside. They said, Hen, you're the clutch master, but you can leave it to us. Flick, Wingu, and Refsguard picking up a full trio knock, but then Flick goes down. The Skyzoo able to pick that one up and take it away. Refsguard still has some floppers. He's holding on to 26 build, but Shy, we're pulling all the way out over the river. This is another max distance pull away from the high ground, away from the mountain. There's a launch pad. 12 players up, 6 trios left, 1 spot in EU. Who takes it away? Swag goes down. Skyzoo saying second place. I feel robbed. I need more. Trying to make the individual effort, but Pablo Wingo shuts down in the challenge for the high ground. Refsguard goes up and he's slapped back down. Dioxy takes him away. Trulex forced to drop down with only wood. 26 builds, a little bit of room. Will the individual be able to take it away? You can see the tension building. Crow, Deoxy on the high ground. Numb sees the DJ, and then you have Pablo Wingo and Trulex as solos, Tilted and Xerox. The final match, Shio, it all comes down to this.
Xerox has a good position, and Trulex just drops all the way down towards that low. Now he has 5 different people to deal with, not just this duo on Height that's dropping down. Pain on the rest of the server. All they have to do is hold on for the last elimination. 3 teams left, almost down to do. Deoxy takes the peek. He's going for a little bit of damage. The last player stuck in the mid ground. Wait a minute, where is he?
Trulex.
They're not sure. Is it a heal game? Does he have Height? Where's this last player? He's trying to heal. It's not enough. It's Trulex. He does not have what's needed to win the game. It's Deoxy, Crow, and Jose that come in with a dominant Height retake and the victory royale.
Viva España. There's Deoxy, Crow, and Jose are able to take away the final match of what was an utterly absurd semi-final round 2 out of Europe. I mean, Levin, that was a lot. Those were some ridiculous games.
EU just doesn't disappoint me. EU never fails to disappoint me. The ending there, like, there's so much heartbreak, and we could spend an hour talking about some of the disappointment, some of the frustration, but then the excitement, the levels of excitement are unmatched, truly unmatched. I'm really happy for these guys to be able to make it to the actual finals. You know, at the end of the day, they did it when it mattered the most. The hype takes at the end as well. Just we gotta get into this. we gotta really get into this on the desk.
No, definitely. Thank you so much, Levin, for tuning by for one of those heats as well. A crazy day. Sandin and I will see you in the finals as well, happening just soon. But to go over all these teams and the whole day that happened so far, let's bring back Zeke, Levin, and Reese.
Thank you guys so much. That was insane. That was a lot of fun. I just got to sit in the back, watch these two cast alongside our casters themselves. 11 games of some of the highest and craziest Fortnite action we've ever seen. And Levin, it ain't even finals, man. We start finals tomorrow.
It's mad. It's honestly, man. And for one, you know that can cast 11 games back to back so flawlessly like them two. There's not a long list of people that could do that, right? So props to those guys for really, you know, portraying just how crazy what went on was. Honestly, man, I'm really interested in seeing the lobby list now, because I feel like as much as I've seen so many games, right? So it's information overload. I can't even remember who's won what games, right? So I really want to see that lobby list eventually, but it was a mad day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 28. Like, my brain, I can't remember that many matches. I can't take that much information. I basically remember the last 2 games, and I'm like, they were beautiful, though. I tell you those much.
I guess I'll just be the older man here. That's fine. Let's take a look at the top 6 from this last heat that we just watched. So remember, we'll double back for heat number 1, but at the end there, we saw Jose Crow and Diox get themselves that final spot. And I mean, overall, these games were absolutely ridiculous, right? Like, also being able to bounce back and forth and just watch the different ways that both heats were playing was wild.
I think what sort of, you know, even explains to the level of madness we're at, right? I don't think anybody would have predicted necessarily the 6, right?
Right.
Like, you know, and props to them for being able to defy the odds, but I don't think a lot of people would have predicted the 6, and it's just because of how hectic these end games were. Really, the amount of hype takes, the amount of just, you know, people trying to go for helos maybe not working out, the amount of people just shambles on Surge trying to fight it out to stay in the game. Yeah, being able to fight through that to win these games has been crazy. These games were really difficult to be able to win.
Yeah, I think for Game 5 winner Koro, Splash, and Mawaka, like, you can't say that they didn't deserve it as well after winning 2 games in the heats and unfortunately just missing out by a couple of points to qualify straight through to the finals there. So from heat number 2, like, that's got to be a personal favorite victory royale for me, because I think when I see them win, I'm just like, yeah, finally. We were expecting this game 1, 2, or 3, something like that, something similar to their day 1 performance, but nah, they've nailed it in that second day. But let's have a look over to the heat number 1 results. My heat right here. Game number 1 was a blast, right? Obviously from Karma, Kylie and Aware going through there. The game of Vettel in game number 3, ETQ and Surprise, managing to switch up the drop spot, finally winning it off spawn, and then managing to obviously pick up the victory royale too. And Snazy's team coming through was huge, and we can't not talk about Aqua's team. You know what happened there.
It is mad because it's so Aqua, right, to do it. and it's the thing where, you know, we've seen with some of the greatest players that this game's ever had, they just do this, right? You know, a couple seasons ago in NA with Zate, right, winning a Reboot Round game. You know, this right now is crazy. In the final opportunity, there were so many chances, right? But in the final opportunity to do so, you go and do it. It's really just greatness. Greatness speaks for itself here.
I mean, guys, I'm so excited and I'm terrified looking at the lobby list tomorrow. We'll see it in just a second. First, let's relive some of these victory royales from the day, because once again, if you're just tuning in, you missed out. We had 11 games of Fortnite bouncing between 2 separate heats. We're kicking things off here in game number 1 of heat 1. Zendaya and company slipping down, and you know, this was Reese, a win from down low.
Yeah, we didn't see it very often. You saw Veteran just dropping all the way down there, and that's just basically how they got the Vic Roy. We don't often see zones like this that are pulling over such a massive amount of hill, going to the low ground teams. But hey, there's a first time for everything.
I was really happy to see this. Obviously, we didn't get the chance to watch this game, but you can see how they ended up winning it now. Michael, Verox, and Astra winning the first game in Heat 2. Big props to them, man. You know, to see a team who openly just wasn't working hard enough to be a top team, be able to fight back a season later and make it to the FNCS finals, more than deserved here.
Yeah,
They're double splashes. What?
And floppers and medkits. They had the whole shebang in their inventory, but flipping back to Heat number 1 at the same time. Oh, this is your Heat, actually. This is your Heat 11.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not Heat number 1, but this is the big Heat number 2. And I think all round, right, we saw just madness on height. I think that's the one thing I will leave today remembering. You know, talking to a couple players, they talked about how frustrating it is to hold height on a regular basis this season, right? Talking about the difficulties that comes with that, with just pads and madness and pads and more madness. But today, oh my goodness, yeah. I wouldn't be able to handle it if I was a player playing in these lobbies. I wouldn't. I would not be able to handle it. It was insane.
Yeah, it's rough for the players who don't manage to win a game, obviously, when they try their hardest and don't just get there. But I'm looking at the team that won Heat number 2, Game 4, Snacy, Nate, and Sky, and you've got to think, who right now has tears in their eyes? I'm thinking Queasy, Thomas, and Anas, because this is probably going to be a contestation at their drop spot, and this could shake up the next few days hugely, because they're one of the teams who's pointed out to be probably the highest, like I'd say the most people are going to predict them to win the overall tournament, and now they may be contesting the drop spot. We'll have to see in this storyline. For CRR, Aqua, and for Strokey, the clip from CRR's POV is on his Twitter. You know, there's some language in it, so, you know, if you're a little younger, maybe don't go there for that. But this is incredible. Like, honestly, the storyline they had throughout the day was so good. They were making so many mistakes in the earlier few matches. Towards the middle, you could see it, but it was a different form of mistakes up on height. And towards the end, they fixed all the mistakes. They took height late in a reboot round style game, which is just what you have to do.
And another example of taking a height late and winning it out. I feel so bad for Trulex, right? He was just trying to heal off. He was trying to stay alive for as long as possible, but it wasn't enough. Him, Refsguard, and Hen just weren't able to get it done this season. And I'm sure they'll reflect on it. I think there will be changes made on that part. But look, let's focus on the teams who are going to be playing for the rest of this weekend. It's mad as well to think that it is just this weekend. Like, it's literally tomorrow where we will find the conclusions to the madness we've seen over the past couple of weeks. But I'm very happy I get to see it as soon as possible. I don't want to have to wait.
Yeah, I'm just going to fall asleep right now. We got other regions after this. I'm going to fall asleep now so you wake up tomorrow for the
You can't afford to fall asleep, buddy. All right, you got a long
carry
day.
the cast Friday. It's fine.
Yeah, he'll be.
We'll take a quick nap aboard the battle bus before we head on over to NAE Freeze. We'll make it work. Guys, let's take a look at this final lobby list. Let's really set the stage here. Just look at these names, okay? Remember, we have 6 games both days for a total of 12 matches. Just look at this ridiculous list, and this is just the first page.
I'm in awe, right? A lot of these teams, the elite teams in the region, of course, the teams from last season, it's going to be good to see them back, right, into, you know, a high-intensity lobby. Of course, the teams who were able to qualify early on, obviously, we alluded to some of the teams that now might be contested, right? Queasy and Nas Thomas over at Catty, that's going to be an issue. For Anderlecht at Misty, they're going to be contested by Milwaukee now, you'd think. So what happens
Floki
over
Clement
there?
those two?
Floki Clement and Deceptors, of course.
There's no way that happens. There's no way, bro.
It's gonna be the French teams, as we know it's gonna happen. And Lex's team's gonna be on the east. We know Floki Clement Deceptor's gonna be on the west. We've seen it before.
But it's mad because typically you have time to understand the dynamics of how this is going to be. We're just being thrown into it tomorrow, right? You know, there is minimal time for teams to almost think things out, work things out. If you are going to switch up, let's say you decide, I don't want to contest. You know, you don't have that much long to research your new spot, right? So very, very difficult. Let's take a look at the next page, though, right? Because we still got plenty of players who have qualified for that final tomorrow. Of course, Floki Clement Deceptors, like we spoke about here as well. Seti, Cami, and Teak. It's good to see these guys in the finals. They will be a threat on low ground every single game. I can tell you that for a fact. And of course, we start to see some of our reboot round winners, or our semi-final day 2 winners, I should say, creeping in here in the likes of Karma, Zendaya, where those guys were able to win a game and will be playing tomorrow as well. Big props to them.
Huge indeed, right? Like, what's interesting about this list is like just seeing the names, I can just envision what tomorrow is going to be like. I can see already potentially, we see obviously from the other page before, like a Reason pop off. We're going to see a Noah, Janice, and Vadil win somewhere in there with a bunch of eliminations. You know, I can just picture the Floki, Clement, Deceptos, low ground pop offs, keeping them in a top 5. And honestly, like, I'm so excited about these next 2 days because, you know, with the way that we've got these teams pulled in together, like this is creating such a high quality lobby. And if we look over those final page to see the final 11 teams that have qualified through here, man, some big names on here. Obviously, let's be real, I think the one that a lot of people's eyes are drawn to, Snacy, Skite, and Nate, but obviously for Stroker, CR, and Aqua as well.
Yeah. Big props to all the teams who were able to make it through. I'll be supporting my British boys, Michael, Astro, and Verox, as always. Come on, lads, we can do it. But you know, I'm excited for all the teams who were able to make it through. And it's a great achievement. You know, playing Fortnite all year long. You know, there's 4 massive FNCSs. You want to make it to the final of at least one. And for some of these teams, it's their first time playing in an FNCS final. To make it, it's a dream come true for a lot of these guys, and it's a dream that will be fulfilled tomorrow.
The stage is set. Gentlemen, thank you so much for all of your help today. Fortnite fam, you guys gotta give these two, Shy Wager and Sundown, a follow. They just casted 11 games back-to-back, non-stop, and brought the hype the whole time. What are you doing? Find them, follow them. They're incredible human beings. Don't forget, if you want more Fortnite action, we're going over to NA East for another 12. We're ending the day in NA West for another 12. We got 24 more matches ahead of us. I can't wait. Reese, let's go jump on the battle bus because it's time to go. As always, Fortnite fam, we love you, and we'll see you on that battle bus. All right.
That was a rubbish one.